Cortex has three key parts for a simple creative workflow: documents, chats, and sources. Documents are where you write project outlines, articles, book chapters, batches of social posts, study notes, or anything else you would write in your typical word processor or note-taking app. Now chats have two functions, and the first is to text yourself ideas, because most people jot down ideas in this long running note that they eventually forget about, or just they can't find their ideas. So you can type @ or + inside of a chat to connect your ideas to a specific document. If you're writing a book, you can capture ideas specific to each chapter so they don't get lost, and open those ideas as you write. And the same holds true for something like taking a note. You can create a document for the note you want to take, leave it blank, and then go into a chat and just text the ideas as you're researching that thing or taking notes. And then with Kai or Cortex AI, you can just ask it to summarize that entire chat, and then you can put it in the document so you have the fleshed out notes. And that streamlines your creative process and leads into the second function of chats, which is Cortex AI. Kai is your creative sparring partner. When you press tab, Kai is now enabled and will respond to you. It takes the entire chat into context to give you accurate answers. And when you type @ or +, you can now ask questions to the documents or sources in your workspace. Now, one cool thing here is that you can paste the link to a YouTube video and it will automatically be added as a source. From there, you can ask it questions to extract knowledge from the video. How powerful this is really up to your imagination. If you want to take a document where you have how to write a newsletter and pair that with a YouTube video or two YouTube videos or another source that you pulled in highlights from your Kindle and merge those all together into the newsletter or for research, there's so much you can do with this. As you're taking notes, writing content, or generating ideas, enable Kai and ask it questions rather than opening another tab to search Google. Kai can help with almost any questions you have. Now, after chats comes sources. First, you can connect with Readwise to import all of your highlights from Kindle or any other place on the web. You can drag in PDFs to read, highlight, and reference as you write. While you're writing, you can backlink to other documents or sources by typing @. And this creates interconnected writing. It organizes your notes and makes connected ideas that you wouldn't normally find in a hierarchical folder-based structure findable. So you can open and reference those fast in the pane system in Cortex. So you have everything in view at once as you're writing, note-taking, or just researching. Now let's run through a quick example so we can tie everything together. So let's imagine we're writing a newsletter or a book chapter or an article. So there's two steps here usually, which is to create an outline and write the draft. To create an outline, you just create a new document, and then this is where elements come into play. So elements are little organizational blocks that you can name. So let's keep this simple. Let's create a topic ideas element, a research element, and an outline element. And here's an example of another template for social posts. I created batch elements and post elements to keep things organized. You can also do this for your note-taking or if you're planning your day and want to structure your goals and tasks. And now when it's time to write, I can create a new document as a plain draft and open my outline in a new pane so they are side by side. And as another quick tip, I can also open elements independently in a pane if I don't want to scroll a lot. And now I can open up chats and I can talk to Kai as a creative sparring partner to both fill out my outline and guide me as I write my draft. So that is the very, very general workflow. Outline with elements, use documents for writing, use chats to capture ideas, and use Kai as a creative sparring partner, and use sources to store external knowledge. And you synthesize all of those with connections Kai in just the workspace of Cortex. And the best thing here is that all base features are free for Cortex when you sign up. It's free for personal use. We only bill based off of AI usage and storage usage. And when you sign up, we'll send you a prompt library and a planning template and a social media post template and everything you need to know to get started, even more than you learned in this video. Thank you for watching, and we hope you enjoy Cortex. In this video, I want to talk about the importance of a second brain and how to capture the best ideas for your second brain. So this software was built mainly for writers, creators, and marketers with them in mind, but note takers and just people building out creative projects in general can benefit massively from this system as well. And you'll understand why by the end of this in the next video. So the problem with writers, creators, and marketers is that first, they struggle to come up with novel ideas. So they tend to either copy others or they get lost and they just feel like they can't write. And then the second is that they struggle to say things their own way. So this is a common problem because when we read things or when we have an idea, the only way we can really think of that idea is in someone else's words. And the third thing is they struggle to distinguish themselves from everyone else. So whether you're a writer, creator, or marketer, I'm assuming you're trying to be unique. You're trying to be irreplaceable. You already write every single day. Everyone is a writer, or else you wouldn't be using Cortex, right? You write words. You use words to communicate with other people, and that's important. It's a major part of anything that you do in life. So for note takers, they often just don't have a purpose for their notes. They just hoard ideas and don't really do anything with it. We'll touch on that in a bit. But the reason for all of these problems is because these people don't have a connected database of original and curated ideas to reference when it's time to write, create, or market. In other words, you don't have original ideas stored somewhere for easy reference when it comes time to create stuff. Let's talk about why Cortex came to be and how it was a game changer and how one simple second brain tool really changed everything for me personally. So the person recording this, me, is Dan, right? I'm a co-founder along with Matt and Joey, and I started noticing a lot of my social media growth pick up when I first started using a second brain. So we'll go over the three reasons why this kind of changed my direction. Is that one, social media growth. So when I started understanding the system and creating it, this is what helped me go from 7,000 to 300,000 on YouTube, 40,000 to 1.6 million on Instagram, and people quoting my ideas all over X. It helped me write a book. The Art of Focus would not be a thing without this system. Most of my newsletters would not be a system. Most of my newsletters would not be a thing without this system. All of my ideas and content are first fleshed out and written in a second brain, and I have access to them at any time. So a second brain for me was the system that helped. And when I say that, it's because I took a course, and the course was teaching Roam Research, and it was teaching me how to implement the Zettelkasten and note-taking system inside there. And as I started making connections in that brain and building it out, I started to add my own pieces to the Zettelkasten system that made it much more impactful for the writing that I was creating with those ideas. And everything started to click, and I really felt like I could finally become like the person or the people that I wanted to become like Naval Ravikant and Jordan Peterson. Regardless of his political views, he is an extremely articulate speaker, and Alan Watts and others of that nature. I always wondered, how are these people so articulate with their ideas? And while this may not be the system that they use, this is the system that I use to at least feel like I'm matching their level and quality of ideas. So if you can spend 10 to 20 minutes a day capturing ideas, developing ideas, and connecting ideas, you will not have a problem with consistent and unique writing. Or I'll go even further to say you won't have a problem with big picture thinking, quality of ideas, and articulation. Going further, how do we actually capture an idea? Because you need an idea to write about, right? How are you going to fill up your second brain if you don't have ideas that fill it up? Ideas are the building blocks of all of this. Everyone can build a second brain. Everyone can write well. They just need to increase the quality of ideas that are coming into their mind, and they need a way to not only capture it, but develop that idea into something that others want to read. So the first step to understanding this is that everything is an idea. The thoughts in your head, the lesson in your life that you just went through, the content you consume. Creators view life as an endless stream of ideas. The books you read. I love Naval Ravikant. You'll see some quotes of his throughout this course. If you follow me on social media, you know I reference him a lot. One thing that he mentioned is that he treats social media as his note-taking platform, and I see that as a great thing. But when it comes to connecting those ideas and referencing them while you do these things, why not just write the social media post in your second brain and then you're growing this entire database that can be distributed to all platforms. And now to the right of that, something to practice here is to start to gain awareness of everything happening around you. I feel like people don't have ideas because they just aren't receptive to the experience that is going on in front of them. They scroll on their phones and let the 20, 50 ideas that clearly caught your attention and could catch other people's attention, you just let them pass you by. So the thing here is there a lesson you can pull out of everyday experiences? This isn't only a way to just capture ideas and get better at writing. It's a way to become more aware and present and look deeper into the situation of your life right now. The next thing is to write down your ideas fast. So use the capture feature as your digital whiteboard, notebook, and sticky note. You don't need any more sticky notes. You don't need to write on shower walls. You don't need to open random notes apps on your phone. You just need to open capture on your phone and write down the idea in there so that it is connected to the rest of your ideas inside of there. Another way to have good ideas is to pay attention to the dopamine signaling in your brain. Good dopamine equals you should capture that idea. Now, the way you can notice this is through excitement, right? When you've ever read a book or you see a social media post and you're like, dang, I wish I wrote that, or I want to write about that, or I need to save that for later, save that. The next step to coming up with good ideas or just to capturing good ideas is to not consume, but to research, to see yourself as a researcher. And since one, the quality of your life is dependent on your ideas, and for creative people, the quality of your work is dependent on good ideas, you need an endless supply of the good ideas to continue producing, right? It's like the gas tank of a car or the battery of an electric car. If the battery runs out, it's going to be difficult to move forward. So stop scrolling just for the sake of consuming content and entertaining yourself, and start logging on to research for an idea that you want to make your own. What a lot of beginner writers, creators, marketers, etc., even note takers don't understand is how critical research is as a cornerstone habit in your life. So some things you can do right now is to just follow people who are teaching what you want to write about on social media. Not only does this give you good ideas, but it starts to reprogram your mind to become those people. The next is just buy books to give you a broad overview of what you want to write about. So I personally like to read the first 2 to 3 chapters of a very big picture book, and I'll have ideas to write about for the next 6 months. I'm not kidding there. The next is to just subscribe to podcasts, YouTube channels, and blogs. The thing with this, and the thing with the creative lifestyle or the writer's life, is that idea generation is one of the most important aspects of writing, and it has to become a daily habit for you, or else your writing will suffer because of that. Now, last, just some practical aspects of things that you can capture, and this will make a lot more sense once we dig back into Cortex and start actually doing this. I just want you to know where you can look for ideas. So the first is just posts on social media that stick out to you. If you have the Readwise integration with Cortex, you can hook Readwise up to Twitter, and when you bookmark the post, it will be added to your Cortex. The next is just thoughts that are bothering you. So if you have a thought and it's negative and you're in pain because of it, write about that thought. Start to break it down. Treat your note-taking process as a journaling process instead, and now you have something that you can share with other people who are going through the same thing. After that is to just quote your favorite creator. So find a quote from them, take it, make it your own. Others are highlights from books you're reading. So again, if you have the Readwise integration, you can just save all of these to your Cortex, like your Kindle highlights. After that, headlines of blog posts, YouTube videos, and podcasts. This is something that we talk about in the Writers Bootcamp and Creator Central, the paid community, how to find high-performing ideas on social media so that when you make them your own, you can almost ensure that they're also going to do very well and they're going to bring in followers and an audience and people who actually want to read your stuff. And then aside from that, of course, just anything else you want to remember. So if you want to remember everything, just make sure you capture it in some way. Now, you can copy and paste things, or you can have AI write things for you, which AI is coming to Cortex in a bit. But in my eyes, it's better to just write down the idea in your own words. If it's something that sticks out to you and you have thoughts about it, open up Capture and just start writing it. That is it for this video. I'll see you in the next one, and I hope you enjoyed this one and got something out of it. In this video, I'm going to talk about Core Notes, which is a new note-taking system that we have created alongside Cortex. The problem with most note-taking systems is that they just don't have a purpose, right? I mean, remembering stuff is the purpose, and potentially being able to reference it is the purpose. But if that were the case, why is the overwhelm and the bloatedness and the confusion so widespread? And why aren't more people, especially creatives or knowledge workers, actually using the ideas that they bookmark or save or take notes on? Typically, you work on something for a month or 2 months and you take a bunch of notes and then it kind of just goes away. It disappears. I've been through that process multiple times. Or you take notes in school and they serve you well then, but then you either don't self-educate enough to the point where you need to take notes, or you're not taking notes for your work in a way that is conducive to better creations. So Jordan Peterson, Alan Watts, and any of the artists, thinkers, or public figures you admire, they all have one thing in common, at least in my eyes, is they have depth, clarity, and quality of ideas. That's why we made the Core Notes note-taking system. Because while other systems just have you write down ideas and kind of save them for later use, we want you to make your ideas your own so that you can contribute to people taking notes about your ideas. So one thing that Naval said very recently, as of like a few days ago of me recording this, is that you want to be paid purely for the quality of your thoughts. And Alan Watts also had a quote, something along the lines of, sensible people get paid to do what they enjoy. So in terms of creative work or knowledge work or anything that we talk about here at Cortex, Core Notes is a key part of that. And even if you don't take notes, the system itself and thought process. Core Notes is a thought process, not necessarily a note-taking system. The thought process will help you become a clear, articulate, and quality thinker with depth. With Core Notes, the key thing about it is that you are developing ideas after you capture them. So you just learned how to capture ideas and what ideas to capture. But what you do after it is not just letting it sit in a bank of notes. It's developing the ideas to make it your own. The thing here, when you capture an idea, you have to understand that people's purpose in life or goals in life are going to be relatively the same, but their path to get there will be different. And everyone can benefit from similar ideas, but the person who said it and the perspective they read it from. People don't follow information, they follow perspectives, right? They follow your perspective. When you're teaching or you're doing creative work or you're doing knowledge work, you may often question, okay, well, what makes my ideas unique if I'm just saying the same thing as everyone else? Well, one, it's your perspective, and two, it's how you develop the ideas and build on top of them to make them even better and unique to you, because everyone can have the same goals of financial freedom and a healthy body and raising their consciousness and all those other things. But the path to get there is infinitely different. And by taking ideas and spinning them through your own lens and worldview is what makes them unique. But you need to learn how to do that, right? And what a worldview or a lens is composed of, and your psychology. That's what Core Notes is based around. It's a psychological thought process note-taking system. It's all broken down into that. Now, the thing with most writers, creators, marketers, they focus on short-term gains, virality and fame, and followers and trends. So they gain a lot of followers, but nobody actually cares about their ideas, right? You follow these people, you see these people all the time, but then there's the select few people who you're like, dang, how do they just consistently come up with great ideas? So on the right side of the screen, you can see 3 concepts. The first one is the one-person business. So who do you think of? I've talked about this a lot. I'm not the one who necessarily came up with it, but a lot of people attribute that to me and whoever is winning in that idea race. Now, 1% better every day. Who do you think of? James Clear. That's obvious, right? It's a great concept. It's a great idea. The 4-hour work week. Who do you think of? Tim Ferriss. It's a great idea, right? It works in a book. So coming up with these ideas is not dumb luck. It's replicable because you just need a system for developing those ideas. And that's why Cortex is here. By now, you should understand the base features of Cortex. You should understand at least what an element is. It's like a little note within a note. It's a little box, an organizational feature that you can add to a document. So for core note elements, these are different elements than what are in your workspace when you first get started. When you first start in Cortex, you have a few example elements and groups. You have like a productivity or planning and a note-taking and a writing group, and each of those have different elements. Like the writing one has a hook element, a body, a conclusion, a social post, etc. For core note elements, you're going to be creating these new elements under a core note group so that you can create core notes with them, and we'll show you how to do this. But if you want to create these elements, then you press But if you want to create these elements, then you type / in the document, and then you go to new elements or new element group, and you create the core note group, and then you add these elements inside of it. So you can see it on the right-hand side. It's big idea, problem, goal, example, benefit, process, concept. Any element within this can be used as an individual post, sections of a thread, building blocks of a newsletter, headlines, titles, and thumbnails, or guides for your thinking and impact. So when you take notes on ideas, like we'll learn, you can use each of the elements that you create as a way to then turn those into individual posts, sections of the thread, building blocks of a newsletter, headlines, etc. I'll show you what I mean. Or you can use them as your writing to guide your writing. So if you can't think of something to write next, then just go to the core note elements and pick something like problem, and boom, you have a new angle to start writing from. Now there is a deep purpose behind the choice of these elements or behind the tenets of the system inside core notes. So in something like Zettelkasten, you have things like fleeting notes and permanent notes and other things like that that help you flesh out whatever it is you're taking notes on, like the literature notes. In this, you're taking an idea and then you're expanding on it in your own words with problem, goal, benefit, example, etc., as your guides to take the notes. So the purpose of these is that if you have studied content or psychology or marketing or sales or any of that at all, you can already see what's going on here. You can see the first two, problem and goal, and you understand, okay, creative work or business or just self-improvement or anything is about transformation. It's about becoming aware of a problem and reaching toward a desired outcome or a goal. So you can see how these are built around attention grabbing and persuasive writing. So for the problem is that humans have a negativity bias, and you can use the problem element to catch attention, relate with readers, and help readers understand why they're pursuing a goal. The thing here is that almost every single, if you go and look at writing frameworks, you'll find something like PAS, which is problem, amplify, solution. If you want to capture attention, if you want to make the reader know that your writing is for them, you have to nail the problem, right? The next one, goal, to the right, is that just all good writing starts with a goal that you are leading your readers toward. Because the thing is if you don't have a goal, then what are you leading people towards in your writing, right? All of your writing is framed under a goal. The next thing is the benefit. So you can have a goal, but why should people care about achieving it? So you use the benefit and you flesh that out and use it in your writing to make it more enticing so that they want to continue reading to get the solution. Now, an examples in your writing helps readers understand your points by grounding them in reality. So you want to use the example element whenever you need to explain a specific concept. Now, moving forward, those were to capture attention and hold attention in your writing. So when you're taking notes with these elements and then you're using them in your writing as building blocks or ideas, you're capturing and holding attention. But now to make people remember your ideas, you can go even further and you can create a concept. So a concept is a way of thinking about an idea or group of ideas. So something like the synthesizer is a certain type of writer or creator. I've used this before. I like the word synthesizer more than writer or creator because you're synthesizing ideas into your own. The thing with concepts is similar to what we talked about earlier with the 1% better every day or the 1% business is it helps package up your ideas in a way that people remember and attribute to you. Next up is the process element inside of our core note system. And a process is just a set of actionable steps that lead to a goal. So use the process element to make your writing valuable and give your readers clarity to act. And as a bonus, you can name your process. So the concept and the process go hand in hand here. And if you've ever read an article or a newsletter or watched a YouTube video or really anything, or even read a tweet, you understand that actionable steps, key points are crucial to delivering value most of the time, a lot of the time. Now, the next and last element in the core note system is big idea. So big ideas capture attention and inspire others. These are usually the ideas you capture and make your own. So when you think of a big idea, you think of the idea that you capture and then you flesh out the idea and then you take everything that you wrote and you turn it into your own big idea from all of that. Now, to make a connection and help you understand how powerful this is the YouTube video that brought me to 250,000 subscribers was titled The 1% Business, How to Productize Yourself with Turn Yourself into a Business as the thumbnail text. So we're talking about taking notes here, but when it comes time to create a YouTube video or to write a newsletter or to write social media content, you're using everything that you've written in your notes and combining them and synthesizing them into something unique because the 1% business started as a concept in my second brain. How to productize yourself went along with that as the process. And then the big idea, so turn yourself into the business, these were all elements in a note of mine in a second brain. And just by putting these out and sharing my ideas with the world, I was able to grow in subscriber count and make my creative work a success. Now, the last thing here is that simple notes are key because I can promise you that this process we're going to go through can get very addictive. If you actually do it every single day, it'll get very addictive. You'll want to keep going. And that's a good thing. Don't stop yourself. But at the same time, just take simple notes, right? We'll go over exactly how to, like what to write in the notes and how focused to keep them and how many elements in each and how many tags and connections and etc. But the thing here, the point is to not take notes on every single thing that you read. First, by taking notes on every single thing that you read, or like say you're listening to an audiobook and you just are writing down every single word that they say, you're not thinking for yourself. You're narrowing your mind to the teachings of that person and you're not allowing your mind to expand further and have any original thought. So what I want you to focus on is one, just actionable insights and capturing those down, ideas that you will actually use and enough context to just get the point across when you're actually capturing the ideas. So the thing here, and to end this video, is that your notes are the building blocks of your writing. Remember that. They're the building blocks of your writing. That's what Cortex is made for. You want to focus on having an abundance of ideas that you can string together with more time-consuming writing. Now, this process makes writing a lot less time-consuming. You pretty much write all of your writing inside of your notes and then you just piece them together like Legos. But the thing here is that you just want to have the right ideas that when it comes time to write and string them together, it all flows very well. You don't want any noise in there. So that's it for this video. Hope you've enjoyed it. Continue on. We've got some exciting stuff to come still. Okay, now comes the fun stuff where we can actually start writing notes for your second brain to start building out the Legos or the building blocks of all of your writing or really anything else that you create, because ideas are the foundation of a good life, in my opinion, because ideas create potential. And if your mind is the operating system for reality and you're able to have better ideas, then you're able to pursue more in your life and be aware of more in your life, because you can't build something unless you have the idea first. And you can't have the idea that's further out there, the more advanced, the more experienced idea, until you build and actualize the first one. So a bit of philosophy for you there at the start. But what we're going to do is, the first thing we're going to do is duplicate our core notes template. So whenever you have an idea that you want to make your own, you're going to duplicate the core notes template, and then you will organize it accordingly after you write it into one of your main categories. So we're going to right click, duplicate this, and I have a copy of the core notes template. And what we need now is an idea to write about. So the first step is to create a big idea. Now I'm going to delete all of this stuff, and let's delete capture an idea too. So we need to find an idea, and there's multiple ways you can find an idea. The first is just from your capture. So we filled some of these out in the earlier sections and in the product tour. There isn't really an idea here, but you probably have an idea that you would want to turn into an idea, right, of your own, or flesh out further. So we're not going to take one from here for now, but you can take one from capture. You can also take one from your library. So if you have a highlight that you want to turn into your own, or you just really like an idea from there, we'll actually do this after the first core note that we create, but you can search for a highlight and include it there. What we're going to do right now is go to a tweet that I previously wrote. So we're going to take this idea right here. This extension is called Twemex, T-W-E-M-E-X. You can search that on Google and install it. And what it does is it allows you to see the top posts for any specific person's content on Twitter. The beautiful thing about this is that it shows you top performing content. Now, if you're a writer, or if you're realizing that, hey, I actually can become a writer with Cortex and Core Notes, the key to good content, or the key to content that actually leads to growth, is emulating ideas that already work, or that people already like, or that people already follow. So if you can find a high performing idea, whether just by scrolling the timeline or actually intentionally researching for it like this, then and creating your own ideas from it with Core Notes and articulating it in a completely different way, you increase your chances of being unique on the internet and actually growing on the internet. So we're going to take this, we're going to copy the URL, we're going to go back to our Core Notes, and we're just going to paste this here. And then you can press tab to actually embed the tweet. We're not going to do anything else with this, but we can if we want. If you want to expand on this, be my guest. But for now, we're going to leave that, right? The next thing is I'm going to illustrate a problem. So we understand the necessity of talking about a problem or a pain point, right? If you're into marketing or just business in general, you understand the importance of illustrating a problem, because a problem is what allows the reader to know whether or not the writing is for them, right? Because people are reading things for value. They want a solution. They want it so it's like, hey, this person understands exactly what I'm going through, or, oh, they made me aware of a problem that I didn't even know I had. Now I want to solve it. I want to improve myself. So this is a very fulfilling line of work for writers, is to identify problems and write solutions for them. So for a topic like this, on the idea that we chose, which is normalize not having an idea, normalize not having an opinion on things you don't understand, a problem for this could be something along the lines of, most people act like they understand something so that they don't look stupid, right? And then we can work from there. So the thing with this, and elements in general, and Core Notes in general, is you'll make this connection soon, but the elements of big idea, problem, goal, example, benefit, they help you write through things when you don't know what to write. So if you're ever writing anything, it doesn't have to be a note. Think through the idea you're trying to write in terms of, okay, what's the big idea? Okay, what's the problem? What's the goal? What's the example? If you're in a random section of a book, or if you're in a random section of a newsletter or an article or a YouTube video script, think through these things, and you'll find your way out of writer's block. And you can even add the element if you're writing those things in Cortex, right? So problem, goal, example, benefit, process, concept. So from this, let's say I wrote the idea, normalize not having an opinion on things you don't understand. Now let's flesh out the problem. So I'm going to write this, and then we'll come back. Okay, so we just finished this up, and this is the problem. Most people act like they understand something so they don't look stupid. Even if they have surface level knowledge of the subject, they will judge and criticize others as if they know more than they do. So to build from this, we can just go through the rest of the elements. So here, I don't really want to use a goal. The thing with Core Notes is that you don't have to use any of these. In fact, you don't even have to use this template. You can just open a document and start writing, okay, I have an idea. Let's write out the problem. Let's write out the example. You just create Core Notes like you normally would. So example, and then you start writing. This template is just to help at the start and potentially be more convenient. So from here, I do have an example. So I'm going to write this out. And what you do in a nutshell is just think things through. So from the big idea, we got the problem. From the problem and the big idea, let's think of an example. Okay, so we're back with an example, which is you watch a podcast on a new fad diet. You feel like you're well educated on the subject. You think everyone who isn't low carb is dumb. You don't understand nutrition, but you feel like you do because you got some results, but you lack regard for other people's goals. They aren't the same as yours. So this illustrates an example of normalize not having an opinion on things you don't understand. It's because a lot of people learn something new, and then Dunning-Kruger effect. They think, oh, okay, yeah, I know more than you on this. You're dumb for not knowing this. Low carb diet is the best. They don't have multi-perspectival understanding. They don't see the principles between all things. I digress. But we actually mentioned a concept there. So for the concept element, let's just add in Dunning-Kruger effect. I don't know if that's how you put it, but let's delete that. Let's turn this back to white, default. And the thing with this, so throughout this, remember that we want at least 3 elements. We want at least 2 tags and 1 connection. That way we can continue. We can find this note when we're sifting through other notes or trying to find novel ideas. So here, let's go back and let's actually change knowledge to a tag. So knowledge, just because now we can search this when we click on it, and we have the one document. Now, another thing we can do here is we can tag nutrition here if we wanted to. We can tag it as a post idea if we want to reference it later. But what I'm going to do is throughout this entire time, especially if you don't have many core notes created yet, or you don't have any notes at all, or an entirely new idea comes to mind, you can create a new document that you can start taking core notes on, right? Or just save it for later. So let's just say I'm a note on nutrition. And we can create that document. It will add it as a nested document to this. I can open it as a connection, and it's sitting there. So let's just imagine that we created that. I'm actually going to delete this, but let's continue on. We'll come back and think of a connection that we can make. But next thing, benefit, I'm going to skip over this as well. We're going to go straight into a process. So what a process is a step-by-step solution to overcome the problem or to achieve a specific goal. So in this case, a process is, okay, what's the solution here? What am I giving that's valuable? And if you understand how to write newsletters or articles, you can understand where we're going with this, where any core note you create can be used as a newsletter outline or a YouTube video script or anything like that. Because all of those things usually start with the problem or pain point as the hook. They give examples, they potentially hint towards a goal, and then they give a process. I'm sure you've seen 8 steps to stop caring what people think. That was actually a recent YouTube video of mine, but the 8 steps part is the process, right? So if you're taking notes on a high-performing idea, not like normalize not having an opinion on things you don't understand, then you have a problem related to that and a process to help people overcome it. You not only have a outline for a script or a bunch of ideas for different social media posts or whatever it may be, you can also include this tweet embed to add more authority to your writing, because in YouTube videos and newsletters and social media posts, like, you gain authority when you back up your arguments with other credible data, facts, arguments, and other things like that. So I'm going to write out the process here and then we'll come back to this. All right, so what I did here was I listed out a process to overcome the problem. The process is open your mind and realize you don't know everything, resist the urge to react with what you think you know, listen to others and collect kernels of truth, capture those ideas in your second brain, and I added a tag there to categorize anything by second brain, develop them using core node elements, and use your core node elements to teach from a new perspective. So you can also see how you can really tie the process into anything that you do. So if you are a freelancer, you have a service, or you have a product, or whatever it may be, you can like transition into those things with almost anything. So another thing that we can add here, where we skipped over the benefit element earlier, we can add that here, where the benefit of this process are things like you become less reactive, you learn more than everyone else, you become more articulate and knowledgeable, and you get better results in that topic. So now we could add on to this, but we'll leave it for now. You have a pretty dang fleshed out core node. Another thing is that sometimes these just get ugly, so let's delete that. Let's rename this to, just name it Learn Like a Student for later. And the only thing that we're missing is we have two tags, we have a few elements, everything is looking good. One thing that we can add is some kind of connection. So if I look at prior things that I have, creativity, how to find profitable ideas, ideas are the new oil, you can see, capture those ideas. So I talked about ideas briefly. So let's just plug in here, ideas are the new oil. It kind of sort of makes sense. You're not trying to add directly connected ideas, right? When you're writing about something and you're sifting through a lot of different notes, you want novel connections. You want something that's unique. You want something that hasn't been done before. And so if I'm using this note as a reference for a YouTube script or a newsletter, and I see, okay, ideas are the new oil is in here, and I already have this core note fleshed out, now I can start to work with this, right? I have an entire YouTube video that I can watch for specific ideas, and I can start to tie things together and really create something unique. So this is our core note for now. We have a connection, we have tags, we have everything. It's looking good. Now we need to organize this. So let's go over here. Learn like a student. That could go into creativity, but let's just create a new one because learning itself is a pretty big topic. So I'm gonna drag this under here, drag learn like a student under it, and now our core notes are coming together. So now let's create one more core note, and this time let's base it off of the idea of the last core note so we can create another connection. So learn like a student. Let's think about that. Let's open it in a pane, and let's find an idea that we can build off of. So become less reactive, open your mind, Dunning-Kruger. So one idea actually just came to mind is that I've had ideas before like this one that's high performing, and it kind of reminds me of learning like a student, right? And self-education and really getting into that. So nobody is coming to save you is a great option for a new idea. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back to Cortex. We're gonna duplicate our core notes template. We're gonna open this. We're going to connect a specific document. So we're gonna take the big idea, and I'm just gonna straight up add learn like a student here, right? And then from here, this is connected to this document. As you can see here, it's a connection, and it's also an incoming connection to the Learn Like a Student document. So if we have this one open, we can start to work with it to really get a big idea. But the idea we wanted to use is that nobody is coming to save you, and that's a typically high-performing topic. Now this time around, I don't want to use the same elements, just to give you better examples. I don't care to use problem elements, example elements, process, or concept elements. I want to use just different elements. Now let's add one more thing to the big idea, because personal responsibility comes to mind, and that's more of an idea than a problem or other things. So let's write that down. So personal responsibility is the key to building a life that you love. So that's kind of related to a goal. So let's go to the goal and write something out. All right, so we came back with to become financially independent and do work that you love. I tagged it with business, to have thriving relationships and fulfilling free time, to be able to make decisions whenever you want, wherever you want. Now from the goal usually stems a problem. So what's the problem that's preventing people from achieving the goal? So let's build that out next. Okay, so the problem that we came up with is most people don't take responsibility for their lives, so they're doomed to the outcomes that others assign them. They never set their own goals. They go to school, get a job, and retire at the age they're told to, while barely scraping by with an underwhelming paycheck. If that hurts, I'm sorry. But be authentic with your writing. Don't be afraid to be bold and talk about these things, as that's what sets you apart. Now we're just gonna stick with this. So I'm gonna delete all of these elements, and we have one tag. We could add another one, but I'm just gonna let it be for now. And we're gonna name this Nobody is Coming to Save You. And what we could do here for connection is either connect something that we already have or create a new one. So this right here, not taking responsibility or not having their own goals, going to school, etc. It reminds me of something on like habit formation. So just to show you what we can do, if ideas keep coming, don't stop writing notes. They're going to come in so much handy later, and you can keep it short and sweet. So we're gonna go straight into this. We have habit formation. I'm gonna drag it over to the main pane, and we're just gonna get started straight away. So I'm gonna connect Nobody's coming to save you. I'm not going to use a template for this. We're going to dig straight into the problem. So the problem for habit formation is that habits determined who you are now. They will determine who you are in the future. Most people don't have the habits that will create their ideal lifestyle. So now let's go straight into just the process because it's coming to mind. We can dig into this by saying first step is set a new goal of your own. Or immerse yourself in self-education and learning. Before that, identify the habits, skills, and knowledge standing in the way. Immerse yourself in self-education and learning. Allow your mind to grow into a new identity. And we can name this process if we wanted to, but outside of that, let's just have a example. No. Let's actually create a concept with it where you are your habits. And just a simple description of you are your habits would be or you aren't where you want to be because you didn't make the choices that would get you there, something like that. There's an idea there, and this could definitely be turned into a tweet. So I could just write post idea to save that for later. I could tag through these things. I already have a connection, and now we have a few core notes. So let's think of this. We have habit formation that goes under learning. Nobody is coming to save you. That's more of like a self-improvement thing. So add another category, self-improvement. add, nobody's coming to save you under that. But now we have a few more categories. We have quite a few notes. And now what I want to show you and what we're going to go over in the next modules is just writing. So we're going to go over a writing template. And once we go over it, let's imagine that we're doing this, right? So I have my writing outline, and I'm actually going to open this in a pane. So I'm going to open my draft. I'm going to open my outline in a pane. Or actually, no, sorry, let's open this right here. So when I'm ideating my newsletters, I have this ideation section because all newsletters, YouTube videos, it has all of these things within it. So if I create a topic around this, now you see that I can just go through different ideas in my workspace and start to plug in problems or goals or examples that start to create this unique newsletter, right? So we can create something new off of this document, which we'll do in the next one. And you can start to see how all of this becomes interlinked and extremely valuable for your content creation or your products or just having better ideas. After a lot of hard work, Cortex AI V1 is here, and you can now chat with your documents, sources, highlights, and now YouTube videos inside your workspace. Now, if you are a previous Cortex user, you know that the chats used to be captures. So as an example, if we go into here, you can still capture ideas and to a specific document. Like if I'm writing a newsletter on how to learn 10x faster, I can put that here, or I can press plus to connect it with it not being inline, and then I can write to that specific document and filter it accordingly. So if I go and I type something like start with what you know, that's great. But then if I toggle Kai, what I can do here, so I'm taking notes for a newsletter, I have these all in one place, like texting myself, then I can just ask, summarize what's in this chat, and it'll tell me, okay, we have the newsletter topic, we have talking points so far. Do I want to build on top of that? And I'll show you a cool way that we're going to do that soon with writing a newsletter. Now, the main thing we built first inside of Cortex is just the ability to handle large amounts of information. So large documents, long YouTube videos, like 3-hour podcasts and more. So you can tie things together in a very unique way that you can't really do inside of other software, especially when having all of your document sources, everything else in one place, right? That's what a lot of AI is missing is you. And now even better with the desktop app, you can have, we had a lot of praise over the floating capture and floating documents, but if I push Option or Alt C, I can pop open a floating chats pane. So I can talk with AI from anywhere and use it as a study tool or a research tool. So if I'm writing something or just want to research this video, the end of programming as we know it, or we can find something more specific like Naval and go here, Naval, go to his videos, find the Deutsch Files 3, copy that, share, copy. And then if we go to the floating chats, I can just pop this in here now like this. And you can see it automatically starts to add the source. And if I press enter, it creates a new chat, adds the source here, and it says, how can I help you with this source? Oh, I accidentally toggled off Kai. So summarize this video in 5 key points. And it breaks everything down that's inside of the video in 5 key points. But now I can also open floating documents. And if I have something like a prompt library from things that I've studied over time, I can use things like generate content ideas, headline ideas. A link to this is in the description if you want a place to start. I would recommend trying the Discipline Coach with Jocko, and then you can feed it your goals or your planning that you do in Cortex to get more clarity on what to do. Now, another thing with this, why this is so important for Cortex, is that our entire vision has been based around being able to capture anything from anywhere. So now with YouTube videos, what's going to come next is tweets. Actually, pretty soon we have it built out. And PDFs, you can already have a PDF in your library, but being able to just pull one in and immediately reference it, and being anywhere on your computer and pressing a keyboard shortcut to capture that source so that you have it ready to access and open and have transcriptions for everything that you can view all while you're writing or note taking or doing whatever. So here's a few ways that you can get started with Kai, just so you can go into Cortex and have something to do. And really pay attention when we get more complex with this and we weave multiple long documents together to create something that is kind of difficult to create in other apps. So we'll close out of these, Option D, Option C, Option K to open full Cortex. And now we're gonna go back and we're just gonna potentially create a new chat here. Now, one prompt that I love is the strategic advisor prompt that I found from Apollinator on Twitter. So if you ever find prompts, just save them to a document in Cortex and then you can easily copy and paste them. Or if I wanted to, I could technically reference this document plus prompt library, connect to it, and then just be like, use the strategic advisor prompt to guide me through this. But we're gonna copy the entire prompt and paste it in here. And in a nutshell, it says, you have an IQ of 180, you're brutally honest and direct, you built multiple billion-dollar companies, your mission is to identify the critical gaps holding you back, so on and so forth. So it says, for each response, start with the hard truth I need to hear, follow with specific actionable steps, and so on. So it's ready. Let's cut to the BS. What do I need to do? I need to write my newsletter for this week. And if you've used the previous simple life reset that we've talked about, where you audit your day, and you write out your vision and what you don't want out of life, and then you plan your life, and then you execute each week after week. If you just feed this, if I named this something different, and I said, show me what my blind spots are from at Simple Life Reset. And then if you fill that out, then it will give you clarity and guidance on how to improve. So that's one use case, is just using Kai as a way to actually hold you accountable for your goals. But that's just the surface. Another use case for AI in general, especially when you can open the floating chat with just Option C, is to just ask it things whenever you're stuck. If you're writing a newsletter, if you are writing notes, if you are using Photoshop and you don't know how to do something in Photoshop, just open up Kai, Option C, and type, okay, how do I make a selection in Photoshop? And it will give you options, and then you overcome the problem faster so that you can make progress faster. The same thing goes for writing. If I'm writing that newsletter on how to learn 10 times faster, and I don't know, I have an idea for the Zeigarnik effect, but I don't have enough information on it, I can just search up what is the Zeigarnik effect, and it gives me detailed breakdown that I can then use to overcome my writer's block. Or if I don't know how to start a newsletter, literally just type, how do I start a newsletter? And then you can start. Now, another use case, if we go back to the prompt library, is the study guide, which I'm a big fan of. So if you want to learn a new topic, a good way to learn it is to ask Kai to act as your skill tutor on a specific topic. And I'll pop this in here, and then I'll tell it I want to master storytelling. And what it'll do, it'll give me a breakdown of exactly what to learn, how fast. It will give me YouTube videos. It will give me phases in which to learn in. And I also included in here to give 3 to 5 complementary interests, so you can even learn when you're bored of learning by pursuing your curiosity. So if you're a student or just someone who learns skills, then use this. Now, this is where things start to get interesting. I created a document, how to write tweets, and it is pretty much a prompt. It's a long prompt that explains exactly how I personally write tweets. So it has all of these little details. It has examples inside of it. So if you write a guide for yourself on how to do something, then I can go into a chat and I can say, okay, use at how to write tweets to write 15 tweets, and use, let's actually go with a source this time. So, and use at flow the book by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi for the tweet ideas. So as it does that, if we look at the library, we can see here that it is going to pull ideas from my highlights that I pulled in from Kindle and anywhere else that I highlight from. But for this book, I highlighted on Kindle and imported from Readwise, and you can see it just pops these in here. Now take it a step further. So we combined two documents there, right? One that was a system prompt, and then one that was like, use these as ideas. And now if I go to my weekly post template, and we talked about this in a previous video, go watch that video for this template, but it's just a template, right? Where you write posts. So if you need post ideas, you can ask Kai to give them to you from a specific thing. So if I write a newsletter each week, it's kind of hard to pull social media post ideas from that just as it's written. So I like to ask AI to give me tweets about it so that I can use those as starting points for ideas, because AI writing in general still isn't the best at doing it all for you, nor should you want it to do it all for you, but it is very good as a mental or creative sparring partner. Now, I also created a document called How to Write a Newsletter, and it has exactly how I personally write my newsletters, and those are very in-depth, so I have a lot of information here on how to structure the outline and everything. But if I just come in here, and you're good at writing prompts, that's the prerequisite, right? Is, okay, let's add plus how to write a newsletter, and just say I want to write a newsletter. And I have instructions on this prompt for it to guide me on what to do. So the first thing it asks is, okay, what's your target audience? So I say my target audience is 20-year-olds who feel lost, my past self. And then it says, okay, here's 10 pain points, 10 desires, and 10 topic ideas based on headlines that have previously done well for me. And then I say, okay, proceed with topic 7. And then it fills out the outline for me, and I can use that in my own newsletter template if I want to. Again, we have a video on that on the channel of how to write weekly newsletters. But if I go here, I have my guided newsletter template. I can brainstorm topic ideas with Kai. Whenever you're filling something out, you can have a template inside of here built out with elements, and then ask Kai and brainstorm with him to get that filled out. And then you can open all of these. If I open another, and let's just say this is a newsletter draft, and I'm writing here just to have a draft, then I can open my template or my outline right here as well, and have all of my information here. I can resize these. I can open up specific sources if I need to get information from those, or I can just ask Kai. So now if we go back to the prompts that we had previously, there's headline ones in here, but there's content editing and feedback. So let's take this prompt, act as a detail-oriented copy editor for reference. And then I have one of my previous newsletters here that I wrote. And then if I just close out of this and this, get back to Kai, go here, paste this, and then my reference will be at newsletter, how to learn 10x faster than anyone, and then it will provide me detailed information. This is already written, right? This is the draft. Now I can have it go through and just give me structured advice on how to improve it. So it's asking here, shall I proceed? Yes, proceed. And then it'll just go through and give me suggestions to improve it. Like, that's pretty cool. So again, I want you to think of Kai or AI in general. You can use whatever you want, but think of it as your creative sparring partner, right? A tool to help you sharpen your thinking, not outsource your thinking to it or replace your thinking. And it's really up to your imagination how powerful it gets with the documents or YouTube videos or sources or whatever it is that you use to enhance it. Now, as mentioned, this is Cortex AI V1, right? This is, to us, kind of underwhelming, even though it's very powerful. There's so much more that we need and want to do, like writing assistance. We want to be the cursor for writing. Cursor is a programming tool that kind of helps you write code. We want it to help you write and be able to edit specific lines and go for grammar, brevity, all of these different things like the Hemingway editor and Cursor combined. We also want to add in all models. We want to add in Claude, we want to add in Grok, we want to add in ChatGPT, and all of these other things so we can keep up with the latest models and allow you to choose the model you want to use for the task you want to use it for. And as we redesign the library, we'll have the global capture, so being able to capture any link from anywhere on your computer, pull in the transcript, have it all in one place, and auto connections and tags. So you pay even less attention to organization, so you can focus on what matters, which is the creativity. And a last one is the neural search. So as you're writing, it will surface and search for relevant ideas that you can use to pull into your writing that you have in your notes, sources, etc. So try out Kai, see if you can do some cool things with it. If you do cool things with it, then share it with us in the Discord. You can find the link to that in the description, or go to discord.gg/cortex. Tell us about it. Let us know how you like it. And Kai will only get better, especially if you share with us what works for you so that we can implement that into the app and potentially give you credit. We want to find a way to do that if we do incorporate users' AI prompts. So that is it for this video. Thank you for watching. There's going to be many more tutorials coming, so subscribe to the channel and watch the previous ones on post writing and newsletter writing. Thank you again for using Cortex. Bye. In this video, I'm going to talk about CoreNotes, which is a new note-taking system that we have created alongside Cortex. The problem with most note-taking systems is that they just don't have a purpose, right? I mean, remembering stuff is the purpose, and potentially being able to reference it is the purpose. But if that were the case, why is the overwhelm and the bloatedness and the confusion so widespread? And why aren't more people, especially creatives or knowledge workers, actually using the ideas that they bookmark or save or take notes on? Typically, you work on something for a month or 2 months and you take a bunch of notes and then it kind of just goes away. It disappears. I've been through that process multiple times. Or you take notes in school and they serve you well then, but then you either don't self-educate enough to the point where you need to take notes, or you're not taking notes for your work in a way that is conducive to better creations. So Jordan Peterson, Alan Watts, and any of the artists, thinkers, or public figures you admire, they all have one thing in common, at least in my eyes, is they have depth, clarity, and quality of ideas. That's why we made the CoreNotes note-taking system. Because while other systems just have you write down ideas and kind of save them for later use, we want you to make your ideas your own so that you can contribute to people taking notes about your ideas. So one thing that Naval said very recently, as of like a few days ago of me recording this, is that you want to be paid purely for the quality of your thoughts. And Alan Watts also had a quote, something along the lines of, sensible people get paid to do what they enjoy. So in terms of creative work or knowledge work or anything that we talk about here at Cortex, CoreNotes is a key part of that. And even if you don't take notes, the system itself and thought process. CoreNotes is a thought process, not necessarily a note-taking system. The thought process will help you become a clear, articulate, and quality thinker with depth. With CoreNotes, the key thing about it is that you are developing ideas after you capture them. So you just learned how to capture ideas and what ideas to capture. But what you do after it is not just letting it sit in a bank of notes. It's developing the ideas to make it your own. The thing here, when you capture an idea, you have to understand that people's purpose in life or goals in life are going to be relatively the same, but their path to get there will be different. And everyone can benefit from similar ideas, but the person who said it and the perspective they read it from. People don't follow information, they follow perspectives, right? They follow your perspective. When you're teaching or you're doing creative work or you're doing knowledge work, you may often question, okay, well, what makes my ideas unique if I'm just saying the same thing as everyone else? Well, one, it's your perspective, and two, it's how you develop the ideas and build on top of them to make them even better and unique to you, because everyone can have the same goals of financial freedom and a healthy body and raising their consciousness and all those other things. But the path to get there is infinitely different. And by taking ideas and spinning them through your own lens and worldview is what makes them unique. But you need to learn how to do that, right? And what a worldview or a lens is composed of, and your psychology, that's what CoreNotes is based around. It's a psychological thought process process note-taking system. It's all broken down into that. Now the thing with most writers, creators, marketers, they focus on short-term games, virality and fame, and followers and trends. So they gain a lot of followers, but nobody actually cares about their ideas, right? You follow these people, you see these people all the time, but then there's the select few people who you're like, dang, how do they just consistently come up with great ideas? So on the right side of the screen, you can see three concepts. The first one is the one-person business. So who do you think of? I've talked about this a lot. I'm not the one who necessarily came up with it, but a lot of people attribute that to me and whoever is winning in that idea race. Now, 1% better every day. Who do you think of? James Clear. That's obvious, right? It's a great concept. It's a great idea. The 4-hour work week. Who do you think of? Tim Ferriss. It's a great idea, right? It works in a book. So coming up with these ideas is not dumb luck. It's replicable because you just need a system for developing those ideas. And that's why Cortex is here. By now, you should understand the base features of Cortex. You should understand at least what an element is. It's like a little note within a note. It's a little box, an organizational feature that you can add to a document. So for core note elements, these are different elements than what are in your workspace when you first get started. When you first start in Cortex, you have a few example elements and groups. You have like a productivity or planning and a note-taking and a writing group, and each of those have different elements. Like the writing one has a hook element, a body, a conclusion, a social post, etc. For core note elements, you're going to be creating these new elements under a core note group so that you can create core notes with them, and we'll show you how to do this. But if you want to create these elements, then if you want to create these elements, then you type / in the document, and then you go to new elements or new element group, and you create the core note group, and then you add these elements inside of it. So you can see it on the right-hand side. It's big idea, problem, goal, example, benefit, process, concept. Any element within this can be used as an individual post, sections of a thread, building blocks of a newsletter, headlines, titles, and thumbnails, or guides for your thinking and impact. So when you take notes on ideas, like we'll learn, you can use each of the elements that you create as a way to then turn those into individual posts, sections of a thread, building blocks of a newsletter, headlines, etc. I'll show you what I mean. Or you can use them as your writing to guide your writing. So if you can't think of something to write next, then just go to the core note elements and pick something like problem, and boom, you have a new angle to start writing from. Now there is a deep purpose behind the choice of these elements or behind the tenets of the system inside core notes. So in something like Zettelkasten, you have things like fleeting notes and permanent notes and other things like that that help you flesh out whatever it is you're taking notes on, like the literature notes. In this, you're taking an idea and then you're expanding on it in your own words with problem, goal, benefit, example, etc., as your guides to take the notes. So the purpose of these is that if you have studied content or psychology or marketing or sales or any of that at all, you can already see what's going on here. You can see the first two, problem and goal, and you understand, okay, creative work or business or just self-improvement or anything is about transformation. It's about becoming aware of a problem and reaching toward a desired outcome or a goal. So you can see how these are built around attention-grabbing and persuasive writing. So for the problem is that humans have a negativity bias, and you can use the problem element to catch attention, relate with readers, and help readers understand why they're pursuing a goal. The thing here is that almost every single, if you go and look at writing frameworks, you'll find something like PAS, which is problem, amplify, solution. If you want to capture attention, if you want to make the reader know that your writing is for them, you have to nail the problem, right? The next one, goal, to the right, is that just all good writing starts with a goal that you are leading your readers toward. Because the thing is if you don't have a goal, then what are you leading people towards in your writing, right? All of your writing is framed under a goal. The next thing is the benefit. So you can have a goal, but why should people care about achieving it? So you use the benefit and you flesh that out and use it in your writing to make it more enticing so that they want to continue reading to get the solution. Now, an example, examples in your writing helps readers understand your points by grounding them in reality. So you want to use the example element whenever you need to explain a specific concept. Now, moving forward, those were to capture attention and hold attention in your writing. So when you're taking notes with these elements and then you're using them in your writing as building blocks or ideas, you're capturing and holding attention. But now to make people remember your ideas, you can go even further and you can create a concept. So a concept is a way of thinking about an idea or group of ideas. So something like the synthesizer is a certain type of writer or creator. I've used this before. I like the word synthesizer more than writer or creator because you're synthesizing ideas into your own. The thing with concepts is similar to what we talked about earlier with the 1% better every day or the 1% business is it helps package up your ideas in a way that people remember and attribute to you. Next up is the process element inside of our core note system. And a process is just a set of actionable steps that lead to a goal. So use the process element to make your writing valuable and give your readers clarity to act. And as a bonus, you can name your process. So the concept and the process go hand in hand here. And if you've ever read an article or a newsletter, or watched a YouTube video, or really anything, or even read a tweet, you understand that actionable steps, key points, are crucial to delivering value most of the time, a lot of the time. Now, the next and last element in the core note system is big idea. So big ideas capture attention and inspire others. These are usually the ideas you capture and make your own. So when you think of a big idea, you think of the idea that you capture, and then you flesh out the idea, and then you take everything that you wrote and you turn it into your own big idea from all of that. Now, to make a connection and help you understand how powerful this is the YouTube video that brought me to 250,000 subscribers was titled The 1% Business, How to Productize Yourself, with Turn Yourself into a Business as the thumbnail text. So we're talking about taking notes here, but when it comes time to create a YouTube video or to write a newsletter or to write social media content, you're using everything that you've written in your notes and combining them and synthesizing them into something unique because the 1% business started as a concept in my second brain. How to productize yourself went along with that as the process. And then the big idea, so turn yourself into the business, these were all elements in a note of mine in a second brain. And just by putting these out and sharing my ideas with the world, I was able to grow in subscriber count and make my creative work a success. Now, the last thing here is that simple notes are key because I can promise you that this process we're going to go through can get very addictive. If you actually do it every single day, it'll get very addictive. You'll want to keep going. And that's a good thing. Don't stop yourself. But at the same time, just take simple notes, right? We'll go over exactly how to, like what to write in the notes and how focused to keep them and how many elements in each and how many tags and connections and etc. But the thing here, the point is to not take notes on every single thing that you read. First, by taking notes on every single thing that you read, or like say you're listening to an audiobook and you just are writing down every single word that they say, you're not thinking for yourself. You're narrowing your mind to the teachings of that person, and you're not allowing your mind to expand further and have any original thought. So what I want you to focus on is one, just actionable insights and capturing those down, ideas that you will actually use, and enough context to just get the point across when you're actually capturing the ideas. So the thing here, and to end this video, is that your notes are the building blocks of your writing. Remember that. They're the building blocks of your writing. That's what Cortex is made for. You want to focus on having an abundance of ideas that you can string together with more time-consuming writing. Now, this process makes writing a lot less time-consuming. You pretty much write all of your writing inside of your notes, and then you just piece them together like Legos. But the thing here is that you just want to have the right ideas that when it comes time to write and string them together, it all flows very well. You don't want any noise in there. So that's it for this video. Hope you've enjoyed it. Continue on. We've got some exciting stuff to come still. Okay, in this video, we are going to talk about about the 3-point content ecosystem. Now, we are talking about this to start because you need a big picture understanding of what our goal is with content. Now, you don't have to do all of this. I would treat this video as just education and awareness building for what is to come. You can start now, and I would actually recommend starting now if you have the time to do so, but don't stress it if you don't have the time or you don't know what to do yet, okay? This is just to set the foundation of what we're going to talk about so you can make connections along the way. That is the entire purpose of this. I want to reiterate. You don't have to do anything we talk about in this video, but you do have to watch it, so that way you can make connections in the future. So in future modules, when we talk about post writing, thread writing, and newsletter writing, you're able to connect the dots a lot easier and piece together how they work. So that's my intention with this. So let's get started. The three-point content ecosystem is composed of posts, threads, and newsletters. Those are the 3 points of the content ecosystem. So you don't need fancy sales funnels to make a substantial income. You need consistency with this. If you grew up in marketing or you started in marketing, you may not be used to social media marketing or marketing as a creator or a writer, right? You're taught direct response marketing where it's like, okay, write a landing page for a very specific person, run paid ads to it because you can target that specific person, and make sales that way and go directly for the sale. With content, it's a lot different. It's a more long-term game where you are educating people over time related to what you do. You're building trust over time. You're nurturing people over time. And that's what leads to more sales under your brand rather than trying to just sell in every post, thread, newsletter, and not seeing the interconnected whole that they are and the worldview that you help people adopt with your content over 3, 6, 12 months so that they trust you enough to purchase your products. The second point is that this will help you create a habit of writing 20 posts, 1 to 2 threads, and 1 newsletter per week based on the notes you capture. And if you are capturing notes, this will just become a lot easier because you can turn a lot of those into the posts, the threads, the newsletters, etc. It also helps you create a profitable brand with depth and education, not quick sales tactics, as we talked about. This is the system that I use, and it's what took my brand to what it is now. All I focus on every single week are the posts, threads, newsletters. My products sell under me because I have traffic going to them. And since they're digital products, I don't have to do too much to maintain those. So I can just focus on writing, I can focus on my craft, and enjoy the fruits of that labor. Now, the first point, or just one of the points in the 3-point content ecosystem, is short form. So this is for testing ideas. So short form is tweets, Instagram or LinkedIn posts, Reels, and TikToks. I'm sure you know what these are. It's not long form posts. It's just a post, right? I like to view short form on social media like Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube Shorts, TikToks, etc. I like to think of it as a way to test ideas in general, but beginner level ideas toward a random audience, right? I don't like niching down too much or else you may kill your reach, right? We'll talk about this later, but again, this is not direct response marketing. If you study marketing, you need to break out of that mindset because with an audience, it's close. There are strategies you can do to get in front of specific people and specific audiences, but if you're just going for organic growth or maximum growth to build the most leverage, you're going to be put in front of random audiences. So there isn't really a way to get super specific on what it is that you want to write about, right? So if I sell coaching to founders, how am I going to get in front of those founders? One, I have to write more beginner level content and frame it in a better way, like how to start a business, because then not only will I attract founders because they're still interested in the fundamentals, they're still interested in building a business because that's what they're doing, but you're also attracting a broader audience. So more people share your post to get in front of more founders that are your target audience. So rather than building a 10,000 follower audience of all founders, you're building a 100,000 follower audience with 10,000 of those people still being founders, but you getting there much quicker, and 90,000 other people in that audience that can share your work to more founders and give you more reach and leverage. That's what I'm talking about. So here, if a post performs well, you can repurpose it into medium or long form content, marketing firepower or product ideas. What I mean by that is when you're writing posts, some will do better than others. That's just obvious. Those ones are the ones you kind of want to repurpose and double down on. So we'll get to how that comes into play, but your short form, in my eyes, is the main habit that you need to form. Social media growth needs to become a top priority so you can get data. Whether you want to grow or not, you need data as to whether or not your posts are doing well and your ideas are being validated, because then when you take those validated ideas and turn them into a thread, that thread is going to do very well and you're going to get more followers because of it. And then if you turn it into a newsletter, then that newsletter is going to do very well. So this will make more sense. So the importance of short form content and mastering it is that you learn to capture attention, you learn to hold attention, and you add punch to your writing. So what I mean by that is your posts can be used as newsletter transitions, sections of a thread or carousel, data points for your niche. This will make more sense, especially in the next video, either in this same module or in another one where I give you a practical breakdown of how I do this. So the more short form content you write, the more successful you will be as a writer, because when you write short form, you're forced to condense it in a way that captures attention, holds attention, and adds punch. You can't add any fluff. It teaches you to be very concise and powerful with your writing. If you only write newsletters, then you're going to be writing under that frame of just adding a lot to your writing. And tweets or posts in general teach you to be very concise, and then you can use those as building blocks to everything else. It's like your core notes that you're creating, or a post or a tweet. I can use that as the start of a newsletter. I can use it in any section of a newsletter. I can literally just piece together similar posts into a newsletter, change a few words so that it all flows together, and it'll work out. This will, of course, make more sense. Next thing, medium form ideas. Medium form expands on a good idea to fuel growth and build authority. So you want to view it as a way to capitalize on ideas and trends that are doing well to enhance growth faster. Threads, carousels, Instagram captions, long LinkedIn posts, and shorter YouTube videos. So maybe like 5 to 10 minute YouTube videos, I would consider medium form content. Medium form is how you gain followers fast and drive traffic to your newsletter and product. So if you don't know what a thread is, you will learn when we learn to write threads. But for now, maybe just try to keep an eye out for what these are. So when you're scrolling on X or Twitter, when you see a thread, so a hook and then multiple posts under the hook, that's a thread. When you see carousels on Instagram, when you read Instagram captions and they're rather long, when you read posts on LinkedIn, when you watch shorter YouTube videos, start paying attention to what kind of ideas they're using and how those do and how it leads to more growth. So in terms of the importance of medium form content, you write 1 thread a week to drive traffic to a product or newsletter, have the potential for virality and reach. You build authority quicker through depth, and you gain more followers because you hold attention longer. The important thing here is that you're testing short form posts, and then the ones that do better than others, you can attempt to turn those into threads, right? So you can turn your best posts into threads or capitalize on the thread styles that other people are using. So when you're scrolling on Twitter or you're reading a LinkedIn carousel, you're paying attention to which ones are doing very well in that meta of social media. You're paying attention to what people are writing most often so that you can take advantage of that. Now, long form content solidifies a validated idea in time as a part of your brand. What I mean by that is that when you write a newsletter or an article or a podcast or a YouTube video, those are more or less evergreen, right? You can plug a link anywhere for people to read that. And so when you write it there, it doesn't just disappear on social media. So you need to be very careful with what you write in your newsletter or in your articles or in your podcast or whatever it is. because those are going to be a part of your brand forever. Social media posts disappear. You can write as many posts as you want on Twitter, and it doesn't really matter because it's real time. On Twitter or Instagram or that, it just takes a few posts for you to pivot, right? If you want to go into a completely different interest, you can do that on a different day. In a newsletter or podcast or whatever, that's going to be more difficult to do because, one, you create less of them. You're probably creating it once a week rather than 3 times a day, and people are paying close attention to what you're writing there because you have more dedicated readers that want to read the long form. Now, the importance of long form content is we are personally going to focus on newsletter and article writing because you can sell your products without seeming salesy because you're focused on value. Your newsletter can be promoted anytime as a lead magnet or mini sales page. This will make more sense later, but what I mean by that is when your newsletter is on your blog or you use a newsletter software where you can post a link to your newsletter, you can promote that under your content in order to get more people to view it. And since it's just a value-driven newsletter and you're promoting your products in it, and hopefully you have an email opt-in on that page, then it gets email subscribers and it potentially makes you more sales. Next, newsletters help you understand and articulate ideas, so they help you learn more and they help you write better overall. Think of short-form posts as a way to validate ideas. Think of medium-form posts as a way to leverage ideas for more growth. Think of long-form ideas as a way to flesh out the ideas further, articulate them more, and build the depth under the idea for people that actually want the depth. The next and very important thing is that they can be repurposed into YouTube videos when you are ready. If you write, let's say, 30 newsletters over the course of however many months, when you're ready to start on YouTube, those just turn into scripts. Or not all of them have to turn into scripts, but the best performing ones can turn into scripts, and you'll grow on YouTube that much faster because your videos will be structured and they'll be based on great ideas. Makes a lot of sense. Now, why are we starting on X and Twitter and a newsletter rather than other platforms? First is the traffic mechanisms. So X is like a forum, comments boost your reach, and reposts are easy and encouraged. We'll talk about how to actually grow on social media in a future video in this module. There is no post limit, so you can post as many times as you want to test ideas. Most platforms discourage that. If you post 4 times on Instagram, you're gonna get a lot less engagement, and not that many people are going to actually see your posts. On X or Twitter, it's like a forum. It's kind of like real time. The algorithm is changing here and there, but you can really post as much as you want, and you can increase or decrease that as much as you please. So it's more of like, I have an idea, I'm gonna toss it into Twitter really quick, and I'm gonna see how that idea does, and then I'm gonna look back at my ideas every single week, and I'm gonna turn one of those into a thread, and then I'm gonna turn another one or that same one into a newsletter, and boom, I'm starting to create my content ecosystem. The next thing is that X has a low skill barrier. So X is still underappreciated, meaning you are early. Just people haven't caught on to how powerful X is yet, and you don't have to show your face or body. When you're writing, people want to be there for your ideas. People go on Instagram because they want to see photos and people's lifestyles and other things like that. People go on X because they want ideas, opinions, beliefs. They want to be a part of other people's minds, right? So you don't need any of the fancy face or body or showing off. You need to show off your ideas. Now, it gives you lots of data. So by writing a lot of posts, you can use the best ones for content across all other socials. We somewhat talked about that. And the link behavior on X is very good. So linking to your products or newsletters on other platforms suck, meaning you can't post a link in an Instagram caption. You can't post a link in an Instagram comment. If you post a link on LinkedIn, that is decent. It's better than Instagram. You can't really post one on Reels. You can't really post one on TikTok. You can post one occasionally on YouTube, but in YouTube descriptions. On X, it just looks good to have a link. It shows the featured image. It benefits the creator to get them to their products or other things that they're selling or their newsletter. Next thing is that tweets get spread. So most other platforms have tweets posted to them or they try to emulate tweets. If you go on Instagram and scroll, I bet you'll see quite a few posts that are just text, right? Or that are literal screenshots of tweets. The same thing with Reddit, same thing with even YouTube. When people post memes, a lot of it is just Twitter. So your posts may not just be reposted on Twitter, but they may be screenshotted and shared to other platforms if those posts are good. Now, to kind of tie this or start tying this together, because I'm sure a lot of this doesn't make sense yet, that's okay. That is very okay. I just want you to understand this and have like little ideas in your mind that are ready to connect when they're ready to. So think of it like this. You write posts for about 60 minutes a week. However you want to structure that, you'll get into your own routine and we'll break it down and how to actually do that. Your good posts will turn into a thread, which is about another 60 minutes a week to write the actual thread. You'll post that. This leads to more growth. Now, either another post or your thread itself will be expanded into a newsletter, which I would give about 30 to 60 minutes a day to write if you're writing a weekly newsletter. If you want, what you can do from the newsletter is break down the ideas that you write about into more posts. And then you can see how this cycle kind of starts to repeat, where it's like you write posts, turn them into a thread, turn that into a newsletter. By fleshing out the ideas in the newsletter, you have more firepower for posts, right? Next thing is promotion. So about 30 minutes a day, you need to always promote yourself. So whether that be a product or your newsletter, usually just your newsletter for now, potentially a lead magnet, but that's what you're doing. So you're making sure that inside of your newsletter, you're promoting a product if you have one, or if you don't, that's okay, just build authority for now. But in your threads, you're making sure that you promote your newsletter so that people join it and you're not wasting traffic at the bottom of your thread. And then posts maybe once a day, if that, you plug your newsletter as well. So you're promoting yourself to get people onto the newsletter so that it actually gets read. In terms of promotion as well, that is mainly for plugging to drive traffic to your newsletter, but you should also promote yourself in replies to other people to get traffic to your profile and to your network for more reach. These will make more sense. Again, this is just a broad overview. Now, in terms of diversifying when you are ready, right now we're only focused on this phase, and depending on your experience level, you may only be focused on this phase for 6 months, 12 months. So don't worry about this yet. Again, this is a very big picture of what you're going to be doing. But your posts can just be cross-posted to Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube community, short scripts, literal copy-paste, right? The thing here is that you don't want to split your growth efforts, right? Writing content will become fairly streamlined for you, but growth is where a lot of your time is going to be invested. We'll talk about how to grow, but I would say 80% of your time is going to be focused on growing your actual audience so people read your content. Now, if you try to split those growth efforts onto Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, you won't have any time in the day. You need to get to 10 to 50,000 followers so growth starts to take over by yourself, and then you can go, okay, I'm gonna grow on Instagram, let's start repurposing my best ideas to there and executing a growth strategy in order to grow, and then do that for each platform. As you do that, threads can be turned into carousels, YouTube videos like shorter ones, and LinkedIn community or LinkedIn and YouTube community posts, and then your newsletter, as that stacks up, it gets put on your blog, it gets turned into a YouTube script, it can get put on Medium, and then I personally post my YouTube videos as podcasts as well. So as you're doing these things, you're all funneling them back into your newsletter. So every day you're promoting your newsletter in your Instagram story. You're promoting in the LinkedIn comments. You're promoting on YouTube community. You're telling people to join your newsletter at the end of your YouTube videos. In your podcast, you're referencing your newsletter. Everyone's joining your newsletter because that's where you're going to promote your products or services in order to make an income so that you don't have to continuously promote on the timeline and make people think that you're just selling all the time. Your timeline can be focused on testing ideas and cultivating an audience. And your newsletter can be focused on adding more value to the people that care and offering them more with a product or service. So that's the 3-point content ecosystem in a nutshell. There should be another video that goes a bit more into the example aspect of it so this can start to piece together, but that is it for this video. Okay, in this video, I really need to stop saying, okay, just start the video. But in this video, I want to talk about just the raw basics of writing and branding, or creating your profile and knowing what to write about. Because before we write anything, we need a way to generate ideas, and we need to know what we're writing about. We need topics, right, and ideas for actual writing. The thing here is that I want you to start writing posts from this slide alone, where we haven't gone into how to write posts in the depths and nuance of that. That'll come in the next module where I have quite a bit to share on how to write good posts. But for now, I just want you to start and to practice, because I'm of the firm belief that you can only truly learn something once you're actually doing it. What I mean by that is that by asking for advice or how to start or how to do something and you're not already trying, it's going to be very difficult to register the advice in a way that is directly applicable to what you're doing. You have to fail and encounter problems and be in a slight state of overwhelm for ideas and advice to actually click. So what we're doing with short form content, as we know from the last video, is that we're testing ideas to find what works, because I'm personally not a fan of choosing a niche. I'm a fan of creating one on social media, right? Direct response marketing, as we talked about, yes, you have to get very clear on who it is that you want to target so that your SEO or your paid ads or whatever, like cold emails, whatever, the things where you're trying to directly get in front of one specific person, yeah, it's important to choose a niche. On social media, where it's pretty freaking random, create a niche. This is what makes you irreplaceable and build leverage for your future. So to create a niche, you have to start broad and beginner level, write about what you want, your interests or your topics that will break down, learn to write with impact, see what works and iterate on that, and double down on the select few topics or ideas that people know you for, okay? These will usually fall in line with the topics or ideas that you're writing about in your core notes or in Cortex in general. So here is the topic tree. What I want you to do is choose 3 fairly broad interests and then break them down. So what I mean by that are things like health, improvement, and business. If you were to write down 3 interests that you want to talk about right now, what would they be? And I would encourage you to just pause this video, don't even look at this yet, and write them down. For a lot of people, the things they want to write about are a bit too specific in my eyes to allow for maximum idea generation. Now, when you look at this, I'm not telling you to necessarily write about health, improvement, or business. I'm telling you to write about these things down here, the content topics or the content ideas. So depending on what you wrote down, if you find it rather specific and you find it difficult to break down into actual content topics, I want you to broaden it up a bit, because with marketing, if I choose like marketing, skill acquisition, creator economy, those are all relatively similar. And if I choose those as my top 3 pillars, we're going to call these the pillars, then I can break them down and I can do quite well with that. But I would rather go broad and give myself a lot of room at the start to test ideas and see what I actually like writing about and what other people want to hear from me. So the first step is to broaden and break down the 3 main interests that you talk about. So if you feel like your topic or interest is too constricting, then raise it up one level. Marketing can turn into business, skill acquisition can turn into business, philosophy can turn into just self-improvement or self-actualization. Same with these things. Nutrition, fitness, bodybuilding, etc. It can just turn into health, right? So you're looking for the big domains that everyone wants to achieve goals in. That's how you start to make your writing impactful, is to align it with the evergreen or eternal markets, which usually falls in line with health, wealth, relationships, happiness, potentially career advancement, just what people want in general, right? From there, you're going to break your main pillars down into sub-pillars or subtopics, around 3 each, right? And then you're going to break those down even further into content topics. So topics that you're actually going to research for ideas and write about. Now, this is just theory, right? All of these slides are just theory until we actually put it into practice with the frameworks and templates that you'll have in the later module. So keep this in mind for now. We're going to come back to it, and we're actually going to fill these out together inside of Cortex. Now, just right now, because I want you to start writing in general, whether or not you know how to write, is what do you write about? First thing is your extreme beliefs. So I actually saw a post today from Alex Becker, who's a very polarizing guy in general, but he's very good at having extreme beliefs. But I want you to think about what are the things that you really believe. And this doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. It matters what you think. You need to have conviction in those ideas and talk about them. So Alex Becker, the post I saw today, was an argument on why alcohol is always bad, right? Now I have my beliefs. I mean, my beliefs may change tomorrow, but I'm not that opposed to alcohol because I don't have too much of a problem with it, right? This may be like a once every 2 months thing for me. But for a lot of people, I get what he's saying, where he's creating an argument about how it makes them low energy. It's much more difficult to achieve success. They're setting themselves up for failure. When you write about your extreme beliefs, it allows you to create an argument around that makes people trust you and may change people's minds. Next thing you can write about is, damn, I wish I wrote that ideas. So when you're scrolling the timeline or you're reading a book or whatever it may be, I want you to notice the ones where you're like, wow, that's good, or I really wish I wrote that, and then write about it. Like, there's nothing stopping you from writing about an idea that you like and you would talk about with your friends. If you would tell the idea and share it with your friends without, like, I don't understand where the dissonance is where you can't post that online. Right? If you have the idea, then you can post it online, as long as you're not making false promises. If you're like, if you read a post on how I made $1 million this year with this specific tactic and you like the idea of the specific tactic, there's another way to frame it and you don't have to promise making $1 million. You can just say, I learned this today and I'm implementing it in my business to get XYZ result. Here's the idea. Something like that. Next is just problems people face in general. So help people become aware of their problems, what kind of pain it's causing, and how to overcome it with actionable advice or insight. Arguments, the content you read. So if you see a post or read something in a book and you don't necessarily agree with it, write a post about the other side. You don't need to tag that person. You don't need to like bring them up. You don't even need to bring the idea up. Just write what your argument is for the other side. Next thing is personal opinions on popular topics. So if a topic is popular right now, like AI or automation, then write your own opinion on it, because if it's a high-performing topic, people probably want to hear your take on it. Next thing is interesting facts about a topic. So any topic from your topic tree, you can just type in Google interesting facts or interesting quotes or interesting ideas or best ideas or something like that around the topic. And depending on the ones that you want to make a part of your brand, you write about those. Next thing is lessons you're learning along your journey. So you don't necessarily need to say, these are the lessons that I'm learning. You can just give the lesson and what it is, because if you're doing it, then you can talk about it. advice to your past, present, or future self. I really like this one for mindset or just telling them what to do or giving specific advice. Next thing is harsh truths about achieving a goal. Next is aspirational advice, so telling people what to do and why they should do it, and anything you want, really, as long as it hits on what's in it for me. Now, how do you write these posts to start? Before we even learn about how to write actual posts. Emulate, then innovate. The best advice I can give ever is to just realize that you don't necessarily need education from someone else to learn how to do what they're doing. You can just study what they do, experiment for yourself based on what they do, and learn with time and trial and error. Education from other people helps you avoid some of that trial and error, but a lot of the time you can just do anything you want by doing it and using observation as feedback, right? You can learn anything. How did people achieve success when there was no education to do so? How did people first forge the path if they didn't have a mentor? How did they become the mentor? It's trial and error. They just did it, and they paid attention to the failures and the feedback, and they improved and iterated along the way. So if something isn't working, if you aren't growing, if your content isn't getting engagement, those are problems that need to sit in your head until you observe someone who has a tactic or strategy that you can use to implement and try until you get results, and then eventually that's how you create your own success. So in terms of content, I want you to learn how to study people on X or YouTube or anything, and stop going through their content as a consumer, actually reading the content, go through it as a creator and taking inspiration from how they actually wrote the content, right? So why all of these did very well for me. Why did this one do well? The new 1%. I want to be a part of the new 1%, so I'm giving people an identity. How do I know if I'm a part of the new 1%? That feels good. I like that status. They're self-educated, highly skilled, emotionally intelligent, Jack and Tan, little joke thrown in there for humor, high energy, focuses on internal control, etc., etc., etc. With a bullet point list like this, you're giving people multiple reasons to engage with you, right? Even if they only resonate with one of these, they may like or share. Or if they disagree with one of them, they're going to comment and tell you why, and you can start a discussion and present arguments, but that will still boost your engagement. And if they agree with all of them, they're going to become a super fan, and they're probably going to follow you. So that's one reason why this did well. Next thing, how to get ahead of 99% of people. You can see here that there is a common theme between all of these, and that is having a hook or a topic, high-performing topic, with a colon to grab people's attention and put it onto the list that's coming up. Another thing is that all of these, when you're scrolling Twitter, you usually just see big blocks of paragraphs because people aren't creators. So a list like this is a pattern interrupt for the eyes. When people see this, they're usually going to stop and skim through it and be like, interesting, go back to the top, read all the way through it, and then if it's good, it's good. So this one's also very confident and extreme, where I'm saying how to get ahead of 99% of people. So this is a desired outcome. This is something that people want. Go quiet for 3 months, laser in on one big goal, self-educate like mad, apply everything you learn, fail as much as possible, etc., etc. We actually go over and break this tweet down in the next section on post writing. Now, same thing here. I want you to go through this one and actually think about, why did this do well? Every part of it, the hook, the body, conclusion. What made people like this post and engage with it? Now, if you want to find ideas to emulate, then use resources like Tweet Hunter X. So this is just a Chrome extension on Chrome, and you type in Tweet Hunter X into your search bar, you download it, you install it, and then whenever you go to someone's Twitter profile, you can look on the right sidebar and see all of their top posts, and you can start to use those as inspiration for your own. Next thing is YouTube filters. So going to the accounts that you love to watch, going to their videos, filtering by most popular, and looking at their titles, seeing how those are written and why those ideas performed well, and then going into the actual video itself and seeing how they fulfill on that promise and paying attention to the structure of the video. How do they capture attention? How do they deliver the value and what makes it valuable? How do they wrap it up? And how do they present their ideas? Another thing is Medium articles. So medium.com, you can just go to Medium and fill out the interest you want to read about and start reading one article a day so you can get a taste of what structured writing looks like. We're going to be going over this in the next actual module. The key is to don't copy any sentence at all and use the structure to write out your idea. You're not necessarily, if you look at this, you're not necessarily trying to write about how to get ahead of 99% of people. You're trying to use the structure. So it's how to get desired outcome. Okay, how do you get it? Steps, some nuance, and then finally wrapping it up with a conclusion or a summary. So that's kind of what you're doing. Now, this is a writing program, but this isn't a branding program, it's a writing program, although we're going to talk about branding to an extent. So I want to understand and just give you a starting point that I've tested over the years that works pretty freaking well for most people that are starting on social media. So I've been teaching branding and content for a long time now, and coming up with a bio is arguably the most simple, yet the most difficult thing you'll ever do in your life, and you will change it a lot. So just don't get too caught up in it. Your bio honestly doesn't really matter that much because people are going to click on your profile and follow you because your content was so good that they look at your profile, and if you just say anything decent, they'll probably follow you, right? It's mostly content that is going to bring in the followers. But to set yourself up on the right foot, to potentially increase the amount of followers by a marginal amount, you want a banner that matches your brand's vibe and shows what you do. We'll talk about this and break it down in the action steps of this module. You want a clear and aesthetic profile picture that screams, I'm a creator. Because when you're commenting on people's accounts or when you're showing up on the timeline, you don't just want like a picture of your dog on the couch because people are just going to assume that you're not a creator and you're not someone to follow. So take some time, watch some YouTube videos on how to, like even if you only have an iPhone, look up how to take a professional headshot with an iPhone. Maybe look up how to generate a professional and realistic headshot with AI. Just take some time to learn how to take a photo that is somewhat professional or at least gets across the vibe that you're trying to illustrate. Next, you want a bio that includes captivating topics and desirable outcome. This is important. People complicate this too much. Here's how to think of it. Here it says, I write about human potential and creative work. Work less, earn more, enjoy life. So you have two topics, human potential, creative work, and then you have the desired outcome. Work less, earn more, enjoy life. The psychology behind this is that on social media, people already have interests that they like to follow, right? When they visit your profile, if you have a semi-broad interest or topic, like we talked about in the topic tree, you're going to, if they resonate with either one of these, they'll probably follow you. So if they like human potential or creative work, which a lot of people do, then they're going to follow, potentially. With the desired outcome, people want to know what's in it for me. It's like, okay, you're writing about these things. I'll learn about human potential and creative work, but what do I get from that, right? What's the benefit for me? Because I'm selfish. Work less, earn more, enjoy life. Just in general, what is the desirable outcome that you're helping people, you're leading people towards, right? We'll talk about this when it comes to branding, but you're guiding your followers toward a greater goal, right? Every brand has a goal or a mission or a vision, and that's why you gain followers and customers, because your content and your products are helping them reach that goal or vision. All of your content and all of your products will be built with the sole purpose of helping people reach that vision. Anytime you write a piece of content, you're thinking, how does this help people reach the desired outcome that I'm helping people achieve with my brand? Work less, earn more, enjoy life. If I want to write about productivity, I can talk about how it helps them work less, earn more, or enjoy life. And that makes the post more impactful because I'm using a desired outcome. I'm not just giving actionable steps. Here's how you be productive. I'm telling people why. That's what's persuasive. That's persuasive writing in general. Next, you want links and projects, if you have them, that show you are creating value off platform. So you can have a link to your website or to your newsletter, or if you're building something else, you can have a handle. I personally recommend, like, you're going to be building things over the lifetime of your creator career. If you're just starting, you're probably just gonna have a newsletter link. And if you don't have anything, think of something to put there to just show that you're more of a creator. So that is it for this video. We'll keep on chugging along with branding and the writing foundations in the next one. In this video, I want to talk about how to create your niche of one. This is how we are going to be framing anything that we write inside of this bootcamp, because when you write something, we have the topics, we have the ideas, we can come up with new topics and ideas, we can think of things to write all day, but how do we write it? How do we actually frame it? How do we start ideating the angle from which we're going to write? And that is by having a quote unquote niche. That is having a frame from which you write. So if I want to write about productivity, what is the goal that it's leading towards? That helps me write it a lot better. That will make a bit more sense. But first thing I want to go over is to stop overcomplicating what your niche is. If you're brand new to all of this, then hopefully and thankfully you haven't been indoctrinated with the business concept of a niche and everyone telling you to choose a niche first, because that was the biggest thing that I struggled with. Is when I started freelancing and agency work, it's you need to choose a niche so that like people will buy your stuff. So I looked at construction companies and I targeted specific people rather than specific people with specific goals, because that's anything that you're trying to do online is you're trying to provide value so that people can achieve their goals. If you aren't doing that, then you aren't a creator, you are an influencer, right? That's the main difference. Nothing wrong with either, but a creator helps people achieve goals. An influencer entertains people with no goal in sight. So your niche is anything that helps your followers reach the vision of your brand. Another way that I want to frame that is your niche is the transformation that you are attracting people towards. So it's good to think about where you've been, where you want to be, where you are now, and how you are helping people along that journey that you've taken. So the problems you've experienced are content. The interests that you've learned to help you achieve what you have now or where you're going is content. The skills, the interests, everything like that. So your niche is the goal you're helping people achieve, the vision you're helping people achieve, and the transformation you're helping people achieve. Everything you write should be framed through that lens so that you can attract people to that goal. And by that point, anything becomes valid to write about because you're helping people achieve a goal. And if walking helps them achieve that goal, just like psychology helps them, or spirituality helps them, or mindfulness helps them, then your unique set of interests and topics are what make you unique, because everyone's gonna have the same goal. It's all financial freedom, having a healthy body, having a healthy mind, increasing your skill set, things like that. The desires everyone wants, but how do you get there? Okay, something to think about. Everything you write should be written for someone who is trying to achieve that one big goal. And as I said, your skills and interests are how people are going to get there. So we're going to start with an anti-vision, or the enemy of your brand. So a few things to think about here is, first, what is the bane of your existence? Paint a picture of the life you do not want to live, and what is the positive fear that you are working away from? So for me, that's living the default lifestyle, being told what to do, go to school, get a job, retire at 65, and all of the problems associated with that. Number two is, what were the lowest points in your life? So what made you want to change? What made you want to learn the things that you love talking about? What made you want to change what you're doing so that you can achieve something more in life? Number three is, what is the worst version of yourself? So if you can think of either who you were at that time or who you would have become if you kept going down that path, where would you have ended up? Because that is something that can become a motivation source for people to work away from and actually find meaning and value in your writing as a way to help them improve their lives. So again, frame everything through your anti-vision. You want to remind yourself what you don't want every time you create your bio, write content, write newsletters, build products, or market your products. When you remind yourself of all of this stuff that we're going to talk about, it becomes a lot easier to write with impact, because you need to have a goal that you're working towards in order to be impactful, and you need an enemy to work away from so that people can actually make sense of the goal and why it's important. The opposite of your anti-vision is just your vision. So your ideal lifestyle, right? What are you guiding people towards? So take a look through these questions. I'm not going to go too much into this because you're going to be writing these out later. So read through those questions, start to think about it. We'll write them out in a few sections from now. But no matter what you do or sell, people want the lifestyle and transformations that are the result of those things. They don't want the things themselves, right? You would not have become interested in going on a walk or learning web design or studying psychology or productivity if it didn't help you in life. In order for something to help you, it needs to be in alignment with a vision or goal for the future. So if your writing isn't vision or goal aligned, then it loses all impact and you just become a dictionary, right? The difference between a dictionary and a persuasive writer is having a goal that you're creating an argument towards. Okay, this will make a lot more sense as we go. This is just necessary foundational context for everything that we do. Now, in between your anti-vision and your vision, so where you are or where you don't want to be, and where you are now and where you're going or where you want to be, what is the bridge in between? And that's skills, habits, and beliefs. The skills people need to acquire, the habits people need to adopt, and the beliefs that people need to hold in their mind on their journey. So as a value creator, your job with all of your content and products is to help people achieve their goals. And you do this through actionable insights, novel perspectives, reframes and opinions, awareness of problems, awareness of solutions, and guiding people from beginner to advanced. Never write a piece of content without remembering the vision and how to actually achieve it. So whenever you write about a topic, think about the vision, think about the anti-vision, and help talk about your skills, habits, and beliefs or interests in a way that help you avoid one and achieve the other. So in terms of education and what exactly needs to be learned by your customers, I would encourage you to write out the mindset and skill set people need to acquire to achieve your brand's vision for them. So problems they have to overcome, skills they need to learn, the mindset they have to adopt, habits they will need to form, because all of these form your cornerstone content ideas that you can write about endlessly. And these help shape what ideas you capture and notes you write so you never run out of angles to write from. So whenever you capture a note or an idea, it's usually because it aligns with a goal of yours. So if you have a goal of creating a newsletter, then you're going to notice more information from any book or interest that you read, right? You can read a book on spirituality, deep esoteric spirituality, but if your goal is to write a newsletter on business, you're going to read that book through that lens and capture ideas related to that. So that's why it's important. If you want to register ideas for content, newsletters, threads, then you have to constantly be thinking about the posts, newsletters, and threads that you want to write about for your brand so that you can actually become a magnet for ideas, capture them, and then develop those into posts, threads, newsletters. Now, to make it a bit more personal, is to your extreme beliefs and habits, right? So think about the ones that are the most potent to spark controversy, create polarization, and get people on your side. Because if everyone likes you, this is a common just cliche, is that if everybody likes you, nobody likes you. If nobody hates you, nobody loves you. So you're not trying to be hated by everyone, but you're trying to be loved by the people that are like you, right? So if you try to cater to everyone and you post something that is rather controversial, but you wholeheartedly believe, if you prevent yourself from actually writing and posting that, I feel like you aren't being authentic to yourself, and you aren't allowing other people that like that mindset to follow you and become a true fan. So if you want to be remembered, you're going to be hated by a few people, and that's okay. This happens especially more as you continue growing, and you just learn to deal with it. The very spiritual journey of writing is just learning how to accept criticism on your work and learning how to ignore criticism that isn't really criticism, and it's just people not having anything better to do with their lives. So what are the beliefs that make you unique, and what are the things you do that make people think you are crazy? And this doesn't really have to be anything crazy or insane to you. You probably think it's normal, but you want to talk about these things quite often. So as an example, do you eat sardines for breakfast for the health benefits? And I do this. Do you walk 30,000 steps a day, or do you want to walk 30,000 steps a day? Do you believe everyone should prioritize building a business? Do you believe everyone should be an entrepreneur? Do you believe that nobody should drink alcohol? What are your beliefs? What are your firm beliefs? Or the weird things that you do that you may not think are weird, but other people think are weird, like your parents say they're weird or something like that. And you don't need answers to any of this just yet. You just need to pay attention to the things you do and what your friends say about them, or you need to pay attention to what you do and think about how it can fit in everything that we talk about here, because you may not have noticed the things that you do and the importance of them without going over things like this, where you need to talk about your extreme beliefs or habits. Now, another thing that we're going to do when we're creating our niche is that the concepts, processes, and big ideas that you come up with are what are going to make people remember you, in a sense. So a great way to make yourself unique is to create your own concepts, processes, and definitions for terms in your niche. So an example of some of these are the one-person business from myself, the Eisenhower Matrix, the Mastery Method, 1% Better Every Day, the Mastery Method, the Passion Process, the $1 Million Weekend, the 2-Hour Writer, the 4-Hour Work Week. A lot of book titles are based on concepts, processes, or big ideas. And the more you talk about those things, the more they stick in people's heads and help people understand certain things that they're trying to achieve in relation to a goal. It helps them. It's like a package of knowledge that people can encapsulate within one word or term that holds a lot of meaning. And so when they hear that term, it sticks in their head as a way to remember it, and then they assign you the credibility of that for when they get results with that thing, or when they feel good by you making sense to them. So these are just a few things that we went over. It'll make more sense when we flesh things out in an actual template, but that is it for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Enjoy. I want to go over just the basics of Twitter or X, or maybe any social media. Maybe we'll go to Instagram and LinkedIn in this video, but for this bootcamp, we are focused on X specifically. Now, the reason I'm creating this is because in the past, when I've taught content in social media, many people are starting from absolute scratch, which I would question, right? If you haven't been on social media, why are you trying to grow on social media? Although I understand. So we're gonna go over just a few things and what they actually mean. And in this module, how to control your growth on social media, this will be very important. So this is the timeline you have. I'm sure you know what this looks like, pretty intuitive, right? Now, what you can do when you're scrolling certain profiles is you can like, you can retweet, you can comment, and you can quote post if you click quote right here. And you can also bookmark. You can also see the views. So what this does is a like sends a like, but as a large creator where I have like 440,000 followers, this will still show to some of my followers, because if you've been on Twitter before, you know that it says up here, like on your profile, if you follow me, this may show up on your feed and it may say liked by Dan Co, right? So a like is still a useful engagement metric where you're not always trying to get retweets on your post. Even a like from a large creator is important, and it can gain you a lot of followers. So pay attention to that, where even if you aren't getting reposts with the strategies we talk about, even a like is good. It's very good. Now repost is obviously more powerful, where if I go like this and I click repost, that will show it to more of my followers. So this will get more engagement, and then it will show up on my feed. If I quote post it, this is what it looks like, and I can add a comment here. Now, I can also reply, and that shows it here, under where like people are actually reading under it. Now, the difference between the two is that a reply is going to show up under this post. It's going to show it to people that are looking through the replies of this post. So if you're deciding, in order to grow and in order for other audiences to see my content, should I quote post or should I reply? 99% of the time, it should be a reply, because one, people think, oh, I want to quote post so that it shows up on my feed. When you reply to someone, it still shows to your followers. If I reply to Brian here, people that follow me are going to see that I commented on this post, and they will see my comment, and they will see this post, and it will also get more views on this post itself, right? So getting likes, reposts, quote posts, or comments from a larger creator is pretty much the only way to grow without relying on the algorithm. And when I say a bigger creator, I just mean one that's bigger than you, or one that has an audience, because that's the only freaking way to grow on social media if you don't want to rely on the algorithm. If you want to write about what you want and maintain your freedom, you have to build an audience. Where are people on social media? They're in other people's audiences, right? They're not just scrolling while following 0 people. They're following people they like reading from. So in order to get people to follow you, you need to get your content reposted by people with an audience, because that's how you get in front of anyone on social media, right? Just keep that in mind. Now, let's look at lists. Lists are one thing on Twitter that I find relatively powerful. I have quite a bit. I haven't been in here forever. But if we look at these, what I do sometimes, let's look at a few. So for one, I had a swipe file. Is there still people in here? Yeah. So I don't know how many people are in here, but I would create a list in the past. This was probably like 2-3 years ago, where I just add accounts that I really like reading and that I get a lot of inspiration from. So Orange Book is one, Mark Manson, Art of Purpose, Jack Butcher, Lawrence King. There's probably a few more, Charles Miller, Dan Go. And so every day whenever I lacked inspiration, I would just come through here, I would like their content, and I would write my own, right? Because you emulate first. So for this, it's like for most people, lack of emotional control is a bigger obstacle than a lack of intelligence. So I could write about that idea where lack of emotional control is a bigger obstacle than a lack of intelligence. I can say, I could talk about the dangers of a lack of emotional control and just create a list of the dangers or the traps or things like that. So that's one use case for a list. Another use case is to just add the friends that you were growing with at some point. So in this one, when I talk about masterminds in this section of the course that you're on, these are people that I had on my list because I was in a group chat with them and growing with them when we were at like 1,000 to 50,000 followers. I don't do this anymore because I don't have to, but at the start you have to associate with certain people and become friends with them. So mine was like Jake Molina, Aaron Will, Eddie Kwan, Save Your Sons, Lawrence King. And so I would just come in here every single day and I would choose a few of their posts I would like, comment, and we would build our names together. So you'll learn more about this as you go through this section of the curriculum, but creating a list with people on it is a great way to just focus your experience on Twitter and only reply to the people that you want to. So I would have a list with my friends. I would have a list with the people that I want to be inspired by. And then I had one called Big Boys, which is like all of the larger accounts at the time. So Ed Lattimore was one, Orange Book, Mark Manson, Zuby. These are people that I would reply to in order to get my name more known in the space by the bigger creators and potentially gain followers from people going into their replies. So that is mainly it for Twitter. That's really all you need to know for now. If we want to think about Instagram, Instagram is really the same thing. So is LinkedIn. If we go to LinkedIn, go to the homepage, you can see it's the same thing. You have likes, comments, reposts, but one thing to pay attention to is that comments from larger creators are much more important than reposts. Reposts don't do too much. Comments is what you want and what you want to do. So if you're growing on LinkedIn and choose to do that over Twitter for now, just focus on comments. That's a very big thing. I don't think there's lists on LinkedIn, but that's pretty much it. Instagram, the repost feature is a story share. So story shares are important. Likes, DMs, all the same. Now, one thing, let's see. What was I going to talk about? How to find people. So if you're like, I have no idea who to follow and my feed is an absolute mess, you kind of just have to go down the rabbit hole. You're not going to have very much luck by searching people to follow. You're pretty much going to follow one person that you know from another platform. So it's like, if you follow me, then it's like, okay, how do I find people on Twitter to follow? You can go to my following and just start to look through and see who else is interesting and that you would want to follow. So you can go through here, follow a few people. You can go to someone else and maybe not look at their following, but you can find people that have a reasonable following and just start following them based on what you like. So if you like talking about business and you know Noah Kagan, then you can go into his following and you can see, okay, Sam Parr, Sean Puri, and then you can follow these if you want. And I know this guy is pretty big into business. Now I can look at his following, or if I want to find, let's say, smaller creators here, one important thing is that they're probably not going to be following a ton of small creators, but what you know is that there are a lot of small creators in the replies of their content. So if we look at something relating to business, if we can find one, I guess they're doing a challenge. You just said, I'm sorry for ruining your feed. This isn't working very much. Okay. Okay, let's just look at one of his posts. CEO of Adobe just emailed me. Let's just look at this one. But long story short, you can go into the replies and find people that may be growing or may be creators, like Caitlin. You kind of just scroll through and find them. And then over time, let's say a month, you're going to be following like 300, 400 people. You're going to be happy with that. You're going to be able to reach out to people, make friends with them, DM them, etc. Makes a lot of sense. So go through the rest of the section and start implementing so that you can start growing or at least set the foundation for your growth. Okay, in this video, I want to talk about the non-needy networking process and how it can help you. So going from the last video that you saw to this one with potential steps in between, look at Dickie's bio. I talk about the skills, beliefs, and businesses I'm building. So kind of sort of the same as what we talked about, but this is just what he talks about: skills, beliefs, and businesses. Next thing, help 10,000 plus start writing at Ship 30 for 30. He's a competitor, but I'm sure his writing program's good. Use Cortex instead. Former BlackRock trader turned writer, start writing online. So he has a lead magnet, he has his offer, where he has what he's helping people with. That's social proof, very important. Former BlackRock trader turned writer, that's his story. In his pin profile, he has 26,000 likes. He talks about writing. Rules are a must read for writers, entrepreneurs, and anyone who wants to tell captivating stories. Great. What we're here to talk about is how Dickie and I met and how we helped each other grow. Okay, so okay, going up to here, May 15th, 2021. Hey Dan, thoroughly enjoyed your chat with my man Danny. This is when I did a podcast with Danny Miranda. I've been saying iteration and awareness for a few days now. Super powerful. That's something I did on the podcast. I find myself rotating with two-word mantras like that quite a bit. My most recent was intention and ease. Mostly a reminder to not make things harder than they need to be. What do you notice about this message? He's being genuine. He cares, right? He has actually taken the time to listen to something that I was on, or read my content, or read my book, or read an article of mine, or something like that. When you reach out to someone, don't just be like, hey dude, how's it going? Don't be like, hi, hello, I love you, follow back. It doesn't make sense. Don't do that. Build genuine connections. How do you start any conversation? You give a compliment. Any conversation, you give a compliment and you become interested in them because that makes you interesting. So first thing, he just says this: thoroughly enjoyed your chat with my man Danny. I've been saying this. He watched the podcast and he liked it, and I like being on the podcast, so of course I'm gonna respond. I'm gonna say, yo, what's up, man? Thank you. Has been on my mind a lot recently as well. Glad you enjoyed the pod. That's literally the first thing that we exchanged. He was just planning a route because he wanted to be friends. Don't reach out to people you don't want to be friends with. It's as simple as that. You're building a network of people that you can rely on because, one, look at this. Business writing is a superpower, blah, blah, blah. Thought you'd enjoy this. Something that should be required reading before people get email privileges. He sent me a post because this was almost 3 weeks later. Because one, he thought I would enjoy it, and that's made clear here. He's not asking for anything. Second, he knows that if he sends it to me and we're on a good page and I actually like the post, I'm probably going to like and share it because I'm there and I want to return the favor that he gave me here of liking my stuff. That's called the law of reciprocity. So you're going to read through the non-needy networking process under this video, which is a bit longer and can give you extra steps, but it really is as simple as give a compliment, potentially start a conversation. Whenever you write a tweet or a thread that you think they'll like and potentially like and retweet to their audience, then send it to them and just be like, thought you'd enjoy this, another line, right? And then I didn't really do anything. So one, don't be discouraged if no one does anything about it, right? I saw it and I'm like, okay, I'm busy, not going to respond, whatever. Then he takes a very personal post of mine from October, so a few months pass, and he takes a very personal post of mine where I talk about switching night cards. I'm very passionate about nutrition, and he sent this to me, and he just started asking questions and giving his experience and what he's going to try. And that's just how you start conversations with people. It's like, oh, what are you doing? Have you tried this? I'm trying this. Like, just talk to people about what you're doing and what they're doing. And then I talk about this, and then he sends me another one, right? Through this together after a bit of reflection, appreciate you bringing the positive energy around here, my friend, because he's into fitness too. So he made a post about fitness and sent it to me because he was just thinking about it, right? Love it, brother. What app are you using? Oh, that's all Whoop. Nice. And then I ended up buying a Whoop, right? And then the conversation conversations just carry on. Boom, boom, boom. Weight tracking, we talk about fitness a lot now. Boom, boom, boom. Wrote another thread, sent it to me, wrote another. So that's pretty much it. You're going to read over the non-needy networking process. You're going to see what I mean with this, and then just look over what we went over here and see how simple it is to just send posts to people after you write them, right? It's pretty simple to grow. This is how you get eyes on your content, just like that. All right, my friends, welcome to the practical aspect of week 1 of the Writers Bootcamp curriculum. Now, in this, we are going to go over how to use this brand clarity template to bring together everything that you've learned so far inside of the curriculum, like your topic tree and your brand, your niche of one, and even growing on social media. So what you're going to see when you're inside of the workspace that you should have access to, you can click here, go to whatever workspace it is, and then to duplicate this template, because you can't edit this, right? This is just a template to duplicate. You go here, you right click, copy to workspace, and then to your personal workspace. Now, I've already done this, so we're going to go over to my personal workspace where everything is. Now, read the instructions just so you have some clarity, and you can add these elements to your workspace if you would like, and then you can organize them inside of settings, or if you don't want that, if you don't want to add them to your workspace, that's completely fine. The only reason you would have to add them to your workspace is if you want to access them and reuse them inside of the elements drop-down menu. So if you're just using these because you got them in the template, then you don't need to add them to your workspace. Now, what you're going to do when you go into here is nothing here inside of the connections. This is just a place where you can reference your entire brand, right? So if you're ever writing a newsletter or content or whatever it may be, you can rename this to, let's just say, Brand Clarity. And you can open this whenever you want. Now, why would we do that? Because then you can come inside of here, and let's say we're writing social media content, and I don't have any ideas. I can come here, open pillar 1, and be like, okay, I have all of my topics here, and we'll go over how to do this later. But this is the power of a second brain tool that allows you to do this, is that you can reference any of your ideas or your brand at any time within a pane, right? So that is important, and these will make more sense as we go through this. So don't pay too much attention to the connections element right now, but what you are going to pay attention to and fill out is the vision. So you're going to go through this, you're going to answer all of these questions, and if more comes to mind, feel free to add questions of your own, because your vision is what you're leading your followers towards. All of these can be treated as content topics or parts of your story or just philosophy that you can bake into newsletters or content itself, which you'll learn how to write in future weeks. Now, going through this, if you ever have anything that you want to add to your vision, because when you're sitting and you're writing this, not everything is going to come to mind. This is something that you're going to be doing throughout all of your writing, is capturing ideas when the ideas come to you. So if you're on the walk and you're like, oh, I had something else I wanted to add to this document, you can open up Capture and then connect it to the brand clarity page or whatever your page is named by typing at that specific thing. And then you can capture an idea for, let's say, your vision here. And so this shows up and you can reference it at any time just by opening Capture for this specific document, right? And when you're writing a newsletter or something else, that comes very much in handy, because if I'm writing here, then I have all of my ideas that I've captured here to reference. And of course, as with learning any new software, you may not see the use case for that yet, but that's perfectly fine because it will come later. So read these questions, fill them out, go to Anti-Vision, read these questions, fill them out, add more if you'd like. Now, the skills, habits, and beliefs, like we went over in the previous modules in week 1, this is where you write out the things that help people achieve your vision and go away from your anti-vision. So if you think of your vision and anti-vision as the worldview or the world itself that you're inviting people into, that's your brand, the worldview that they're going to explore and join. The skills, habits, and beliefs are the practical steps or the practical things that people need to learn and that you need to teach. And these could potentially turn into a product or a course or a newsletter or content itself. All of this can be turned into your foundational content or just be used as starting points for that specific thing. It's like how I always talk about writing, speaking, marketing, and sales as the future-proof skill stack. That's because those are what's necessary for my audience to help them reach the vision, right? So fill that out as well. And if you struggle with any of these, feel free to just skip it, right? You can come back to it, you can add to it, you can capture ideas later. The point is to just flesh out what you have on your mind right now. Now for a vision board, you're just going to add images that help illustrate the vibe of what you're trying to get across. And then clarity are just more questions. How do you want to speak? With what tone? What are your favorite colors? What are your general interests? What's your main expertise, etc. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to fill out pillar 1, the topics and subtopics, pillar 2, pillar 3, with your topic tree, the things that you've defined. And the reason I have content ideas here as a tag, you can remove this or add this or do whatever you want. But when you click this, it opens any specific document that has that same tag. So if you're struggling for content ideas, then you can just search for the content ideas tag and open specific documents. But you don't have to do that. Now, the next thing is the idea museum. And this has a few important things, but this will make more sense when we actually go over it in the example. So let's just go straight into that because that helps you understand this more. So we're in the Cortex brand clarity example, and I created this as if I were going to do this for the Cortex brand, right? Not my own brand. So if I were writing content and creating a brand for Cortex, that's what this would be. And you can reference this anytime if you need to. It's right here. You can open it in a pane and view it as you're filling out your own if you would like. As we go through here, you can see, so if we look at the initial brand clarity, with connections, it has pillar 1, pillar 2, pillar 3. So I changed the name of those things to psychology and persuasion, creative work, knowledge management. So when you're filling out pillar 1, pillar 2, pillar 3, change the name of the document to match what your content pillar actually is. And then I renamed Cortex Idea Museum, or Idea Museum, to Cortex Idea Museum. Now you can see how whenever I'm writing something and I want to find my content topics, I can go into here and I can look at these. So if I open this in the main pane, this is for one of the pillars. So how you fill out the pillar is like this. You go through, you write out what the topic is under your content pillar. So for Cortex, it's knowledge management, obviously. For you, it could be self-improvement or health or spirituality or philosophy. And then you pick 3 or more topics, right? So curation was one, and then subtopics we listed out here. Now I can turn any of these into tweets or newsletters or anything like that. The next one was connection and synthesis. These are a bit complex. So if we look at creative work, you can see That's our content pillar. And then the topics are writing and content, creator economy, personal branding, creative blocks. So writing and content, we have the need for content, building a name for yourself, the importance of becoming articulate, clear thinking, communication, that we're just setting the scene for everything that we can write about as tweets or things we can research to find better ideas in future weeks, right? These will come in handy a lot in the future weeks of the Writers Bootcamp. Now, the Idea Museum is kind of where the magic happens. So you filled out your content pillars and topics. And now for the Idea Museum, what you're doing is you are thinking of specific concepts or processes or big ideas that you want to be known for in your brand. This is important because you can see here a few that you probably know of. If you follow me, Dan, the person speaking right now, then you know the one-person business model, right? You know the value creator. You know, potentially, if you've been with me long enough, you know the mastery method. You know the life reset. These are pretty much a way for me to flesh out and organize all of my notes around a specific idea that has done well for me. So if this is confusing right now, just understand that this is something that you add to over time. This is something that you this is something that your brand starts to, it takes shape with time as you write, right? Or if you've taken the free second brain course in the Cortex community, you have already done this with core notes, right? So you're trying to establish authority around specific topics or concepts that can be related back to you. Because when people think of the one-person business model, and since I've written about that so extensively, when people hear that word and when people start to copy it, my name still comes to mind, right? I get the social currency, I get the social capital from me first establishing authority in this idea. Now, the last thing I'll do, so fill all of this out and use the example here if you need help along the way, but I'll show you my Idea Museum and how it looks. So here we have my main topics as tags. So whenever I'm creating notes or creating content or outlines, as you'll learn, I have all of my categories here so that whenever I'm writing something, I can just open these, right? And I can find all of my newsletters and all of my notes that have this tag within them. Down below, I have something like a process, so the mastery method, and then I have the steps. So create a mind expanding goal, deconstruct it, build and learn, acquire techniques and skills, and then I have notes for each of those things. So if I look through here, you can see I have a core note here on how to make better choices. Now, where this really comes in handy and is very cool is when you're writing something and you want to reference your best ideas. Now, this takes time and writing to really flesh out and cultivate, but think of it as just a place to reference your best ideas. So if I'm writing a newsletter like this one, AI is going to make your life incredible, and let's say I have my draft in here, and all of my writing is done here. I have this open. I can open up the Idea Museum in a pane, and if I ever need to reference an idea, I can click a tag and open another thing, or I can go to something like this, how to make better choices, and now I have all of those ideas here, right? And then if I want to go even further and have more unique ideas for what I'm writing to be able to reference here, it's like, say I needed an example for creating your own identity or something like that, then I could go here and it's like, oh, another connection in my notes. Cool, got this. I can look for more stuff on identity. And you can see with this that I'm going down this rabbit hole of ideas that gives me specific ideas to write about for this thing. So I'm talking about AI is going to make your life incredible. But as I'm doing that, let's say that a talking point is how AI is not going to replace writers, but it's going to make writers more powerful. I could somehow weave in the identity of being a writer and how that helps AI write as you. Now that may not be the best, but you can see where we're going with this. And we could even use that one topic of up here, how to make better choices, is how to think and act in a world where AI is becoming more prevalent, right? And that is going to give me firepower for my writing. So before that gets any more confusing, because I kind of just threw you off the deep end there, and you really don't need to worry about that too much, because I just want you to start writing and fill out the template that we talked about. But I think it will be helpful if I throw you off the deep end here, and you slowly make the connection of how this is useful to you over time. So don't worry about it too much now, but I guarantee that you will see the power in this later. So I'll leave it at that, fill out the template, and see you in the rest of the bootcamp. All right, my friends, we have something special now inside of this bootcamp, and that is Kai, or Cortex AI. So there's a few things to know here. First, you will have access to all of these prompts. I'm unsure if I want to include them like this in Elements or in their own separate documents, because inside of Kai, you can @mention documents. So here's the plan for this exact module. So you should have this template duplicated. You should have your connections filled out. You should have your brand vision filled out. You should have your anti-vision, all of this stuff filled out. Now, a big struggling point for people in previous cohorts was that they wrote this down, but then they only referenced their topics for topics, right? Which is great. But all of these things you have listed here, those are your personal experiences. Those are the things that set you apart. Those are the things you should talk about the most, in my opinion. So what we're going to do here is we're going to close out of this, because just remember your actual document name. We're going to go here. We're going to go up to chat. We're going to open this, and you can create a new chat for this. That's what I would recommend. So all you have to do is send a message, and it will create a new chat. Now, mine are all messed up for testing purposes, but you can name them certain things. You can right click and name them to organize things, and eventually, maybe by the time you watch this, we'll have pin chats, so you can organize them further. Now with Kai, you can press tab to turn it on and off, so you can capture ideas inside of a session and toggle on Kai for so many different things. But for now, we're going to use the brand clarity prompt to help us with content ideas for that document. So the instructions here are copy the prompt below, paste it into Kai, add your brand clarity document, and then create a new document to save content ideas to, or add them to your content pillars document. And then you can ask for more ideas or mention your content pillar documents and ask to pull more ideas from those. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take this. Let's copy it all. Make sure it's all copied. Actually, we'll go this way. Copy it, paste it in here, and then you'll find the @brand clarity document here. And I'm going to type @example Cortex Brand Clarity, because that's what my document's name is. I would personally recommend that you read through all of this just so you understand what's happening, because the more you understand what's happening in an AI prompt, the better you can recreate it for your own use cases, and that's important. So you can see the general structure here of you set a purpose, you give it context, you give it very detailed instructions, because if you don't give it detailed instructions, then it's going to fill in the blanks for you, and that may not work out well, especially when we get into writing content, right? You'll see how big these prompts are, and especially the thread writing one, because I need to teach AI how to write a thread, because the out-of-the-box threads that people write, the average thread, or the average, since AI is pulling information from the internet, how people write threads isn't that good, so we need to make it better. So we copy-pasted this, you understand what it's saying, And now what this is going to do is it's going to pull from our brand clarity document. It's going to ignore the questions of it. See, ignore the questions inside of the document. And it's going to take what you wrote and it's going to give you content ideas in various formats. And those formats are relatable pain points, aha moments, desirable transformations, quick tips, educational snippets, and personal experiences. So let's just hit send and see what it gives us. So it should give us 5 to 10 content ideas. You can see here. So pain point, create a block, and just read through these. And you use this as a starting point for ideas, right? You don't have to use this. This is just one potential use case for Kai. Another thing you can do is I'll just do this right here because I have the brand clarity document added. I can say something like, this is a document that has everything related to my personal brand. How can I string this all together to make sense of my niche? We can try that. I haven't tried this before. But the more you experiment with Kai, the more you start to understand it. I mean, the more it starts to understand you, and you can use it for really whatever you want. So if we look here, niche statement, I help aspiring creators unlock their potential through effective writing and knowledge management strategies, enabling them to produce impactful content, build a dedicated audience, and live a creative, purposeful life. Now, if we look at the Cortex brand clarity document, that's kind of what we're doing, right? We're talking about knowledge management, effective writing, our target audience is creators, and then it breaks down the key elements of what I do, or what was inside of there. So it's kind of like a summary. Vision alignment, anti-vision alignment. It's pretty interesting, right? So you can play around with this, but the main purpose that I want to use it for is creating content topics from something different from the topics that you've already written down, right? And now you can either copy paste this by clicking the copy button here, and you can paste it into your topics document, or you can just talk and bounce ideas off of Kai. So this is just one potential use case for brand clarity. There isn't too much more to do here in this week, but this may prove to be helpful. Now, in the next weeks with post writing, you can see how long this gets. It's going to get very fun, and it will be invaluable to help you write posts, threads, newsletters, etc., and then editing, YouTube and source research, so on and so forth. So this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what Kai can help you do. But since this is the introduction week and we have to get the branding right, this is what we recommend. So hopefully that was cool. Let us know what prompts you come up with and what insights you can find in your own document, and we'll see you next week. All right, my friends, in this video, I want to talk about the 3-point content ecosystem and how you can use it to not only amplify the effect of your high-performing content, but also be able to come up with ideas and create this little, you could call it an echo chamber of your own ideas, right? So that you don't really have to rely on others, although that is subjective and you should always be experimenting with and researching what ideas perform well. So we're just going to go over how this all works, and I'm hoping that it clicks, because if you don't have experience with all of this before, it may take a bit for it to actually click for you what's happening here. If you don't have experience in marketing or sales funnels or other things, then it may not come across as I intended to. So there's just one thing to notice. So this is my blog. This is where I post my newsletters as blog articles. Now, what is the reason for that? It's very important. First, I have my email opt-in up here, right? I have control over this because I have a blog. Next, I have my products on the right sidebar. On mobile, these go to the bottom. I have my newsletter right here, where I have a YouTube video for this newsletter. I have these baked into the newsletter, which are tweets of mine that help frame and hold attention throughout it, because it's more engaging than just having straight text throughout, right? So when we look at my newsletter, there's a few things. One, we can do a few things with this. You can write a newsletter and you can turn it into a thread just from the ideas inside of here. You can take some of these and turn them into tweets. And now when I say that, I don't mean that you are just copying and pasting something. When I've talked about the 3-point content ecosystem before, and I say you can turn parts of your newsletters into tweets, people often assume like, oh, I can just copy paste this and it'll do well as a tweet. When by now you should know that's just not how it works. You're using your own newsletter as a way to generate ideas for a tweet so that you can write it in a way that performs well based on how you've learned to write tweets, right? So we can turn this into a thread just by points inside of it. That's another thing. With the thread, you're not necessarily just copy pasting like all of this, which could work really well for a thread because of how this newsletter specifically is structured, but that's not really how we're doing it. You're looking over the entire newsletter. You're thinking, okay, what parts of this could I turn into the key points of the thread? And then what hook could I create out of that to make it more impactful, right? You're not just copy pasting everything into a thread and hoping that it works. You still have to pay attention to what platform you're posting on and not throw all of the knowledge that you've gained on tweet and thread writing out of the window. That's not how it works. So if I were to turn this into a thread, I would come through and I'd be like, okay, 12 rules of creation. That would work pretty well for a thread. Anti-vision, vision, mission. I can take all of those and make them key points, and I'll have to condense these down into either 1 to 2 tweets within the body of the thread. And then I'm gonna have to turn this into a hook by thinking of, let's say, a problem, how to amplify the problem, and then leading into it. So if I were to create a thread out of this newsletter, I would think most people don't have direction in their lives. Starts with a problem, amplify it. They end up, or they spend 40 years learning from someone else, working for someone else, to end up living the life of somebody else. A thread on taking back control of your life, and then in parentheses, the 12 rules of creation, then lead into it, where 1, anti-vision. I could probably condense this into 1 tweet in the thread that would probably fit, and then vision, so on until you write the thread. And then from there, I could turn each of those into a tweet of its own, right? So let's say if I want to write a tweet on what an anti-vision is, I can't just start here because this isn't really an impactful hook. This is assuming that people have the rest of the context that I'm talking about in the newsletter. So if I want to turn anti-vision into a potent tweet, I would start with a similar problem that I did in the thread, where if you don't know what you want out of life, you need to figure out if you don't know what you want, realize what you don't want. That's actually a tweet of mine because I've done this before, right? So you need to craft it into its own tweet. So let's get back into the importance of like what the content ecosystem is. First, it is how you create all of your content. All of it, right? Tweets, threads, newsletter. How do those get repurposed down the road when you're ready? You don't need to immediately go onto other platforms, but how do those get repurposed? I hope you can see the power in this. You're in the habit of writing tweets and threads. You write a newsletter every week. That newsletter can be turned into a YouTube video because it's just a script. People ask like for a YouTube course from me, and to be quite honest, I don't like have much YouTube experience. All I do is I pull up my blog on my phone and look down at my phone, read a section of it, look at the camera, recite it, riff on it a bit, and just continue doing that for 30 to 60 minutes, however long it takes to actually record the video. And then I send that to my editor, he edits it, and then it goes on YouTube. That's my YouTube strategy, is I'm good at writing newsletters, therefore I'm good at writing long form content. Therefore, if I write a good newsletter and it does well, it will probably also do well on YouTube. That's my YouTube course in a nutshell. Everything you're taking in this course is my YouTube course. Okay, that's the YouTube course. So you write a newsletter, you can turn that into a thread. You have 1 to 2 threads a week. That helps with growth, like very quick growth on all platforms. Then you turn those into tweets from the newsletter or just ideas that you have or from the thread or however you're currently writing tweets. Those tweets can be used as YouTube short scripts, reel scripts, TikTok scripts, whatever it is, a short video, whether it's animation or just talking to the camera, and you just pull up your tweets and you start reading them in an impactful way, and you either have B-roll over it, however you want to create those, and then you post them to all platforms, right? Simple. The threads, those turn into carousels or long-form posts on LinkedIn. So just by getting into the habit of writing 2 to 3 tweets a day, 1 thread a week, 1 newsletter a week, eventually you have content for all platforms. You don't need to start out doing that, but the longer you do it, the more easy it's going to be to diversify platforms, because when you test ideas for so long, like you have 20 newsletters, you have 30 threads, you have 1,000 tweets, you know which ones already do well. And when you want to start on YouTube or Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever other platform you're not already on, you're doing so from a very good starting point of ideas that work and will gain you followers much faster than if you were just going in blindly. So that's the importance of it. Now, I do want to make very clear, we'll go over this, that it doesn't have to happen in this sequence, right? You're trying to create your own system that works for you with this. You're not trying to directly copy what I do. I don't always write tweets for my newsletter. That's just not how it works. That would be a failing game. I come up with them how I've showed you how to come up with them, just by reading books, having conversations, looking at the timeline to see what other people are saying, pulling inspiration from everywhere and writing tweets. Some tweets come from my newsletter. That's great. Some threads come from my newsletter. That's great. But what you can also do is start with the tweet, right? You can write tweets if you're good at writing tweets and want to get into the habit of that. See which tweets do well and then turn that into the newsletter itself, right? You can do it the opposite way. Rather than starting with a newsletter and breaking down content from that, you can start with a tweet, turn it into a thread so it does even better, and then turn that into a newsletter. So you're turning your best content into more stuff. That's the gist of it. That can be repurposed infinitely to all platforms. Okay, that's important. So the other thing here is I have email subscribe right here. I have my YouTube video right here. If you record your newsletter as a YouTube video, then you can embed the YouTube video in the actual newsletter or the blog, right? Going down further, I have links to my book. I'm assuming to my other courses, to our writer, Cortex University, very soft plugs, right? I'm not hard promoting in these. I'm just saying this is what I teach in this, and this is what we help people with in this. That usually makes more sales, for me at least, than promoting something hard, like leading everyone into it at the very end and then just being like, buy this, right? And when they reach the bottom of reading the newsletter on the blog, not only do they see another email opt-in, but they see my products, because on mobile it's at the bottom, right? So they see that. Now you can start to see the importance of this. One, every newsletter you write and upload to your blog becomes a lead magnet. A lot of people don't think that way, where they just send newsletters and don't do anything with them after. I post it here. I plug it on my social media. People read this blog page, even if they aren't on my newsletter list, and they have the opportunity to subscribe here. So this is how I gain newsletter subscribers. This is also how I make sales. Somewhere right here. So it's a sales page and it's a lead magnet, and it's just free value for people. So not only is this a way to monetize your audience when you have products, it's also a way to gain newsletter subscribers to continue growing that list, and it's a way to nurture your current audience both in your newsletter and on the timeline for people that actually read the blog post. So we'll go through a few things here. I'm gonna go over here, move my face. I have a few things open where we have ConvertKit. So ConvertKit is an email marketing software. It's a great software to use, but there's a bit of nuance here, right? When you sign up for ConvertKit, one, you're gonna have to learn how to use the software. Second thing, YouTube is a great option to actually learn that. For this, ConvertKit doesn't have a good feature for posting your newsletters as a blog. So if you do not have a blog where you can upload your newsletter to it so other people can read it, then I wouldn't necessarily recommend ConvertKit right now until you have that. Now, another thing you can use until then is Beehive. So on Beehive, this is more of a newsletter software, and it gives you a blog to actually, it gives you like a public profile so that people can go and see all of the newsletters you've written. Another good option is Substack. You see a lot of people use Substack, and that's kind of like a social media feed of newsletters, and you can send people to your previous issues of that newsletter. So if you don't have a blog, use Beehive because it gives you a public profile. If you do have a blog, then write on something like ConvertKit because that gives you options to do sequences and all of that stuff. But then you have to copy and paste your newsletter to your blog every week. That's what I do every week. I don't automate any of this, like any of my repurposing. People think like, oh, how do you spend so much? I mean, how do you do all of this? Like repurpose Instagram to LinkedIn, to all this, to post your newsletter on the blog, etc. It doesn't take that long. Like to post to Instagram, you just go to a tweet, copy, paste it into a template, download that, post it to Instagram. That takes like 2 minutes. You already have the image, upload it to LinkedIn, post it, upload it to the YouTube community page, post it. Like all in all, it takes me like 5 minutes to actually do that. And it takes me maybe, I mean, however long it takes you to copy and paste and format something onto your blog, that maybe takes 5 to 10 minutes. Easier to do that than to try to leave it to automation to get everything right, which it probably won't. So let's walk through the importance of this. So we go to my profile right here. Every single Saturday is when I send the newsletter. When I post the newsletter, what I do is I write a tweet, a hook to get people into the newsletter, and I link the newsletter right here. So what's happening here? People go to this newsletter. It does somewhat well. How well it does is determined by your hook. Do not just say, read today's newsletter. That's not going to get very high engagement. It's not going to get spread. It's not going to get as many clicks. You have to treat it like it's a tweet and you're leading into something. So I write like the hook. I write however you write tweets, and then I lead into it. So if you were to write the hook of a thread, what would you write? So if you were to write the hook of a thread for your newsletter, what would you write? That's the top of that's how you promote the newsletter itself. So now when people go to this, what do they see? They see the newsletter opt-in, they see the YouTube video. This one doesn't have a YouTube video yet, but for other ones that I post, they see the YouTube video. That's how you grow your YouTube audience, right? Especially if you're growing on Twitter first. Post a newsletter, has a YouTube video, they watch that, they subscribe on YouTube. So you're getting newsletter subscribers, YouTube subscribers, and potentially making product sales because they're plugged within your newsletter. That's the power of this. Now, what I try to do, I've been fairly busy and my system has kind of gone to crap because of that. But let's look at this. So what I recommend doing, if you can get into the habit of it and actually remember to do so, is when you, every day you have 2 to 3 tweets going out like clockwork, right? Every day I would go through and I would look at a tweet that has done really well. So what you do here is after a bit, after it gets some traction, you post an old newsletter under it. That's as your blog. This is the importance of uploading it to the blog, is because you can plug it like a lead magnet every single day, right? And you're not confined to the specificity of a lead magnet that you wrote. If you wrote a lead magnet on how to build a website with WordPress and you write a tweet on mindset, that's going to be kind of difficult to tie the two in together. But if I write a tweet on mindset and I have a newsletter on mindset, then I can plug the newsletter on mindset and it's probably going to get more clicks. And then when people go to that, they see YouTube video, okay, cool, I'm going to subscribe. They see this, okay, cool, I'm going to subscribe. If they don't do that yet, they're going to read it. They're going to be like, okay, he has a book, cool, may buy that. He has other products, cool, may buy that. And then they go further and then eventually they subscribe. So that is the importance of that in and of itself. Now, a few things here. Where is it? So here, every day, I plug this under a tweet in the form of a comment. That is the same thing you can do on LinkedIn and YouTube and Threads. On YouTube, it's just in the community page. So if I go to YouTube, go to my profile, community, you can see I have my newsletter post, I have this, and I can plug it in the comment after like every day. So you just literally do the same thing on every platform every single day, whether that be tweets, promotions, whatever it be. Now on something like Instagram, what I do instead is I'll post on Instagram. And what I like to do, let's see if there's actually one here. Nope. But what I'll do is I'll screenshot my tweets and I'll post them to my story. And under the tweet where I post my newsletter, I also screenshot that. So now I have the tweet that I promoted the newsletter under, screenshotted, and then I have the promotion under it. And then I post the first one to my story, the second one to my story, and then I add the link to the newsletter there. So people are visiting it on Instagram as well. So makes a lot of sense. That is the gist of the 3-point content ecosystem and how powerful it can be across multiple platforms. In this video, I want to give you some alpha on how to find high-performing ideas. So we've been collecting ideas from wherever we want to right now, based on what we actually want to write about. But in terms of ideas that will do well and will serve as the foundation for your growth, because if it's high-performing, that means it usually gets a lot of engagement, that usually means it gets a lot of followers, etc., etc. That means it captures attention, that means it does well. And since social media has developed year after year after year to the point of having so much content, market research for content and products in general has gotten so much easier for those that understand this. So I'm just going to show you a few ways where if you don't know how to angle the topics that you write about or how to come up with headlines, which we'll talk more about when we actually write a newsletter, or hooks for a thread or things like that, you just need to immerse yourself in high-performing angles, ideas, and just ways of communicating a message. So what I would personally recommend is to try to write posts around these ideas by taking the ideas from what I show you, potentially turning them into core notes, or just turning them into post topics that you want to write about. So the first thing that I'm going to show you is YouTube. Now, I'm sure you already follow a decent amount of people that talk about things within your topic tree. So you can go to those people and on their accounts, and I would recommend keeping a steady rotation of their content in your consumption. So if you go on a walk and you listen to YouTube videos, that's what I'm talking about. If you at lunch, if you sit down at your desk and you watch a YouTube video, that's what I'm talking about. Just be ready to capture specific ideas related to the things that you consume. So the first method for generating high-performing ideas is to go to a YouTube channel that you watch that talks about topics within your topic tree, and then you go to videos, and then you go to popular. Now, the alpha here, or the high-value advice that I'm giving you, is when you go to popular on podcasts in specific, like a really big podcast, he has Impact Theory, they put a lot of money into testing what ideas and thumbnails do really well. So you can pretty much, one, if these have a lot of views, like this many, that usually means that the thumbnail idea right here and the title of it have multiple ideas that you can use for your content. So if you talk about the law of attraction or anything that Joe Dispenza talks about, you can use some of this, like why the law of attraction is wrong, or what you can do instead, or maybe adding nuance to that. This habit ruins men. Maybe this habit ruins women. Stop being lazy. This habit rapidly ages you. Like other things related to the topics that you talk about, you can turn these all into relatively high-performing topics. And when you learn how to write posts in the future videos here, this will make a lot more sense. So this is just one thing. You can come through these, filter by popular, continue going through. Another example here is Diary of a CEO. He puts a lot of money, I know this for a fact. Diary of a CEO, he literally runs ads and has a few ads going before he even posts the video, so that he can gauge which gets more clicks and engagement for the thumbnail and the title based on the ones that are coming out. And then he can choose from there so that he knows that the video is going to do well from the start. And then he continues iterating and improving and changing the thumbnails. He has an entire team behind this. So you can assume that a lot of these, and especially the latest ones, are all relative. They're the best ideas they could have been for what was talked about inside of the podcast. So that's one, is just YouTube. Another way is short form, where sometimes I read short form. Like if I just want to get the gist of a book without reading it, I will go to short form. I know Blinkist is another way of going about it. So you can go to short form. This is pretty much book summaries and all of the best ideas summarized. So you can go here, you can read books based on topics that you want to read about and usually get a good explanation for the best ideas that that book has. Another way is Medium. So going to Medium, signing up for Medium. This is actually pretty funny, and I feel like a lot of people sleep on this, is that when I first started out on X or Twitter, I would actually sit down in the morning and read a minimum of one article and try to create 3 posts out of it. Like I would click on something like this, I would read through it, and I would read an idea, and even if I didn't have something to write about, I would force myself to start writing something, and then to go over the process that we're going to talk about for writing posts later, I would go through that to refine the post and just post it anyway. So that's one method you can use if you'd like, is to just read an article first thing in the morning, capture ideas and write posts based on them. But Medium is very good for this, and it's also good to study headlines from writers that have been doing it for a long time, so you can start to kind of condition your brain to think in high-performing headlines. So Medium is another great resource for this. The next, and what I would say is actually absolutely necessary, and one of the most powerful ways to generate high-performing ideas, is to get something called Tweet Hunter X. Now, some of you are familiar with Tweet Hunter. It looks like this. I was writing a thread earlier. This is Tweet Hunter. This is how you schedule tweets. Tweet Hunter X, on the other hand, is a sidebar. It's a Chrome extension for Twitter or X. What it looks like is like this. It shows up like this on your sidebar, and I can see my highest performing tweets, and I can see the highest performing tweets of any account that I go to. So I can go through this personally and rewrite my best tweets pretty easily, knowing that they're going to do pretty well. I can talk about self-discipline, again, self-discipline. Other things like this. I can just replicate them with, again, what we're going to talk about in future videos. I can also search for specific posts. So if you're looking at my tweets as an example, and you're writing about business, then I can just start searching keywords and see the highest performing ones, right? Starting a business, what's another one? Niche. I can see my best angles for talking about niche and other things like that. And then I can search specific users, like, let's go to Naval. You can go to him, you can see his top performing tweets, or at least ones that are most recent. You can search specific words, etc., etc. Just makes a lot of sense. Here's how you find high performing ideas. Take them, make them your own, use them for idea generation. Do whatever you want there. Now, another one that I haven't used this in a while, but it's a good option, is DeepStash. And these are pretty much just curated ideas, right? I would recommend downloading the app, trying it out. You can get big, good ideas based on specific topics that you choose. So all of these are just ways to generate ideas from the start, to start taking potentially high-performing notes to turn into posts or threads or newsletters. This is just how I recommend generating ideas if you do not have any ideas to write about, or your ideas aren't that good or aren't getting much engagement. This is a way to kind of not guarantee, but increase your chances of your posts doing well based around the topics that you talk about. So we'll see you in the next video. Okay, we are finally getting into the good stuff with the anatomy of a good post, or just how to start writing posts. So this will be more so foundational of the components of an individual post, and then in the next video we will go over how to actually think about writing them, how to write, refine, and make your posts impactful. So in this one, the main lesson that I'm going to get across is to start scrolling social media as a researcher, not a consumer, or just start being a creator, not a consumer. What that means is a lot of you right now are in that consumer mindset. You're still scrolling on social media to get the value out of the content. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, and you should still do that. We're all consumers in one way or another. We can all benefit from information, but you also have to approach with the lens of, I am a creator and I can use this as inspiration to make my creations better, right? Because that's kind of what creation is. It's pulling from multiple sources and creating something of your own. So to start, good posts are subjective, but they all capture attention, educate, entertain, or inspire the reader, and give them a reason to share it with other people or engage, right? So you have the first thing, they're not going to actually read your post unless you capture attention. So that's a necessary, absolutely necessary step number one. And by studying YouTube videos and buying books and other things on capturing attention and psychology, that will really help you in your writing. The next thing, education, entertainment, and inspiration, those are pretty much what all content is. When you boil it down to those three things, it's like you're either being educated with information, you're being entertained and just scrolling, or you're being inspired by someone else's personal experience. Then giving them a reason to share it, so why it matters to them, why they can relate or identify with it. Because think about how when you share a post, what are you thinking? There could be a lot of interesting things that you uncover here, where if I retweet a post about self-improvement, what am I trying to signal to my audience, or just my friends that follow me if I don't have an audience? I'm trying to show, hey, I'm interested in this. This is a part of who I am, right? Or it could be something you're just find interesting, something that's really cool or entertaining, and you want to share it with the people that follow you. So take that into account when writing to see if you can recreate that effect to have other people share it to their audiences. So if a post doesn't check those boxes, we're going to consider that it is not good. So for the remainder of this program, that's the criteria that we're basing good posts off of. Now, I have a concept that I came up with the Cortex elements, with Core Notes, called the 10 Commandments for Capturing Attention, or the 10 Commandments of Engagement. So through studying psychology and marketing and sales, I've kind of boiled everything down to 10 specific things that really capture attention. So the first one is just specific numbers. You see these everywhere, right? It's like 7 bad habits that are preventing you from this, 5 tools that you can use for building a course, statistics, there are 7 billion people on this earth, dollar amounts, Apple's new $1,175 iPhone. The thing here is that they didn't have to use a number for this one, right? Apple's new $1,175 iPhone. The point behind specific numbers is that it's a pattern interrupt in normal text. It just looks different, so it draws your eyes to it and makes you want to figure out what it says. So the more specific you can get with a number, like I sent 322 cold emails, or after this many days, or I studied psychology for 10,102 hours, there's no way to quantify that. But when you can get specific, get specific. And even just having a number here or there is going to help you. The next thing along with that is pattern interrupts. So pattern interrupt is something that breaks people out of their normal condition pattern. So when you're scrolling something like on Twitter, you're used to just blocks of text and quotes and potentially videos now. So you have to think and zoom out. How are my posts going to stand out on the timeline? Now, if you see a lot of my posts, or any creator's posts, there's a lot of line breaks, there's a lot of lists, there's a lot of numbers, there's potentially videos, there's potentially very unique images that aren't super basic stock images that capture attention more than a stock image would. So these are just all things that you need to think about and get creative with as you get better at writing. The next, and something very important, is a person's negativity bias. So rather than saying something like you're going to achieve great things, you can compare that to you will never hit rock bottom again, because people's minds are more drawn to the negative side of things. Now, this can easily be exploited and abused by just being overly negative all the time, but you can see here with this example, this isn't overtly negative, it's just a better and more impactful way of framing what you're saying. So as you go about writing posts, if you find something lacks a bit of impact, try spinning it into the negative version of that thing. Now, as with all of this, you're probably going to have to come back to this and actually practice as you're writing to solidify this knowledge. Another thing to capture attention is a target call out. So I've used this one a few times. If you're in your 20s, you can see this all over YouTube, really. Even if you're in your 30s, if you are under 45, right, you can get very, that's not vague, but you can get very broad with how you do this. You don't have to get specific, like calling all creators, coaches, and freelancers. You can just talk about fathers in general, and a lot of people will resonate with that. It's just a good way of picking a specific type of person and writing content to them. And even if they aren't that specific type of person, other people are still going to be interested in it. It's just a way of capturing attention. So if I say fathers are a gift to humankind, not only fathers are going to resonate with that, children are going to, mothers are going to, grandmas are going to. It's just a way of capturing attention, because it opens a curiosity loop as to, okay, what is he saying about fathers or people in their 20s or these people? The next is a problem call out, because most people have encountered the same problem or pain as everyone else throughout their life. And if you can describe that feeling accurately, you have attention at your fingertips. So we'll find how important problems are, and we kind of already have with what we're writing in our core notes, and usually starting with a problem. A problem is just a great way of opening a curiosity loop as to, okay, how do I solve this problem? What is the value here? Because when you think of what value is, it's problem solving. It's a problem is here, a goal and a benefit of achieving that goal are implied on the other side. So you need to figure out the path from the problem to the goal. That's what a story is, right? Storytelling equals value. But too many people think that storytelling is about having characters and having a magical fantasy setting and things like that. A story is a problem, a goal, and the path in between. And that equals value. Remember that. That is very important, and that is a huge principle in life. That explains human behavior, that explains psychology, that explains survival, that explains storytelling. As a writer, you are making people aware of problems and guiding them through your writing to help them solve them and achieve a goal. That's writing. That's good writing right there. That's it. Next thing is readability and aesthetics. So use line breaks, use shorter sentences, think about how your content looks while reading. We'll go over certain, like you can see here, a lot of line breaks, a lot of lists, a lot of repetition, a lot of trying to make things look good, even hard pill to swallow, and then leading into it. So something short, then something long, right? We'll go over these, but I just wanted to show you what I meant by that. The next thing is confidence and conviction. So this is extremely important. It's just having conviction in your writing and in your beliefs. This doesn't mean that you have to be overly dramatic with certain things. It just means you need to not be wishy-washy about what you're saying. You need to say things with confidence because that will reflect in how your writing is not only written, it's more readable when you're confident, but how it's received. So tools you can use to sound more confident is just eliminate words that imply uncertainty, speak in absolutes when possible and when it makes sense, and then exaggerate your point to add energy. When I exaggerate a point, I'm kind of breaking out of the literal interpretation of words, right? I'm not trying to get across a point, I'm trying to get across a feeling. An example is I can say, how to get ahead of 99% of people. While that isn't exactly accurate, it's getting a feeling across, and it's getting the essence of what I'm trying to say across. So it is trying to get the point across rather than just the logical interpretation of the words that I'm saying. That's just one example, but don't abuse these. And as an example, you can say, rather than saying, it may be wise if some people develop their skill set, say it is crucial that everyone on planet Earth develops their skill set. Because one that gets the essence across, it's more impactful, and it's relatively true. And people that argue with that, or like it's not absolutely crucial for everyone, that just adds engagement to your post. You can see the flaw in that line of thought, I would hope, and you're going to reach more people by having that punch in your writing, so to say. So now the next thing, or next commandment of capturing attention, is potential benefit. So this is the opposite of calling out a problem. It's talking about what people's lives will look like after they achieve the goal, right? So you think in problems and benefits, these are kind of the pillars of your core notes in general. So you should have a lot of these written out, or should be writing them along the way, and you just sprinkle them into your writing because you're trying to, the benefit is why should people care? And once you get that across correctly and more often, people are going to resonate with your writing more, and they're going to take action on what you say so that they can get results and attribute those results to you. That's what authority is, right? So if you can train your mind to think in pains and benefits around everything, like as a practice, just think about, okay, I'm going on a walk. What pains is this resolving for me? What benefits does this bring me? Okay, how can I turn both of those into a tweet or a post or a thread or a newsletter? That simple, right? Next is social proof. That captures attention. So when you flex your results or credentials, people automatically assume that you know more than them. And this is just human nature. I'm not saying that you're trying to put off this facade that you know more than people. I'm just saying that when you show social proof, that's what people assume. You're not going to change that, right? That's just what happens. So this works 100 times better when it isn't viewed as a flex. So Justin Welch, as an example, is very good at this, where he doesn't gloat about making a lot of money in business. He just says, my little one-person business made this much in revenue this year. Rather than saying, I don't know, there's so many other ways to frame that where it just sounds bad. But if you frame it correctly, social proof can become a very strong driver of your brand's authority. The next thing is warning and caution. So what should people look out for when they're trying to achieve something? So a trap or a warning, or be careful of this, right? Can you warn them of something they will encounter as they are trying to reach where you are now? I'll show you examples of this in the future, either in this video or in future ones. Now, we've already talked about where to generate good ideas, but I want to stress the importance of ideas as a habit or creativity blocks and setting aside time to research your main topics and to break them down into ideas. So what I like to do is go on walks where I listen to audiobooks or I'll just read on my phone. Also reading before bed with no distractions is also a good time. Or if you just have time throughout your day that is dedicated to something else that isn't serving your goals, can you replace that with reading or intentionally consuming content so that you have a steady flow of ideas to write with? And of course, having a place to capture ideas, which is Cortex. What you're doing when you research these things and the ideas that you're jotting down along the way should be novel perspectives relating to high-performing ideas, the basics or the fundamentals or the principles. Because with this, you may be wondering, well, everyone's talking about fitness or productivity or business or whatever it is. But what you don't understand is that people need to be reminded more than they need something new. Okay, that's extremely powerful. You're not trying to create something new. You're trying to create a new way of viewing the principle or fundamental or the main thing that actually gets results, right? So you're writing about the same thing that everyone else is, but you're doing it from your own perspective with either personal experience or certain angles that you get from your research, reading, or just consumption. So a good post or quote by Nicholas Boothman is that your readers want to be entertained and receive tools they can use immediately. That means your book, and in this case it's a book, he's talking about writing a book, must be sprinkled with anecdotes and useful, practical, hands-on exercises invented or reinvented by the author. That's the important thing there, invented or reinvented. So when you read books and you listen to podcasts and other things, you usually are met with quite a few perspectives and ideas that are new ways of talking about the things that everyone talks about, right? And when you take those and distribute them with your brand, you start to become more and more unique. So in terms of where to generate ideas and what I find the best to generate these novel perspectives that you're going to be writing with, it's books, book summaries, courses, podcasts, YouTube videos, tweets and threads, other social posts, so on and so forth, and then TikTok from the top down. Because a lot of people, I mean, I'm sure you hear this all the time where it's like, cut through the fluff and get straight to the details. But the details or the principles or the actionable steps usually don't have that much magic. They don't usually have that much novelty. The fluff of the books and the summaries are where you're going to find the unique ideas that you can take and use in your brand that you can almost guarantee that other people aren't using. So by reading books around the subjects that you talk about, you're able to create much better ideas that other people aren't going to be able to compete with because they're stuck on the surface when you're diving into the depths and learning everything. So that is kind of it for this. Now I have a lot of stuff here, right? You have access to these slides, but we're gonna go over a few of these just to show what they're all about. But what I want you to use these for is to emulate the structure of the post that you're writing once we learn how to actually write hard-hitting posts in the next video. What you're doing with these and what I would encourage you to do as your tasks and as your homework is to look at each one of these and try to recreate it from a completely different idea. So rather than the new 1% here, try to break it down into its elements or the essence of what I'm saying here. So the new 1% is a concept for the new 1%, so to say. So if you can think of a concept related to what it is that you talk about and then list off the traits of that person. So this is like an identity followed by the traits. People can identify with this and this kind of qualifies them. So rather than saying the new 1%, I could say the greatest writers are self-educated, or the greatest writers study psychology, marketing, etc., etc. For this one, hard pill to swallow, you can think of a different way of framing hard pill to swallow and just have the harsh truth here. For this, if this, then that, this one's pretty fun to write, where it's like, if you this, then this, and then you repeat those in a way that builds off of each other. So it's if you're lost, the answer is this. If you're educated, the answer is this. If you're acting, the answer is consistency. So lost is here, education is here, and then it moves on. Okay, if you're educated, action, acting, consistency. Let's look at a few ones. Commentary is usually fun, so something that you hear people say. You can straight up rip this from the comment section of really any post or video, and then take it, put it in quotes, and then give your novel perspective on it. In terms of confident advice, something like this, where it's how to achieve a desired end result, and then the steps to do so with a bit of context, and then wrapping it up with the benefit. Observation, so an observation about society, where it's one pattern I've noticed in happy people. I've done one where it's one pattern I've noticed in miserable people. I've seen a lot of people take this one and they don't listen to my advice where I'm like, don't write it exactly like this. Don't use one pattern I've noticed in X. Just be creative with the hook and how you say the observation that you're making. So with all of these, I would encourage you to use these slides hand in hand with you as you're writing posts, or just save them for later so that you have them and are able to reference them in the future, because these will come very much in handy, as you'll find as we get into the next few modules. Over the years, I've had quite a few people ask me what my post-writing process is. I try to say this as humbly as I can, but I feel like since the beginning of my social media journey, a lot of people have complimented on how hard-hitting my posts can be. So with this slide, I'm going to try to break down the process of how I do that, because I've had 3 to 4 years to mull over that process and break it down so that you can practice and emulate it. So the first thing that you need are ideas. You just constantly need a constant flow of ideas. So read more books, turn your replies into posts. That's a very important one. What I mean by that is when you are replying to other people in order to grow, most of your replies can just be copy-pasted into like where you're writing a post and then reframe it to be a standalone post and change a few words here and there and then post it. And if the post that you're commenting on or replying to is high performing, then you can assume that yours will carry over some of that. Okay, try that out. The third thing is just dedicating time to podcasts or newsletters. Even if you think you know it all, you have to always read from a beginner's mind, from the mind of a student, as if you know nothing, because that's what you have to assume your readers are doing, because most of the time that's what's happening, right? The fourth thing is dedicating time to creating core notes in your database. The fifth is having more meaningful conversations with friends and loved ones. All of these really help with idea generation if you're ever lost and don't know how to generate ideas. Now, the writing process, what everyone has been waiting for, and I feel like this is truly powerful if you continue to practice it. So this is how to get up and writing fast. The first thing, just choose an idea. So we've talked about that. You have ideas, just choose an idea, okay? The second thing is to start questioning. So ask who, what, where, when, why, or how to discover an impactful aspect of that idea you can share and make your own. Now, just continue questioning things until you get to something impactful. It's not just about asking who, what, where, when, why, or how once. It's about asking it 2, 3, 4 times until you find a truly unique angle that you can start writing from, and that's your starting point. The third thing is to write without judgment. So you're trying to write out a post without really knowing that it's a post or thinking that it's a post. You're just trying to write out the idea and get something cohesive out there so that you can start refining it, because the greatest killer of writing is thinking too much before you start writing. So get the paper on idea, get the idea on paper and come back to it. Now the fourth thing is to become the reader, because writing falls flat when you don't answer the question, what's in it for me? Or when you just don't make sense, or you're too clever or too abstract, right? So you need to become the reader. And then fifth, question and object. So ask more questions as the reader and poke holes in your own argument so that you can create a more impactful one. And then as you question, you come back, you edit, you change words, you add sentences, you remove words, you remove sentences for impact. Then the sixth thing is you format for engagement. So you add line breaks, lists, and edit your sentences to be relatively short and impactful. So let's go over a few of these. On the right, this post of mine has always done very well. Since the start of my journey to now, I wrote different variations of this. I would say every 3 to 6 months, I would write a new variation of this because it always brought in a lot of followers, right? So I'm supposed to repurpose that. Also, I turned it into a thread one time that went viral, and then I turned that into a YouTube video that now has 1.6 million views. It's my most viewed video, and the title got swiped by almost everyone on social media. After that video went viral, I swear I've seen maybe 30 to 40 titles that have this, how to get ahead of 99% of people. So if you ever see that anywhere, just know that your boy, Dan, started that trend 4 years ago, right? So going through the tweet, how to get ahead of 99% of people. Go quiet for 3 months, laser in on one big goal, self-educate like mad, apply everything you learn, fail as much as possible, every month, take a break, and have some effing fun. Burst of intensity are how you blow past everyone else. So the thought process behind this is just having an idea at first. So focus on yourself for 3 months. You can get that from a YouTube video, you can get that from a self-help book, you can get that from really anywhere. That's a pretty common idea to come across, right? Question is, okay, what do I do during those 3 months? Or just how do I focus on myself, right? So expand on it, write out the steps, add some nuance. So I wrote out the steps, added some nuance. Then put yourself in the mind of the reader. So an objection, as reading through this, that I see in the comments all the time, when you start putting posts out, you're able to adopt the mind of the reader a lot more, because you already know what they're going to say in the replies or the comments, because you've already experienced it so much just by writing a lot. So an objection is go quiet for 3 months. Nobody can do that. I have kids, right? So another response I could have had, or put here as the context, is you don't have to neglect your family and kids to get things done. If I had more of an audience catered towards parents, then I would write that, but I don't think I do. So I didn't write this, but it could be just as impactful. And I could even write another post with this as one of the starting points, right? So then making it impactful, right? Because right now in the thought process, you have an idea. Okay, what do? I go quiet, laser in on a goal, self-educate, apply everything, right? And then come up with a nuance. And now adding a hook, I can read through all of this. And it's not like I started with how to get ahead of 99% of people. I looked over the entire idea that I had after all of this process and thought, okay, what am I actually doing? What's the goal? What's the desired outcome of this? What am I actually doing? And so this came to my mind, how to get ahead of 99% of people. And a lot of people like to comment on that, where it's like, no, you don't need to get ahead of 99% of people. You just need to focus on yourself. And that just gives you more firepower for writing, where you can either add nuance or turn people's comments or replies into your own posts as a starting point for your idea. Then add an onboarding last line. This is extremely important, is that people write posts. I've been teaching this for a while, and no matter how much I try to get the point across, it still happens. Because when you're actually writing, it's very difficult to remember everything that you learn. So I'm not blaming people. I'm just saying, please do this. please, when you write a post, pay attention to the last line, because that is what's going to lead to engagement and followers, is your ability to wrap something up and make it hard hitting, because that's the last thing they read before they like, repost, comment, or follow you. So that's the most important part of the post. If I just say how to get ahead of 99% of people, this, and then say what most people would write here is like, focus on yourself, or some like short, boring sentence. It's like, take it a step further. What are we actually getting here, right? So add a non-boring last line and answer, why should I care? Because blowing past everyone else, burst of intensity, whatever it may be, you're trying to explain the transformation that people are going to get from this, whether it's implied like this or directly stated. Now, another tweet, mental masturbation, the process of raising dopamine in the brain by telling people your goals, plans, and how you want to change, but never actually doing anything about it. The thought process here is that I was reading the book, The Art of Impossible, and I came across an idea, telling people about your goals raises dopamine. And so I'm like, that's really interesting. I want to share that because I talk about goals a lot. I talk about productivity, business. Goals are related to all of those things. So question is, how can I turn this into a razor or rule of thumb, right? So how can I package this up and make it a bit more novel? And I've heard the term mental masturbation before, just sometime in the past, and it was around like just consuming information without actually doing anything about it. So I'm like, that actually makes a lot of sense here. I'm going to redefine this term. And another question is just, what do people tell their friends about, right? What are they telling people that raises dopamine in their brains? So here you can see telling people about your goals, plans, and how you want to change, but never actually doing anything about it. So expanding on the idea is illustrate what you've seen others do. This is what I've seen them do. Now put yourself in the mind of the reader. An objection after reading over what I get from up here, I tell people my goals all the time and achieve them. I see this in the comments of this post, actually. The nuance here is I can change the tweet to a definition rather than being a target or being targeted, because I wrote this in the past and it was just, don't tell people your goals. It raises dopamine similar to actually achieving them, blah, 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 go quiet and build. So I rewrote it as a definition for this. So it's not directly targeting someone. It's more so making people aware of what can happen. And this one did a lot better because of that, because I handled the objection in this post. Now, another important thing there is a lot of this process is going to come by putting out a tweet that does okay, reading the comments of it, and then going back to rewrite the post in a more impactful way. And that's completely fine to do. You're supposed to talk about things over and over again. To make it impactful, I use the concept as the hook. So mental masturbation. Now, if you lack motivation, read a book, go on a long walk, watch your favorite video, learn a complementary skill, immerse yourself in a motivating environment, use the intrinsic motivation to remind you of the intrinsic why that you lost along the way. I'm not too happy with this tweet, but you're going to put out tweets that you're not too happy with. So the idea here is that I had a lot of motivation after reading a book, right? I'm sure a lot of you do, but do you see that as something to write content about, right? Just reading a book and being like, wow, I feel really excited right now. How do I share this with my readers? And so the question is, what else has given me motivation? And then expanding on that, I can just list out my personal methods of things that bring me motivation so I can replicate them. So putting myself in the mind of the reader, an objection to this is motivation from external sources isn't sustainable. And the response is sometimes you need something to remind you why you were motivated in the first place. Now, I'm not too happy with this last sentence. That's why I say I'm not too happy with it. I should have put this. Sometimes you need something to remind you of why you were motivated in the first place. I feel like that would have done a lot better. Then making an impactful, simple pain point hook. So if you lack motivation, that's a pain point. And a bit too clever last line. This one was a bit too clever, but I like this one more. So that's how I would have written it. Now, in terms of stealing like an artist, all of these that we went through was the thought process of writing tweets. Another way is to just read posts and steal like an artist. So I talk about this a lot. I've talked about it already, where you're emulating others' posts by going to their top posts and picking one to bring under your brand. Now, if you were to go to my top posts, you'll probably find this one. And here's what you can do here. You can exchange an idea. So rather than study human nature, it can be study web design, study engineering, study what you find important. It doesn't have to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines. It can just be one, study web design. Okay, why? It will only be a matter of time before, well, that's the last line. So let's go here, question the idea. Why study human nature or why study web design? Because you can list out benefits then. So it's study web design. First benefit is you can freelance with it. Second is you can build a portfolio site. Third is you learn a creative skill. And then challenge the idea, so questioning it. Why learn web design over another skill? Web design is more accessible than ever. And then I can end it with a last line. So a new last line. It will only be a matter of time before you make more money. And then I can expand or question from there. So there's just multiple ways to turn this into something new. I can repeat, study web design, study engineering, study marketing, study sales, study other things. Or I can say learn, or I can just do one line, study engineering. It will teach you how to think like a mathematician, etc., etc. Come up with the last line, question it all. That makes sense, right? Now, another very important thing is that it is a sign of intelligence to be able to summarize a lot of text into core lessons or teaching. So this isn't just a lesson for writing a post. This is a lesson for writing threads or newsletters or almost anything. Is that when you're watching a YouTube video, I can guarantee maybe 50% of them are just summarizing a chapter of a book that they really like, right? I've done this before, and I usually like to bake in multiple chapters of different books into one cohesive teaching. Like when I read Flow by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and I talk about a hierarchy of goals, and then I bring in business, where I'm saying you need to create a hierarchy of goals for your customers, like content, a lead magnet, a product, a service, and then guide them up that. So the more connections you can make between abstract concepts and summarize specific things into core teachings, the better you get. So in terms of summarizing something into a post, when you read a chapter of a book, right, you don't have to take individual sentences or ideas from the chapter itself, read the entire chapter, and then come back and try to articulate it in 2 to 3 posts of your own, right, without actually reading the chapter. That's a great way to write impactful posts from validated knowledge or ideas that are in a book. Now, more tips to get started, we're just gonna run through these, is to start with a short and punchy first line, write the post without judgment, come back later to edit and expand, and then question, what is the point you're trying to get across? And now think big picture and how it connects to people's lives, then think about the why, so why should they care, and be sure to include pain points, examples, and benefits for maximum impact. You can consider this like a checklist as you're going back through and writing. Now, if you don't know with what words to start with, here are a few to just start writing your post. So stop, start, you, if you, the most, best, or worst, most people, most type of people, how to, never, always, or a short piece of advice. So try these out. Go write some content and then come back, and before you post them, go through these and see if you can make it more impactful. And that's really all you're doing. So that's it. It's as simple as that, even though that can get very complicated. So I hope you enjoy that. I hope you write some good posts. So we'll see you in the next one. Now we get to the fun stuff. So what you need to do in order to duplicate these templates is click on your name, go to the Writers Bootcamp workspace that you belong to, and then you're going to duplicate the specific templates for that week. So the post template right here, you're going to right click and then click copy to workspace and then your personal workspace. Now I've already done this, so I'm going to switch back and we are here. Now a few things to go over here. This is the post template. This is the post styles template with different styles in it. And then we have an example of my own that we'll go over. What I want you to do is to just think about organization for a second. So you can click on the week 2 post template and you can just rename this if you want to social posts. That way you can organize all of your content inside of here. Now, the next thing that I would recommend doing is to just create a folder that will be called, let's say 2025 posts. That way you can search for it and find it. And we're going to drag this to the bottom. You can delete the Cortex post template if you want, but then inside of the 2025 posts, you can add another document. So we create a new folder and you can name this however you want, but I like to structure it like so. So it is March 10th at the time of me recording this. That means it's the second week of March. So each week I press W2. So that means week 2 posts 2025. That way it's just easier to search and find a specific week that you post about, right? So it's week 2 posts 2025. Now, with the post template, what you're going to do every time you write is you have this in here and you can duplicate this document. It's different from copying to a workspace. You're duplicating it within your own workspace, and then you can drag it under week 2 because that's where we're going to be writing all of our content. But you still have the post template that you can duplicate each week. So now this will just be week 2. Actually, it should be named that. So week 2 post 2025, and I'm just going to drag this under 2025 post. This actually, sorry for the confusion, should be under here, and this should be called, what is it, for the month? It's March post 2025. So now we have it organized by year, month within that year, and week within that month. So it's easy to keep track of just weekly content that you're writing in here. Now, the reason for writing in Cortex instead of somewhere else is so you have all this content accessible. You don't necessarily have to write your content in Cortex, but it can help to do so quite a bit. So going through the actual template and things with inside of it, what you're going to do here is you're going to open connections, and the purpose behind this is to just start pulling ideas in. So I want you to link your brand clarity document, and the way you would do that is you type at brand clarity or whatever you named it. And so I have my example one here. That way, while I'm writing, I can go over everything that I wrote out the week before if I need ideas, right? And in this section right here, I can add those ideas here if I want to write about them. This will become very strong when we use AI specifically to do this, which we'll go over in another video. But you also have your post styles linked here. It should be automatic, but you can always add post styles if you want. That way, when you open it, you also have this open. So you can look through the posts that I've added in here for you as structures, which I'll go over soon. Then if you write newsletters or if you write anything, you can link your previous newsletters here. Since we haven't gotten to that, you can delete this, but once you start writing newsletters, then you can pull ideas from the newsletter itself. And having it linked there is important because I'll show you why when we talk about the AI stuff. And you can also link other notes as well. So if you've been taking notes inside of Cortex, then you can link them here if you want to use them for idea generation. You can also link sources. So from your library, or if you've saved YouTube videos with AI, you're just giving yourself a lot of ideas to work with because most people struggle with idea generation when you already have them all inside of Cortex. Then you can use these to brainstorm ideas or just brainstorm specific ideas, right? Pretty simple. Then you can research specific posts. And what I mean by that is if we go to something like Twitter, you can go to anyone's profile. And if you have the Tweet Hunter X extension installed, which is here, Tweet Hunter X, you can just search it up and install it on Chrome or Arc. I'm using Arc. But then you can go through here, search for specific keywords. So if I want to write about the topic of writing, then I can just search within here for writing. And then I can look and be like, okay, I could write about something similar to this, and then copy the URL, Option K to bring Cortex back up with the desktop app. Then I can delete this, paste it, tab, and it's right here for me to reference as I'm writing, right? So now I have a lot of ideas listed out. Now, going to the actual batches, you can come in here each day or whenever you want to write content. You can do it all the entire week in a day if you like, or you can do it however you like. And then you just write the post here. The good thing about writing them in individual elements is that I can highlight this text and I can see how many characters there are. So on something like Twitter, you're limited to 280 characters. On something like Threads, you're limited to, I think, 500 characters, maybe, but you can see what the character count is here. So that's a plus. And so you have your ideas open on the side. You start writing content according to what you just learned in the curriculum, and you fill this out slowly. I have a duplicate Wednesday in here, but you get the point. That should actually be Thursday. Now, at the end, what you can do is you can open this engagement checklist, and if I right-click, open in Paint, I have this here. So I can go through, and where I wrote my posts, I can kind of just check these off. Do you make a compelling argument? Do you answer the question? What's in it for me? So on and so forth. So you can write all of your posts, then go through them, edit them, refine them, and then post them. So the other thing here is the post styles. So you can open this on the side, or you can just open it in the main pane, or however you like. But what this is just a compilation of posts that I've collected over time within specific categories. So you can use these as structures for inspiration. What I mean by that is if we open this, we see a list, right? Compared to a personal definition, which is short, right? This is one sentence. The reason behind this is you can rewrite almost any tweet or any idea within all of these different styles, right? So if I want to write about writing, then I can go in here and look, okay, this is a problem-focused list post. So you care too much about what others think because you, 1, 2, 3. So if I think about the topic of writing and reframe it as, okay, what's a problem with writers? They struggle to come up with ideas. So I could say you struggle to come up with ideas because 1, you don't read long books. 2, you aren't learning anything new. 3, so on and so forth. And then, okay, if your priorities were strong enough, you wouldn't have time to focus on other people's opinions. So I could say, if you want to have better ideas, you need to move your mind into an environment where those ideas exist, right? Something like that. Now, if I take that same idea and take it here, the topic of writing, a personal definition. So what is writing? Writing is the act of articulating or putting your thoughts on paper so you can organize them in an effective way, right? You can refine this more, but that's just an example of how you can open this on the side as you're writing, take one idea and start to play around with these different structures or take topics and play around with these different structures to write them in different ways. So if we look through the Cortex post template, you can see how I have everything structured here. So I have my brand clarity, so I can open that on the side. I can write ideas specific to that if I wanted to. I have notes that I've taken before. So the evergreen skills is just one that came to mind for me because writing to me is an evergreen skill, and that's the topic I want to talk about this week. Impactful writing, so my writing philosophy, I also have in here. That's a note inside of my workspace. So the more notes you have, the more potential ideas you have. I have a newsletter inside of here that I've written before on writing, which I could pull good ideas from. I added a video as a source to Cortex. Now, at the time of you watching this, you can only add YouTube videos. Within a week, I believe, of this video being out, you'll be able to save tweets, threads, articles, and more. And you'll be able to reference PDFs. So you can include all of those here. But for now, what you can do is you can just go into a chat and you can paste the link to a YouTube video. And what that does is it adds it to your library. The transcript doesn't display, but Cortex AI can access it. So that's why I put this here, is because I can use this for idea generation when we talk about the AI feature and how to write tweets with that. So I also have highlights from a book that I've read. So I integrate with Readwise in Cortex and I save all my highlights here. So when I'm writing my content, I could come into here, wherever the post template is, and I could open up the batch, I could have this on the side, and I can just pull ideas from here and go from there. It turns out I was already in that document, so I could have just gone to the post, right, and started writing them. Now, aside from that, I have tags here if I want to add them, and what this helps me do is just identify more potential notes that I can use that I've used that tag in before. So if I've taken notes, then I can look through all of these, and I can see the name of the document under here, and just pull different ideas from it. So another idea could be pulled straight from here. That's optional. You can delete the tag section if you don't really use tags. Those are very optional. Now, the main idea section in the ideas element is where I write down specific ideas to write about. So these are just things that come to mind, or if I click on any of those topics, I can think of ideas from those. So how to start writing, the benefits of writing, how to capture good ideas. And then for the inspiration section, this is where I save tweets. So I went and looked at Cortex's best performing tweets, and then I copied the link, embedded them here, and then I found one from Dickie Bush, who also talks about writing. So I knew that I could go to his account, search through his posts, find one that could potentially spark inspiration for me. And with all of these, like with the ideas part, I can right click here, open in Paint, and have these all here if I'd like. So we're gonna close that, and then here's just what the posts look like, right? Nothing special here. Use what you learned in the curriculum to do this, reference the curriculum if you want to, so on and so forth. And this will get more powerful when we talk about AI in a module after this. So enjoy writing, play around with this. I'll see you in that bonus module. Okay, now we get to the very fun stuff where we can start writing posts with AI. So if you haven't already, please go to the Writers Bootcamp workspace, and you can right click on the Bootcamp prompts document and go to copy to workspace and then copy it to your personal workspace like you have the other things. Now, we went over the brand clarity prompt in a previous module, and now we're going over the post writing prompt. So with this, just please keep in mind that all of this information inside of the prompt is how I personally write tweets, right? I kind of instructed the prompt on how to do so, and I recommend that you refine it to your liking and only use it as inspiration as you write. What I mean by that is AI is an okay writer, and once we get more models in, like Claude, it will be pretty good at writing, but I still just recommend to rewrite them. I want you to use the tweets that this prompt outputs as inspiration for your ideas. It's like you can give this prompt to your newsletter or a source or a YouTube video to pull ideas from, or you can just give it a specific topic and it will write those ideas in a tweet format. And that's very good to start thinking of ideas in the form of tweets, because when you have an idea, it may be difficult for you to structure it as a tweet, but when you have inspiration there, it's a lot easier to pull from those and start writing. So along with the last video about how to actually use the post writing templates, this can be just another way to come up with potential ideas for tweets. So please keep that in mind, and I would recommend that you read through this entire prompt to see what's going on here, because at first I give it a purpose or a role, I give it some context, I give it instructions or requirements, and these are very specific. If you read through these, you'll notice that they're very similar to what you learned in this curriculum. So when you're going to write prompts for yourself, for AI to do a specific task for you, you have to actually be good at that thing, right? You need to do it yourself before you systemize and automate it, so you make sure that it's good. If you go into this blindly and just post all of the tweets that AI gives you, you're probably not going to do too well. That's just how it works. AI can't solve all your problems, unfortunately. Now, after that, we give it tweet examples. So it's important to understand this, that the examples in here are popular tweets that I both pulled from my own content and other people's content that I saw on the internet and I saved. When I give the prompt examples, it tends to use these as a way to structure its own tweets. So if you want to change the output of the AI, it may be helpful to change these examples or templates inside of here to your own posts or posts that you would want AI to structure the ideas as, right? So the output, the tweets that this prompt puts out, is going to look very similar to these tweets. That's why I recommend not pulling from them directly. And then, of course, the output, which tells the AI how to structure the actual output of its response. Now, you can copy paste this into a chat right here by just copy pasting the entire prompt, or you can copy paste all of this into a new document, and I already have that document. So you can create a new document, paste it into there, and I named mine how to write tweets. So if I go here, you can see it, and I just have it as a document. The reason behind this is because now what I'm going to do is create a new chat, and I'm just going to say use at how to write tweets to write 15 tweets on productivity. So right here, I'm just giving it a topic, right? It's not going to use my voice. It's not going to use any of my own ideas. It's just going to spit out 15 tweets on productivity. So we'll hit enter here, and we'll see it spits them out in varying formats for tweets, which is nice. So you have a few one sentence long ideas here. You have a few list ideas here. Same. Another single post. I can ask to regenerate these. I can just click regenerate and do this over and over again until I have enough ideas that I want. Now, with the model that we use right now, Gemini, it's not the best at writing. So when Claude 3.5 or 3.7 Sonnet goes in, these will be a lot better. But for now, it's good for just generating ideas. Now, another thing that you can do is you can either start a new chat, or I can add that document back. So how to write, I'll add it. What I can do here is let's go to the social posts, Cortex post template as an example. And if we're writing ideas inside of our post template, and I have this open on the side to generate more ideas, a few things that I can do here is I can give it my previous newsletter to pull ideas from, or I can give it a specific source. Now I want to show you what the output would look like in a different model. So Claude 3.5 or 3.7 is very good at writing, and we will soon have it inside of Cortex so you can see the difference in quality of writing for different models, because Gemini right now is good for generating specific ideas, but I want to show you the quote unquote power of Claude. So first I need to go to my prompt. So let's open Bootcamp prompts really quick, and then I can copy paste this prompt into Claude, and I'll have to add my reference in here. So I'll probably give it right here. But if we open Claude, which is just Claude.ai, you can try this a few times for free, I believe, but I can paste this in here. And then up here where I say I'm going to give you a topic or piece of writing, I'm just going to say, or I'll say it at the bottom. I'll say reference, or use this as your reference to pull tweet ideas from. And then I can paste my newsletter into there. So let's just Command A, copy all of this, and then paste it here, and it adds it as a little thing. And then if I press enter, we'll see the difference in quality. Your side projects aren't a waste of time. They're your ticket to discovering what you're truly meant to do. Most people take career advice. You can see how it's much more. It follows the one sentence post structure. It follows the multi-line paragraph. It follows the list post structure. Looks a lot better. And you can see that these are just more higher quality tweets. So it's not a matter of Kai necessarily inside of Cortex. It's just a matter of the model, right? So once we have the Claude and ChatGPT models inside of Cortex, it becomes a lot more powerful for writing specifically and getting good ideas. Now, inside of Cortex, another thing you could do is add the sources. So you could type use at, or how to write tweets is already there. But let's just say use how to write tweets as a prompt to write 15 tweets with ideas from, and then we could just say at writing to be understood, which is a book, and it will pull from the highlights inside of that. And now this may not come out the best just because it's through Gemini. Even though it doesn't look too bad, it messed up the formatting a bit. That's just the thing with Gemini and LLMs, is that Claude tends to do it a lot better. But you can read through some of these and see that they're not bad. And yeah, so Claude will be better. So I recommend just giving it a topic for now, and then once Claude and other models are in, it becomes a lot better for writing specifically. But in that case, you can just go to Claude if you want to actually use this for writing posts and writing a lot of them. So that is it for this video specifically. There are other ways to use AI to generate more ideas, but I'll let you think of novel ways to do that. So thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. See you in the next module. Let's get started with threads. Threads are very important, especially for early growth, but there's also a few caveats that come along with that, where if you write threads and you put a lot of time into writing threads, you should also put a lot of time into getting those threads seen. So 2 weeks ago now, we talked about how to control your growth on social media along with the brand clarity aspect of things. So that's going to come more and more into play here, where if you have less than, let's say, 1,000 followers, not too many people are going to see your writing. So a lot of your effort needs to be spent on getting people to see your writing. So go back and review that section of everything, how to control your growth on social media, so that you can use those strategies to actually get eyes on your threads so that you can grow a lot faster. So breaking this down, threads are how you build a following fast, with the asterisk there because of what I just said in terms of needing eyes to grow. Second is you deliver more value on social media, right? On top of funnel stuff. When I say top of funnel, I mean very short form, like Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok. They're very quick, punchy, cheap dopamine friendly posts. And by posting a thread and getting people to read that, you separate yourself as a person of value, and people trust you more because of that, and they want to learn more because of that. So that's a very important point. Third is that you build authority and trust with your readers. That's obvious. You're just providing more value. Fourth, you can funnel people to your newsletter products and other platforms a lot better because you're holding attention and guiding attention better. If you write a post and then you plug your newsletter under it, that's good, and some people will get on it, but they're not necessarily reading for that reason to discover more about what it is you have to offer. When people see a thread and they click on it and they read and they scroll and they scroll and they're met with a newsletter that they can join or a product they can buy or something else they can do, they're much more likely to do it just because the prior value was there and their mind is in that state where they want to learn more. So getting into things. Threads are not just threads. Threads are medium form content in my eyes. So for that, just understand this. We're going to be focusing on Twitter threads, but those can also become LinkedIn posts. You can straight up just copy and paste, but be mindful of the platform, right? So be mindful of how LinkedIn cuts off your writing. Your hook should be crafted for above the fold. Above the fold means pretty much what's shown in the post before it says like read more, where you have to click to expand the post. You want the hook to show before that. Next thing is obviously Twitter threads. What I like to do is keep it around 10 tweets total because that allows for it to be repurposed maximally. Because you can see here with Instagram carousels and captions, 10 tweets can equal 10 slides, and Instagram only allows you to have 10 slides in a carousel. With YouTube videos, 10 tweets in a thread and using that as a script, and if you add a bit of your own thoughts in between the posts, that usually rounds out to a 5 to 10 minute video if you're not just burning through the entire thread. If you're taking your time, you add on some thoughts of your own just off the cusp in the video, that can equal 5 to 10 minutes. So your threads, whether or not you repurpose them from the start, can always be turned into LinkedIn posts, Instagram carousels, YouTube videos, and in terms of a newsletter, if you want to expand on it for a newsletter, that's a great option as well. So, of course, we'll learn how all of these tie in together again, but if you want to understand how they all tie in, go review week 1, where we talk about the 3-point content ecosystem. So on the right here, we have kind of a funnel. So what happens is you hook them in, so you open a curiosity loop to capture their attention. That's all the hook is for. You're not worried about giving away any of the value that people are, or that you want to give away, right? When you write a thread, people that aren't marketers don't usually think in terms of psychological principles. They're not thinking of things that will capture attention. They just blow everything at the hook, and people don't care about it because they didn't write a hook. They just gave away stuff at the beginning. It doesn't make people want to go into it. You don't start reading a story by like hearing what the climax was. It's a build up to the climax, or it's a potential problem, or it's just the setting of the story that creates curiosity and interest to continue reading. So you have to keep that in mind. And it's really hard to solidify this information without actually experiencing it yourself. So my advice is to write threads with what you learn, but also come back to this so you can improve the threads. After that, you have value. So once you hook them in, then you give the perspectives, the actionable advice, the lessons to hold attention. And towards the bottom, you wrap it up with a CTA to give them more to do, whether it's buy a product or read your newsletter or just something else they can do since you already have their attention and you can deliver more value to them. Now, We're going to go over a bunch of different types of threads in the next video, but for now, just certain types of threads you can start ideating in your head is your story focused on one lesson or just your story in general. What's the transformation you made? What are you here to offer? Second is just list tweets that you've previously written. What I mean by that is with a list tweet, what I mean by list tweet is think how to become confident, and then you list steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you tie it all together. Those 5 bullet points of that tweet can all be turned into points of a thread and expanded on. So any list tweets that you've written where it's like how to do this, or reasons you should do this, or top 7 ways to do this, top 10 skills to learn, those can all turn into threads, especially if the tweets did well, and I would recommend doing that. Now, the third is just a foundational introduction to your main interest to establish authority. What this means is you're doing a breakdown of the basics and what people need to know to get started in whatever interest it is that you have. What are the basics of psychology? What are the basics of influence? What are the basics of persuasion, content, business, anything like that? Next is just list goal stories, action steps, or lessons, listing those things out, right? That kind of just makes sense. That's what a lot of threads are. Another thing to keep in mind here is that any topic can be structured as a list, and people love the organization of lists because it keeps people engaged. So that's one thing, is if you're having trouble ideating really anything from a thread to a newsletter, think of the topic you want to write about and then just try to break it down into a list. So my story, okay, what are the key points of that story? There's where I was, there's the turning point, there's the skills I had to learn, the mindset that I had to adopt, where I am now, how it benefits my life. That's like 5 or 6 key points that I can turn into posts within the thread. So anything can be turned into a list, and by turning things into a list, it just makes it so much easier to write. It's just called an outline, right? This will become more powerful when we talk about newsletters next week. Now, the anatomy of a hook. This is where things really start to tie together. I hope things click for you here, where a hook is pretty much just composed of the 2 to 3 most powerful attention-grabbing points of whatever it is that you're writing about. So you have big idea, common goals, problems, benefits, objections, research, so anecdotes, statistics or quotes, personal experiences or examples, metaphors and concepts, systems and processes. Can you see how almost every single core text element is listed out here? So if you ever have trouble coming up with a hook, review all of the writing firepower you have and combine the best versions of it into a hook. Right? And if you write the actual thread before writing the hook, this can become a lot easier, but that also presents a trap where you may write about a topic that is very difficult to create a hook around to get people interested. So most of the time, it's better to create the hook first by studying a high-performing topic like we learned about last week when writing a tweet, and then writing a thread about that. But it's just an option that you can pull the most interesting parts from your thread to create the hook. Now, a few things that we're looking for in terms of a hook is relevance and reach, because you want the hook to be broad enough and relatable enough to be reposted by the average individual because you're on social media. This isn't paid ads where you're getting in front of a hyper-targeted person. You're getting spread to random beginner-level people. And if your hook is too high level or too advanced, people, one, aren't going to care about it, they're not going to relate to it, and they're not going to repost it, so you're not going to get eyes on it, you're not going to grow, and the value in your thread goes unseen. The more advanced stuff should be saved for your products, for your lead magnets, for other things where your audience is kind of filtering themselves to go into, okay? Next is pain versus benefit and the transformation in general. So in the hook, are you implying a transformation? Did you hit on a pain point? Did you hit on a benefit? Are either of those relatable? Do they make sense? We'll find more about these. Next thing is perceived effort. So usually, hopefully with all writing, you're helping people achieve a goal, or the writing is just goal oriented, right? You have a goal for your writing. How else are you gonna write? You need a goal, you need a problem to solve, you need action steps or key points in between. So in terms of achieving that goal, you are trying to position your argument in a way that is low in terms of perceived effort. So it makes it perceived as if they can get the benefit quick. Now, there's a few ways to do this. I'm not saying that you're promising they get crazy results or achieve crazy goals like making $1 million in 30 days, but you can do something like Noah Kagan if you get creative and you can say something like how to build $1 million business in a weekend. Like he has the book now, $1 Million Weekend, where he's not saying that you're going to make $1 million in a weekend. You're going to set the foundations of $1 million business in a weekend. So he's maintaining that same impact. He's just presenting it in a different way that lowers the perception of effort so that more people take action and get more results. Let's go over a few hook examples to start to tie all this together. So Dickey's hook over on the right here says the most creative company of the last 30 years, Pixar. Back in 2011, Pixar storyboard artist Emma Coates shared their 22 rules for storytelling. And the rules are a must-read for writers, entrepreneurs, and anyone who wants to tell captivating stories. Here's the breakdown. So what we have here is a big idea, the most creative company in the last 30 years, Pixar. That's a big idea. Next is a well-known name, Pixar, so that has authority. Context and topic, so it makes sense, like, okay, why are you telling me this? This is why. 22 rules of storytelling. Why it matters to you. So the transformation, it's for writers, entrepreneurs, and anyone who wants to tell captivating stories. That's the desired outcome. That's the benefit, right? That's also the transformation. Here, he's doing a target call out, which if you remember from last week, that's a part of the 10 commandments of engagement. Target call out, that's how you capture attention to an extent. Then you lead into the thread. So what makes them click? You've generated curiosity and attention and desire, and they want to read more. So you make it explicit that this is a thread. A lot of people, when they first start writing threads, they don't do anything that show that it's a thread, right? They just end with a period, and it's like, okay, cool, thanks. Like, just thanks for this information. There's nothing showing that it's a thread. So you need a colon, or you need to straight up say it's a thread, or anything related to that. And then images are optional. I would mainly use them if they actually capture attention. Use your discernment there, because a lot of people just throw an image on as if they're supposed to, when that's just not the case. If the image isn't inherently attention grabbing, if it's just a stock image, don't include it. Include one that actually captures attention. Otherwise, you're going to hurt your engagement, and you're better off just having the writing instead of the image. Now, here is another one where I came up with these threads by having a general idea for what I wanted to write about, like how to reset your life, and then turning this into a hook. The way that I wrote it is just adding key points and then coming up with a decent hook, right? So this one is how to do a hard reset on your life in 30 minutes. You can see here that I have a process, which is a cortex element. I have somewhat of a big idea or a concept, hard reset on your life, and then a time frame to reduce the friction. So time frames and just numbers in general help capture attention. They help reduce the perceived effort it takes to actually get the result. So I'm saying here how to do a hard reset on your life in 30 minutes. So it takes 30 minutes to do the hard reset on your life. Here, I also have a process. So how to create a life of meaning, money, and impact. These are also benefits or goals. And then as fast as humanly possible, that's me reducing the perceived effort. And then I have an image here, which I believe is pretty attention grabbing. And here I say thread. So these were actually, this one was one of the first, or not one of the first, a very early thread of mine that did really well. And it actually formed the foundation for my book, for my planner, for many of the newsletters that I wrote, because it was a tested, validated idea that did extremely well. This one turned into a YouTube video and also did pretty well. And I've used this process, the hard reset, quite a few times in my newsletters. Now, for another way to come up with hooks is to just turn your best performing posts into hooks. So this post right here, nobody's coming to save you, not your friends, not your family, not the government. They can offer advice and tools, but at the end of the day, blah, blah, blah. This was a tweet on its own, and it did very well. It got like 5,000 likes. All I did here was just say a thread of advice you need to hear, 20,000 likes, right? The psychology behind this is I'm not really paying too close of attention to creating my own hook. I'm just using a tweet that already did extremely well. So when people read it, it's already impactful, right? It's already attention grabbing. It's already impactful. I don't need to double check those things. Then I just tack on something saying this is a thread with a desired outcome or goal, or just like sparking curiosity here. Now, another example is just turning your post into a hook as well. So 4 hours of focused work brings more fulfillment, free time, and progress than 8 hours of distracted work. You can see here in the post that I'm very heavy on using benefits and pain points just in my writing in general, because I can say 4 hours of focused work is better than 8 hours of distracted work like I did here, but I don't think that would get as much engagement as me including the benefits here to imply a transformation. But up here, I don't include those things because I include this, my 10 commandments of the 4-hour workday. So literally, well, this is one concept, 10 commandments of the 4-hour workday, attention grabbing image. So I have more firepower here that allowed it to do well. But here, I didn't have those things, so I included the benefits. So this post turned into this thread, and it did relatively well. Now, you understand hooks to an extent. You get very good at writing hooks by studying them and straight up using threads that you find, or tweets, or high-performing posts in general, as guidelines as you are writing. You literally have them open so you can reference them to emulate them. Now, in terms of the body posts, you want to break down your topic or your hook into key points. Think about what key points fulfill on the hook or topic. So for something like this, it's pretty easy. My 10 commandments. For this one, a thread of advice, it's just pieces of advice or lessons or actionable steps. For this, it's steps on how to reset your life. For this, it's just illustrating all of these pillars of creating a life of meaning, money, and impact. So sometimes you can go straight into the key points, but other times you want to start by illustrating the main problem or setting the scene. So if you're just going straight into, let's say, the 10 commandments of focused work, go straight into the 10 commandments. If you're talking about your story, obviously you kind of need to start with the problem or you need to set the scene. So use your discretion there. But most of the time when you're just doing a list of advice or lessons or actionable steps, then I would just go straight into them in a thread. One important point here is to attempt to make each post in the thread make sense on its own. Now, questions that I get quite a bit. When Twitter released the feature to write long posts rather than threads, so you can like write more than 280 characters in a post, people would always ask like, oh, what's better, long posts or threads? I still believe threads are better because this is a body post of a thread. And since I wrote it in a way that's shareable, people are sharing this as well, right? So my thread, as they're reading it and as people repost parts within the thread, I'm getting a lot more reach on the thread itself. For the long posts, people aren't able to do that until they reach the very bottom where they like and they retweet. So you'll probably get less engagement. Second, in an argument against long posts is that it's just easier to read and structure a thread, right? They're much more readable. So one thing to take into account is to just structure it like you would a tweet as much as you can. Don't get too caught up in this, but see how I wrote this one. Take note of how you feel. Pull out a notebook and write down exactly what you're doing on a daily basis, how you feel morning, afternoon, and night. Take 10 minutes and get specific. This is important for identifying unconscious parasites, time and energy suckers. I could just post this without the one as a tweet, and it would probably do pretty well. So one thing to keep in mind there. Now, at the end of the thread, there are a few things that you can do. The first thing is just the one that you should probably do the most. After you write all of the body posts within your thread, you want to do a call to action. The most simple one you can do is like this, where I say, if any of these gave you inspiration to change a certain part of your life, consider sharing it with others by reposting the first post of the thread. And then you link the very first post of the thread. So you can see this is the thread that we talked about earlier, so people can click on this and retweet it, right? So you're asking people to share. Some people also ask for you to follow them and things like that. Now, another thing, if you have a product or service, this is where you can include them, right? If you write a very long thread, then you can include something like this. You can also add another link or ask for a retweet, right? Makes a lot of sense. I would recommend not including a call to action on these things. Now, to just get started with writing threads, what I would recommend is the PASK framework. So many of you know PAS, Problem, Amplify, Solution. That's a great framework for writing literally anything, but I added on key points. So Problem, Amplify, Solution are going to be how you write the hook. So you pick a topic, you write the problem. On the first line, you state a short and punchy problem related to the high-performing topic. Then you amplify it. So on the second line, amplify the problem by implying where their life will be or end up if it goes unsolved. And then the solution, so you lead into the desired outcome with low perceived friction. Then you write out the key points and write them as body posts within the thread. Right? That's how you write it. So an example of someone who asked me for feedback on one of their threads is this is what they wrote as the hook. Said lasting satisfaction in life is easier to attain than you think. Here's how. I personally didn't think it was very complete and it could be a lot more impactful. So an after is I use one authority of Henry David Thoreau and I start with a short problem. Most men lead lives of quiet desperation. Give credit to him. Then I amplify it with people put off their dreams for 40 years, but by then it's too late. And then the solution or hinting at it is a thread on lasting satisfaction. It's easier than you think. Boom. And then listing out the key points, I could talk about just how to, like the general problem, like how most people put off their dreams, how to achieve satisfaction, etc., etc. So all of this will start to come together, especially in the next video when we break down specific threads, but that's it for now. That's a general overview of thread writing. Let's go over a few threads that you can try writing or emulating or just using as inspiration for your own. Now, you can go ahead and research as many threads as you'd like. That's perfectly fine. I recommend doing that. These are just examples. There is no one-size-fits-all thread that is absolutely going to go viral. You increase your chances of luck and virality just by staying consistent and consistently getting better at writing and writing a thread every week. If you only write one thread, I don't want to hear you complaining in 2 months how you haven't gone viral or gained any followers, right? So for specific types of threads, first off, I would just recommend paying attention to any thread that you see on social media, capturing that thread, a link to it, saving it somewhere safe in Cortex, wherever you want to save it, just so you can study it and finish it. So this type of thread is kind of like a breakdown thread, right? So the hook is if you don't understand acquisitions, you'll never truly be wealthy. That's a big idea, and it's a breakdown of what acquisitions are and why you need to understand them. So here's what you need to know about how the rich buy businesses. Now, understand that Cody here, like a lot of people, is probably targeting founders, right? Or people that own a business. But notice how she's framing this more broad and for everyone, but she's still attracting the founders. This is insanely powerful because people are like, okay, well, I have a very niche interest. How do I write about it when no one's going to be interested in it or no founders follow me or my target doesn't follow me? This is how you you educate everyone on the importance of what you're talking about. Importance, importance, importance. I have probably said that word 800 times since creating this curriculum. You may or may not have noticed that, but importance, illustrating the importance of something to your audience, is how you broaden up your message. So if you don't understand acquisitions, you'll never truly be wealthy, right? The reason she's saying this is because it applies to everyone. This is a pain point or benefit that everyone has. It's not, if you don't understand acquisitions, your business will never succeed, because if she said that, she is alienating anyone who does not own a business, right? So a simple change of words still allows her to target business owners. It allows her to get spread to more people, so more business owners can see it, so on and so forth. So it's more powerful this way no matter what, because she's being spread to more people and more of her target audience are able to see it, okay? Do what you will with that information. Now, just going through how this thread is structured, it's pretty simple. She's just writing the thread. So think of any three rich people. They likely have one thing in common. They own companies. The average person doesn't understand this about wealth. I love how Sam Altman put it. So she's already starting off with a big idea using a quote. She's giving more context as to what ownership is. She's educating from the very beginning, right? So for a breakdown thread or a very educational thread, you kind of have to assume that your audience knows nothing. That's just a good thing to do either way. And then from there, okay, what do people need to know in order to reach the aha moment of, okay, I need to learn acquisitions, or acquisitions are important. So a lot of context, path one, going through. I'm sure she outlined this thread beforehand. This is a more kind of complex thread, but it's worth studying. Now, going into a different one, the tools thread, or like the what I use thread. So a lot of these tend to do very well. I've seen Justin Welsh write these. I've seen Matt Gray write these. In short, he said running a $1.5 million year design agency by yourself is no easy task. I couldn't do it without the right tools. So he has a hook using authority and a bit of social proof and a desirable benefit or goal. And then just no more gatekeeping. Here are the tools that allow me to do this. It probably would have done better if he had a colon right here, or he said something like thread. And from there, he just goes into tagging the tools that he uses or listing them off, and then saying what their use case is. Trello, use case. Airtable, use case, image. All of these, use case, image. Eagle, use case, image. Same thing. This is actually really good for affiliate marketing as well. Like if you have links to these things that you earn a commission off of, you can include them here and just create a giant list. And if it goes viral, you can make a decent amount of money just from affiliate marketing. Now, another one that I would argue most people can do is just the unique method or mechanism or process thread, right? I've written one of these on the Hard Life Reset, the one person business, just whatever concept or process you write down inside of Cortex, you can turn it into a thread and just break down what exactly that is and steps that you can take. So for this one, he's explaining a process that the Navy SEALs came up with. So he has how the Navy SEALs fall asleep within 2 minutes. This is reducing the perceived effort it takes to actually get the result. So people are like, wow, they can fall asleep within 2 minutes. That's a pain point of mine. Notice how he's implying the pain point without even saying the pain point, and then so on and so forth. More context, no pills, no cold shower, no blue light blocking glasses, 478 method backed by science. He gives some initial context as to what it is. So he has a what, he has a how. More context on why tongue position matters, why. So he has what, how, additional how, because tongue position matters, why. So what, how, why. Going deeper, just more different points on it, so on and so forth. Makes a good amount. He has a plug at the end. Good to go. Now, Eddie Chang, this is called leveraging authority. So right here, this is Elon Musk. He runs $5 billion companies, has 11 kids, and still has time to ship posts on Twitter. I've seen a lot of these. It's just talking about a famous person and some of their best tips around a specific topic. So I've seen these everywhere. I've seen Elon Musk, I've seen Alan Watts, I've seen Andrew Huberman, Naval Ravikant, Joe Rogan. Usually when you pick a more popular person, these tend to do very well because more people know them. So it's usually, this is Elon Musk. Okay, I know him, but if I didn't know them, it's like, okay, who is this? Authority, like why he matters. So it's person, why he matters. I had to know how he manages his time, kind of just lead in. Here's what I found. And then he goes into just, okay, what is time? Pretty interesting. Has a clip from Jordan Peterson. Gaining control over time. He's pretty much pulling clips from different areas that he's studied over time. And as you can see, he's broken things down into key points, right? So you can tell that he wanted to write about how Elon Musk manages his time. He probably studied how Elon Musk does that, and then he broke his talking points down into key points. So chart your course, cluster, don't scatter, et cetera, et cetera. You can see that threads follow a fairly similar structure with line breaks, how they're written, everything that we've already gone over. I just want to show you what these are. Now, this one is extremely long. I previously said to only write up to 10 tweets in a thread so it can fit in an Instagram carousel, but in my eyes, threads go more viral the more posts you have in them, the longer they are, and the more clips you have them. The longer you hold attention within the thread, the more viral they go. So if you don't have any plans to cross-post to Instagram or just want to put a lot of effort into threads and get the rewards from that, go long in your threads. Now, another one from Eddie, a kind of style of thread that you can take, is finding something on YouTube or the internet that already has a lot of attention, right? So I guarantee this guy, or Eddie, saw a video of this guy on YouTube, and it was a viral video, and it was about a millionaire who went homeless. So he watched the video, he took notes on it, and he wrote a thread on it, and just what happened. And he included clips from the video, pretty much a heavy curation thread. So he just broke down exactly what they're doing or what he did in the video. It's that simple. Like if you can just turn any viral YouTube video you watch into a thread, it doesn't have to be something like this. It can literally be like how to be more confident. If that got a lot of views, steal their hook, credit their work, so you can quote unquote steal it because you're giving them credit for it. Then just write the thread along with the points in the YouTube video, right? It's that simple. Just make sure to link the YouTube video and potentially use clips from it. Works really well. Now, Brian, he was a client of ours in Cortex University, and this was his second most viral thread that he wrote that gained him a few followers. So since Brian has been following our methods inside of Cortex, he's gone from, I believe it was 300 followers to now 9,000 followers, and that's in about 7 or 8 months, which is a very large trajectory, right? He actually recently launched his course. He made almost 5 figures in the launch at 9,000 followers, so doing pretty well. But here, what he's doing is breaking down just a method or a way to overcome a problem or pain point, right? So he talks a lot about anxiety, and almost every one of his most popular threads are methods, tips, lessons, processes to overcome anxiety. You can see here he actually uses the 478 method that the other guy uses on how Navy SEALs fall asleep. So that's one thing, is problem, authority, number one method. So in these types of threads that do really well, It's pretty much choose a very big pain point and then teach people how to solve it with potentially multiple key points or talking points. Now, another one is a complete breakdown of something that people are aware exists but don't know the actual power of. So one example is aspirin. A lot of the esoteric health people that study repeat know about this, but I've seen this in the health space quite a bit, usually around foods or certain protocols or things like that that people just don't know are super important, like how beef liver started to take off. I'm sure you know by now that beef liver is extremely nutrient dense. I was kind of around when that trend first started on Twitter, and I noticed the threads popping off around it. So beef liver did really well. Once you find something that you feel like people don't know too much about, you can just bring it in, talk about the importance of it, include studies. These do really well because they're really well researched. Another example is baking soda. Pretty cool. So the more deep you are into your interest, the more esoteric your knowledge starts to become, and the more you have to share around that, and you can share it with your followers. Now, a few other people, what's it called? Tweet Hunter X is down because I'm recording this at the time of Twitter actually switching to x.com. So as you know, in previous modules, I talked about Tweet Hunter X being here in the sidebar. So once that's back up, which it will be, I looked at their app, whatever. Once it's up, you can go here, look in the sidebar. I would recommend looking at Matt Gray's top posts because he has a lot of good thread ideas in TwemX. And then Kieran Drew's top posts and looking for his story thread and other things like that. You can also go look at my threads. You can look at anyone's threads. I would just recommend looking for a high-performing thread, taking it, and forcing yourself to write one based on that type, right? So if this guy is doing the right tools for his design agency, you can do the right tools for your content creation. If this guy's doing how a millionaire went homeless and you're a fitness guy, you can talk about how a person on YouTube went through a transformation and lost 50 pounds, right, from a YouTube transformation. If Brian's breaking down anxiety, you can break down overwhelm. You can break down procrastination. You can break down really any problem or negative emotion. Simple as that. So take a thread, rewrite it based on the interest that you have, do good things, go viral, gain a lot of followers, good stuff. That is it for this video. All right, my friends, we are in week 3, and we are going to start writing threads. So you have been through the threads module at the time that you are watching this, and this is the template that you're going to use. So you go to your Writers Bootcamp workspace by clicking this, finding whichever one corresponds to the cohort that you are in, and then you can right-click this, week 3, copy to workspace, copy to your personal workspace. Now, what is inside of here? First, we have the thread template. So I feel like these are pretty straightforward, right? You have the topic, so you can choose one high-performing topic, and we learned how to find out what we want to write about, so you can search for those on Twitter with an extension like TwemX or SuperX to find people's top-performing tweets, and then you can turn those into the topic or the hook of the thread, or just use it as a starting point. You can go to YouTube and filter an account's video by most popular and see which ones stand out that you would want to write about. And then here you can add reference notes or previous threads or previous newsletters or previous content, whatever it may be here, so you can open them quickly. Then you just have a place to bring down ideas and topics, and then you can add research. So with everything that we write, from threads to newsletters, what I recommend doing is exactly what we said. So when it comes time to write a thread or newsletter, you're going to research tweets from your favorite accounts. You're going to research your own best tweets. You're going to research on Google and maybe copy in specific concepts or ideas or quotes that help you write the thread. You're going to search YouTube videos based on that topic and get a lot of talking points from it. If you already know exactly what you want to write, then you don't need to go through that step, but it's very helpful because if you ever hit writer's block, you have to understand that you can just research, right? You can just search for something that allows you to keep writing. Then we have the outline. So you brainstorm your key points, and you can use elements to frame each one if you want. So you understand that there's like problem elements, benefits, the elements that we talk about in the free second brain course of Cortex. And at the very beginning of this bootcamp, there were the like problem, benefit, goal, example, concept, process, etc. Those can each be a tweet within your thread, right? So you could just write the thread inside of Cortex as that. So outline, and then as you are writing or after you're writing, you can go through all of these and make sure and read through your thread and make sure that you are holding engagement throughout it. And then here, the reason I have the hook at the bottom is because after looking through everything, what you're trying to do is you're trying to find your most engaging problems, desired outcomes, processes, the things that are going to catch attention. So I like doing the hook at the bottom, but if you come up with the hook first, that also works. But sometimes after you write everything out and outline it, then you have more firepower to put into the hook of the thread, right? And then after you duplicate this, create a new document to actually write the thread, and you can connect it to it if you want. So we have that. The next thing are just example threads. So we went through quite a few in the actual modules of this section, but you can see here that I just have a few that you can go into and study, and you can open this alongside your writing if you want to. You can connect it to different things if you'd like, but these are all here, and then a few accounts that have written very good threads. And what you would do here is just look at their top posts. So I can click this, and then I have what's called SuperX installed. Hopefully it loads. There we go. So you can see 143,000 likes on this thread. This is a thread. This is a thread. A lot of people's top tweets are in fact threads. So this is just a way if you want to go and look through a few good threads. I linked accounts here that you can look through. Now going through the Cortex example is we have the topic, which I put how to write high-performing posts. We have connections, Cortex thread example. Oh, so that's the actual thread itself if I want to write it on the side here next to my writing. We'll go over that soon. And then I can link other notes and content here. So if I've written previous threads or I have notes on the topic that I'm trying to write about, then I would link those here. You can also link highlights or other things of that nature. Then I brain dumped a few ideas. I would encourage you to like look through these and reverse engineer how I did this. And then for research, I have my example threads, which we just went over. If I want to open those in a pane and look at them, I can. And then the Writers Bootcamp curriculum. So since I'm writing a thread on how to write top-performing posts, I would personally research the Writers Bootcamp curriculum because that's where all of my writing advice is. Now with the outline, with a thread, the way that I like to think about it is you really just list off like the points, right? So how do you write high-performing posts? What's the outline? Okay, you need confidence and conviction. You need readability, aesthetics of the post, conviction. Well, we already had that. More lists, so writing bullet point lists because it holds attention. This kind of comes seamlessly if you know what you're talking about or if you've researched what you're talking about in the thread itself. So you outline it, and then I broke down my hook with elements, so problem, goal, benefit. Most people suck at writing posts. They never grow, never monetize, and say the game is rigged. 10x are following. I was just brainstorming here. But if we look at the actual thread, we can see that I structured it in a very specific way with elements. So I have the thread here like this. The reason I put it like this is because with an element, I can write all of these threads in one document. I don't have to create a new document for every thread that I write. I'll show you what I mean by that in a bit. But then I just kind of split them up. So the hook, I wrote it there, and then then key points for each one. That's how I wrote the thread. And the reason I do this inside of Elements is because I can highlight this and immediately see 220 characters. I don't want to pass the 280 character limit on Twitter. So I can just click in here and push Command or Control A to select and see that really fast. So when I do copy this over to Twitter or whatever content scheduler you use, you'll notice that. So I have all of this here, call to action. Again, I would recommend that you look through this yourself. Now I want to show you one other thing that I've been doing in my own personal workspace. So here, as I showed you last week, I have the short posts and then I have like a social content folder. So this is how I structure things. I have a social content folder, then YouTube videos, threads, long posts, short posts. In the threads folder, I have a few things, but I have thread ideas where I can just brainstorm ideas if I want to. I have my own personal thread writing guidelines, which is super short. And the reason those come in handy is because I write my threads inside of something called thread drafts. So inside of here, I have a resources element where I can open up my thread ideas, I can open up my thread writing guidelines, I can open up the pyramid principle, which is just tips. I have my idea museum here, 10 commandments of impactful writing. If you took notes on that section, in the post writing module, if you have that here, you can open it and just reference it. I have a master swipe file, so I can look through posts, I can look through post styles, if you remember those. So all of this stuff, I can just reference as I'm writing the thread. And then I put the thread like this, where I have the thread element, and I can just continue writing these here by creating a thread element, and then something like a hook, write the hook, and then I can go something like post, and just start writing the posts one after another, and that's how I write the threads. Now, the reason I structure it this way inside of my Cortex, like this, with threads, long posts, short posts, social content, is because whenever I have an idea for a thread, what I can do is just open up Capture, and then I can type @threads, because that's the name of the document, and I can capture all of my ideas here. And I can even start writing the thread on a walk if I want to, because then I can just copy each of these into where I'm writing it and then flesh it out from there. So a few ideas for you. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you start writing threads. Don't hesitate to share them with us. That is it for this video and this module. All right, we are on to threads with Kai. So inside of the Bootcamp Kai prompts, you will see this thread writing prompt that you can uncollapse here. And this one's pretty cool. I've been testing it a few times. I tried to make it better. And honestly, this is probably as good as it can get for now for this specific type of thread, right? If you want to try to create different prompts for different types of threads, then I would encourage you to do that. But for a very basic thread that just generates some good ideas, I think this does pretty dang well for a prompt. So first, read through this. So you send the prompt as it is, respond with your answers, review the outline, generate the draft. I try to bake into the prompt steps that make it very straightforward. So if you want to read through it to see how it works, you'll notice a lot of the things that you learned this week in the thread modules. So what we're going to do here is I'll just walk you through a very simple use case. And you can experiment with this as much as you'd like. But we're going to copy the whole thing. We're going to paste it, have Kai enabled, paste it here, send. I'm going to just unhighlight that. But the first thing it asks is, please respond with a combination of the following. So first is the target audience, and that's required. The second is the topic, which is optional, because this can also give you specific pains or desires and topics to choose from based on the target audience. So you don't even need the topic, but we're going to try it out with productivity. And then reference material if you'd like. I personally haven't tested it with this, so we'll try that in a second example just to see how it works, because one thing with this is once you start getting all of these things baked in, it starts to get kind of confused as a whole. So it may be better to have just AI in general rewrite the thread that it gives you in your own voice or exchange certain ideas. So we're just going to start with my target audience is 20-year-olds and my topic is productivity. Send that, and it will spit out a hook. So here's the outline. The hook: feeling lost and unproductive in your 20s. Time is flying by, but you're not hitting your goals. These 10 counterintuitive productivity hacks will change everything. That's not bad. I don't like the questions. So personal preference for me, I don't think questions are the best hooks. A lot of people will tell you to use questions. I just don't, from my testing and when I read specific hooks, questions don't really hit that hard. So what the first thing we're going to do is just remove or change the, how am I going to say this? Change the first two sentences in the hook to something that isn't a question. We'll rewrite it. Your 20s are the most important decade of your life. That's so much better than a question. Wasted being unproductive, and you'll never forgive yourself. These 10 counterintuitive productivity hacks will change everything. That's a pretty freaking good hook, man, from an AI prompt, and not even with Claude. If you want to use Claude to test out this prompt, it works. It writes better. Claude is just better in general. We'll have that in here soon. So when you do have access to that, try writing with Claude. Key points: embrace boredom, say no ruthlessly, schedule everything, single tasking is king, optimize your environment. I could put in here, like, replace point 5, number 5, with another thing, or something like that, but you can go through here and you just talk to the AI to refine the outline if you'd like. But then would you like to proceed with the full draft? Yes, proceed. And then it'll write it out. Boom, boom, boom. And we have a full thread. So here's the full draft. Your 20s are the most important decade of your life. Wasted being, we read that. Sometimes the formatting still doesn't listen, right? So if you want to copy these over in add line breaks, you can. Sometimes it spits it out perfectly. Sometimes it doesn't. We're going to work on that and refine it if we can, but hook is good. Embrace boredom. Boredom isn't the enemy. It's a superpower. It forces your mind to wander, make connections, and generate ideas. Ditch constant stimulation, and let boredom fuel your creativity. See, this is written pretty good. Like, there isn't much that I would change here, and it's kind of already written in a short and punchy voice like I would write. Most threads are written in the same way. So we'll try something out, but the thing with this is in week 5, we're going to learn how to repurpose, and I can already see this doing extremely well as just an Instagram carousel, right? This is slide number 1, this is slide number 2, slide number 3, and these are pretty good. Like, just for productivity, it's good. Okay, let's try rewrite the thread with my voice, style, and tone. Use this as a reference. @newsletter, how to learn 10x faster. It's weird that it changed the formatting. Let's see how it changed. Your 20s, prime time or wasted potential? Don't be a statistic. Okay, that's kind of meh. So you see what I mean. Schedule everything like a psycho. If it's not in your calendar, it's not happening. Time blocking equals productivity on steroids. Schedule every damn thing. Breaks. I mean, it's pretty to the point. You can have it rewrite it in like multiple different ways. I could probably say like rewrite this as Marcus Aurelius. Let's try that. Rewrite this as Marcus Aurelius. Your 20s a crucible. Forge virtue, lest you squander this precious flame. Okay, we're getting a bit weird there. But let's try one more thing. So we're going to re-copy paste this. And where is it? Right here. I'm actually having fun with this. So paste that here. And now it's going to ask for these three things. And I'm going to say my target audience is 20-year-olds. Let's see if this works. I wonder if it actually will, because this is a long prompt. Context can get lost. But I want you to pull the topic and thread ideas from @newsletter. How to learn 10 times faster. Let's see if that works. All right, got that. The hook is structured better. Okay, hook. Most people don't know how to learn and waste time on things they don't care about, but if you learn 10 times faster, you can achieve success that much faster. That's actually a line from this, so that's good. You can learn something in 2 weeks that takes everyone else 6 months. Here's the secrets to learning 10 times faster. Not bad at all. Key points: create a map, outline a project, start with what you know, start even if you don't feel like it, create a study regimen, write systematically, use the Feynman technique, embrace the protege effect. Wow, that's actually incredible. That's every single key point from that newsletter. Oh my God, what have we done? Okay, I'm gonna remove that connection just because I don't want to mess this up. Okay, proceed with writing the full thread draft. All right. And it's structured perfectly. Oh my gosh. I might post this to the Cortex page, see how it does. Here's the full draft. This will not be perfect. Okay. Most people don't know how to learn and waste time on things they don't care about, but if you learn to, okay, yeah. If you want to learn faster, build a map of your ideal life. Learning should be connected to your goals. Otherwise, you won't care. I can make that stronger. Align your learning with what you truly want. Solid. The best way to learn is build a real world project. Outline a project you're interested in building. This ensures you'll stay motivated. Only search for information when you need it. Learning comes from struggle, not memorization. Start with what you know. Start the project and let it expose gaps in your knowledge. It forces you to solve real problems. This is good. The thing with this is I tried writing my thread, or writing my newsletter as a thread, and I personally struggle to condense the ideas inside of the newsletter, so it ended up being really long. This is actually on my Instagram, and it ended up being 20 slides long because I couldn't condense it. So putting it into here in my own words with my own ideas, this condenses it very well. This is a very practical use case for AI. So learning comes from struggle, not memorization. Start even when you don't feel like it. Use the Zeigarnik effect. Break down the task into the simplest possible action. If you hate writing, write one sentence. Good. Something like this. Deeply understand a concept by explaining it in simple terms. Use the Feynman technique to truly learn something. If you can't explain it simply, you don't get it. So this doesn't really explain what the Feynman technique is. So this would be a place where maybe I exchange the sentence for something. Let's say this. Add in another post that explains what the Feynman technique is. How do you spell Feynman? Yeah. Let's try that. What is it? Okay. Teaching what you know exposes more knowledge gaps. Pick a concept, explain it to. So we could. I don't like questions. Okay, remove the questions. Instead, it's like teaching what you know exposes more knowledge gaps. Good. Then just say, this is what the Feynman technique is. Pick a concept, explain it to a 5-year-old, identify gaps in your explanation, simplify and repeat. Use the Feynman technique. That's solid. That's a really good thread. Wow. That is a better thread writer than 99% of people on Twitter. We did it. Okay. So have fun with that. Try out different things. Yeah, give it a whirl. Once Claude is in, it'll get even better. So that'll be exciting. But yes, go use it. I hope you enjoyed that. Bye. In this video, we are going to talk about the anatomy of a newsletter and certain frameworks that you can either start with or advance through. So to start, newsletters allow you to build depth and authority around your ideas for dedicated readers. They promote your products or services without selling on the timeline, and you can infinitely repurpose your ideas, like using a dozen or so newsletters as the starting point for book chapters. This is incredibly powerful, and very few people actually see the power of a newsletter beyond just sending it to a list of your subscribers. And when it's difficult to grow a list of subscribers, people often don't write newsletters because they just don't see the value in it that compounds over time. So let me go over this to illustrate the importance. First, if you aren't growing on social media, like consistently, month after month, with the strategies that we talked about, that's priority number one. A newsletter is not priority number one in that case. You have to be growing. You have to have that systemized. You have to have people on call that you can send your content to be shared. If you do not have that power, that is first priority. You need to find those people because you need to control your growth, not the algorithm. So after that's down, newsletter does become quite a bit of a priority because one, a lot of people just have shallow content. Like they don't know what to write. Their ideas are shallow. Their mind is shallow. Writing a newsletter and actually expanding on ideas allows you to not only learn to articulate yourself better, learn to see your ideas from multiple angles, but because of that, it allows you to turn those ideas into shorter form content that separates you and makes you unique on social media. So it's like, it's 80% practice, 20% in the game, you know, like all of your practice leads up to this point. Newsletters are practice for social media, not the other way around. Well, kind of the other way around too. But another thing, as we went over in week 1 with the 3-point content ecosystem, things are going to start to tie together now. In a newsletter, you're allowed to promote your products or services really anywhere within the newsletter as long as you can tie it in. So if I'm writing a newsletter and I'm going over a list of how to change your life and I talk about starting to write and I tie in my unique experience with writing on social media, and I say I teach this into a writer, right? Pretty easy, not super salesy, and that's how I make the majority of my sales on those things. And people like it because people love to buy, but they don't love to be sold to. Okay? Remember that. That's what you're doing in your newsletters. You're promoting those things, and then when you send your newsletter, people buy, but also with the 3-point content ecosystem, you're also promoting that issue of your newsletter backlogged as a blog post or just sharing a link so anyone can view it, not just your newsletter subscribers. So when they go to it and they read it, not only can they subscribe, so it's like a lead magnet because of the value that you give in your newsletter, but people can buy too. So it's like a lead magnet and a sales page in one. That's the power of a newsletter. Then you can have infinitely repurposable ideas. So I've seen a few reviews on my book, The Art of Focus, where it's like these are just rehashed chapters from his newsletters, when it's the other way around. I outlined the book, and then I wrote the newsletters accordingly to help flesh out my ideas for the chapter. Now, some people may be wondering, like, okay, well, if people know that it's from your newsletter, why are they going to care? Because my vision for the book is not just my audience. It's well beyond my audience, and I have a lot of ideas in my newsletter that why would I leave them out if they're good ideas? You know what I mean? Why would I leave my best ideas out of my book just because I wrote them in a newsletter? So everything ties together. Makes sense. I can't speak. But last year, start small. most newsletters are less than 1,000 words. So I'm kind of notorious for very long newsletters. I didn't start there. You don't have to start there. Please don't start there. Like, it'll be a mess. But then again, if you do start there, writing more will help you write better. So if you want to write 3,000, 5,000 words and it's just flowing out of you, I wouldn't stop that practice, right? Just keep doing it. Now, the base structure of a newsletter or any long form piece of content, this goes for, really any piece of content ever, honestly, even short form, but any newsletter, any YouTube video, any article, any podcast, if you want something to be persuasive, you should always think about this structure, right? Even a podcast, even if it's an interview and you're the host, you should be thinking of questions in a way that guides people through this structure, okay? This is kind of the hero's journey. This is a story. A podcast isn't just sitting down and talking between two people. The host is a good host if they can guide the listeners through a story by having their guest tell that story. The same is true with anything. So you start with a lead, which is usually a problem or pain point that the newsletter is going to help solve. So you prime people's minds, you frame their attention on a problem that makes them read to discover the value. The value of your newsletter cannot exist if there isn't first a problem that people are made aware of, right? A story isn't good if it just hits the climax. It's good because it starts at a low point, at the setting, at the introduction, it introduces a curiosity loop to be closed, then they reach the climax, and that's what makes it good. It's the polar dynamic between those two things, the problem and the goal that you're helping people achieve. So start with a problem, and you can use personal experiences, observations, or statistics to illustrate the problem. So as an example, 65% of labor jobs are going to be automated within the next 10 years. That's a pretty big problem, right? And when people see that, they're like, oh crap, that's crazy. What's the rest of this newsletter going to teach me, right? Observations. Most people go to school, get a job, retire at the age of 65, just wonder where the time went. People are like, oh crap, I'm going down that path too. How do I fix that? Personal experiences. I was depressed. Oh wow, I'm depressed too. Okay, how do I fix that? You get what I'm saying. Start with the problem. And sales pages too. Anything you write, start with the problem. Just condition yourself to start with the problem, and almost everything else will flow from there. Maybe not seamlessly, but it will flow from there. Next thing is the body. So the body helps people overcome the problem or pain point to achieve a transformation. You can use key points, action steps, relevant education, concepts, tips, ideas to help people understand, client stories, your own story. Just show them the path. How do they overcome it with the firepower available to you? Then the conclusion, so a short and sweet recap, challenge, or call to action to do something next. This could be to learn something, buy something, or download something. So you can ask people to buy your product, and you should in any long form piece of content. You don't promote in every single short form piece of content because the ratio just isn't there, right? You should promote maybe once every 4 social posts, and with every newsletter, you're writing a lot more. So it's justified. The ratio between value and promotion is always pretty high. So you should always promote in your newsletter somewhere. You can ask them to download a free product. You can ask them to buy something, or if you don't want to promote at all, just be like, here, go learn this next. Give them something else to do. It's like at the end of a YouTube video when there's the recommended video up next. Just think about that before your newsletter. What do they do next? So the first beginner framework is the PAS framework. We've kind of already gone over this. I don't think you really need help with this, but PAS for a newsletter is drawn out. It's the entire length of a newsletter rather than like 3 sentences in a tweet. So for the problem, that's the first section of the newsletter. Then amplify, that's also in the first section, I would say, or just somewhere in the newsletter. This isn't like a dogmatic 1 section, 2nd section, 3rd section. It can be, but this can also be the first sentence. This can be the next 4 sentences. This solution can be the next 2 entire sections, right? Play around with it, have fun with it, do what you need to do to get the point across. For problems, you can use a problem, statistic, personal experience, or big idea to capture attention relevant to the topic of choice. Makes sense. For amplify, you kind of want to illustrate where their life will end up if that problem goes unsolved. So you think deeply about their future, right? Where does their life end up? So if I use a statistic of 65% of labor jobs will be automated within the next 10 years, amplifying that is you went to school, you got a job, you have spent 20 years piling up responsibilities so that it's very difficult to have any time to work on your own thing to get out of that. That's pretty amplifying, but that's what causes the most behavior change. So what's interesting here is that I'm not telling you to fearmonger. I'm telling you to use people's negativity bias to make them aware of problems so they can actually get solved and so that you can actually add value to people's lives, because value lies in behavior change. If you aren't getting people results through making people aware of negative aspects of their life that they need to change, then you aren't valuable. Okay? If you're only focused on positive thinking only, that doesn't work. That's not reality. That's an illusion. I don't want to get all philosophical on you here, but we'll go on to the next thing. So solution is where you present action steps, key points, skills, lessons, tips, advice, etc. to help them solve the problem. So this usually comes with in a certain section with different subheadlines. So the section is like the one-person business, and then I give a brief context as to what that is, and then I have step 1, create your brand. Step 2, write content. Step 3, build a product. Step 4, promote yourself. Right? That's the solution to the problem of labor jobs being automated. A note is that all of these are easier to frame when you have a great topic and desired outcome for that topic. So if you are just going into this blindly and you don't have a good topic, like how to secure your future, that's kind of easy to write about. But if the topic is like how to, you'll get what I mean by this. It's hard to just come up with top of mind, but when you're writing stuff, you're definitely going to have a time where you're trying to write about a topic and none of this seems to fit. And that's usually just because of the topic. And I know you're going to want to write about it still and you're not going to want to trash it, but I encourage you to just get used to trashing things so that you can start fresh and iterate fast. So an example for this is problem. Most people are held captive by cheap dopamine. They can't focus for more than 10 minutes on building their dreams. That hits for a lot of people. I can go deeper into it in this first section. You get trapped in a cycle of wasting your mental energy, feeling too tired to work, and not being able to focus at work. If you can't focus on your dreams, you will be stuck building someone else's. The solution is step 1, creating a routine. Step 2, setting new goals. Step 3, removing distractions. And step 4, working in time blocks with certain priorities. This would be the last section of the newsletter, and I would expand on each of these. Makes sense. A note is that as you write these out, you can expand on each idea using Cortex elements to expand each section. So in the problem, in Amplify, if I want to treat this as the lead, where I write one section on this, these 2 paragraphs really aren't enough, but I can use Cortex elements to, okay, this is the problem, this is also the problem. I can write down an example, I can give a concept, I can give a short process about what we're going to go over, I can give a goal, I can give a benefit. And if you have any other elements that you like to use, like a statistic or a quote or a metaphor, any that you've created on your own, you can use those as well. Now the PCP framework, I came up with this based on Cortex elements. This is a newsletter framework, not a drug. And this is intermediate, I would say, because it takes more creativity, it takes more connecting ideas. So what you start out with here is a personal experience to illustrate the problems that you're going to solve. So use a personal experience, like if I were to talk about the concept of the one-person business and the process of productizing yourself, then my personal experience would be around freelancing and how I was told to niche down. And I've talked about this many times. Go read just look up BDanco, the one-person business, and read that blog article / newsletter on that, and you'll see how I did that with my personal experience. So an example is exactly that. So I tried freelancing, digital art, dropshipping, and more, but always failed for some reason or another. This is the problem, right, that people can relate with. The concept is the one-person business. You have to learn all business skills and leverage the internet rather than just like one specific thing. The process is the 4 pillars of business, so brand, content, product, promotions, and the basics of them all. Now, a more advanced framework, this is what I teach in my 2-hour writer course. And just for those wondering, you don't need that course. If you've gone through the bootcamp, you do not need that course by any means. Do not get it. I'm just using that as an example, not trying to pitch you on that. So for the APAC framework, it's more conceptual. It's not like, okay, start with a problem, go into amplify solution. This one is how I write really long newsletters. So we start with the attention, and this is usually just the headline and the hook within the first section of the newsletter. So I use problems, statistics, personal experiences, or big idea to capture attention. This part is really short. Then the perspective in the first section, I illustrate the common mindset and beliefs around the topic and how most people think about it in a negative light. Like, why is that a problem? And you pretty much break down someone's mindset based on it so that they have really no option but to want to read more. After that, advantage is where you present your perspective. So in my case, that's like the one-person business versus freelancing. So present your perspective and how you think about the topic. Why is yours better? Present an argument. That's really important. Is persuasion is about presenting an argument. And persuasion is really the only ethical way to not only make an income, but change behavior. Because the only other ways to change behavior are through force, so slavery, and deception, which is like government, politics, etc. We don't want that. We want persuasion. We want logical, thought-out arguments that spark behavior change towards something good. Mutual benefit in that persuasion. The next thing is gamify. So gamify is kind of a philosophy on getting people into the flow state. I've had multiple people tell me that my newsletters get them into flow. I would recommend reading the book Flow by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi to understand what I'm saying here, where you get into flow when the challenge matches your skill level. The challenge isn't too high, so you don't get anxious about taking action, and it's not too low, so you don't get bored. So this is where you get really specific on presenting a series of goals or action steps that people can achieve from beginner to advanced, so they really feel like they're learning something and making progress, right? So this is where like the education comes into play, where you're creating a game, and it's like a series of quests, where it's like action step 1 is quest 1, and then as you level up, you go to quest 2, which is step 2, etc., etc., and that's how you get to the advantageous perspective. So an example of this would be getting fit. So to capture attention with a big idea, you can get fit in 2 hours a week. You don't have to eat a super strict diet to lose body fat and look great. The perspective here is that most people feel like they can't get in shape because they work too long and don't have time for the gym and healthy eating. The advantageous perspective would be minimalist training and intermittent fasting, so you can train for 2 hours a week and eat like a king at night to get in shape by skipping breakfast. This is what Kinobody or Greg O'Gallagher did to kind of popularize intermittent fasting more than it already was just a few years ago, no matter how much of a douche you think Kinobody is. Like, he was very good at persuading and had great marketing, and he changed quite a few lives, mine included. I don't do that anymore. I don't intermittent fast or train minimalistically, but I really enjoyed doing that. The next thing is, so for gamify, how to structure your lifting program, how to change your base lifestyle, and how to start intermittent fasting. This is for a very long newsletter, but you can also think of it for like the entire mission of your brand, right? This is what you're guiding people through over years upon years upon years of content. Right, you're capturing attention, you're making them see the fault in their perspective, you're persuading them as to why yours can help them live a better life, and then you give them the structure to actually do that by breaking down everything. So this can be the structure of a book, the structure of a newsletter, or the overarching structure of all of your content in general. So those are the newsletter frameworks. We're going to go over how to outline certain things in the outline section, but until then, that's the end of this video. We'll see you in the next one. In this video, I want to talk about how to write clickable headlines, because if your headline isn't clickable, the value inside your newsletter doesn't get read, right? You can spend 5 hours writing the best newsletter you've ever written, but if the headline, title, thumbnail, etc. of the post or video isn't good, you wasted your time. You'll often hear YouTubers say that the thumbnail and the title matter the most, and I personally found this to be true. If my thumbnail and title suck, then my videos suck. I can change, like if I were to change the title and thumbnail of a video that is getting the most views I've ever gotten, it will die. And there have been times where one of my videos was doing extremely poorly, and I changed the title and thumbnail, and then it became one of my most viral videos. So that's how important the title or thumbnail is in the performance of whatever you do. We should already know this based on hooks and just your tweets in general and capturing attention. So the lesson is to just spend time on headlines and practice refining them over time. Now, I want to keep this short and sweet and give you some just thought process to go through when you're writing headlines and things you can do to get better, because there isn't any formula for this. This is something that is creative, right? You get better at it with experience and feedback from just how your content does. So another point for if your audience isn't growing, you don't have data and you can't get better. So audience growth has to be number one priority. The first thing you can do is to just research your competitors. And personally, I think this should become a habit. It should already be a habit based on your idea generation and looking for top performing content or ideas. So what you can do here is subscribe to any good newsletter you see being promoted. So anyone you see online that says join my newsletter, join it. And to make this a bit easier, what you can do is create a new email specifically for newsletters so that you can go through and just see a bunch of headlines that's your swipe file, right? Your email list. Next thing you can do is turn on post notifications for your favorite accounts on X, YouTube, LinkedIn, whatever, even Instagram, I think. And then your notifications should just be good headlines, right? And if you feel compelled to go and watch the video because the headline is that good, then chances are you should probably save that headline somewhere like in your Cortex or anywhere really in your capture. Step 3 is spend 30 minutes writing down high-performing YouTube headlines. What you can do here is, as we've already talked about, go to certain YouTubers that you follow, whether it be podcasters or just a good YouTuber, go to their most popular videos and just write down the headlines that you think are good that you would be able to emulate in your own content, right? That's just a great way to do it. Write down, again, spend 30 minutes and just write down a bunch of headlines. And then when you go to write your newsletter and create a headline, go and look at all of those headlines so you can start to craft your own and piece them together. The next thing you can do to make it even better, your headline, is to combine the most compelling aspects of your writing. So your newsletter in and of itself should cover many of the Cortex elements like problem, goal, benefit, concept, example, or process. This is what a story is. These are the components of a story. These are the components of a transformation. These are the components of marketing in general. So inside of your newsletter, what are the most attention-grabbing parts, and how can you turn those into a headline? So an example, how to get ahead of 99% of people. That's both a big idea and a process. In 6 to 12 months is a time frame. It reduces the perceived friction. Change your life in 6 months. Again, time frame, big idea. My deep work routine, that's a process. One-person business model, that's a concept. How to productize yourself, process. Daily routine that changed my life, benefit, and that's a benefit. 4 habits most people ignore, that could be a process. You won't be the same person in 6 months. You can start to see which one of mine perform the best and why I double down on these. The most profitable niche is you. That's a big idea. Create your niche of one is a process. You get the point. Big idea, process. Big idea, concept. Process, concept, right? Now, another thing you can do is to use your high-performing posts as inspiration for a potential headline. So if you remember the 10 commandments of engagement or capturing attention, there's numbers and statistics, negativity bias, pattern interrupt, target call out, problem call out, confidence and conviction, aesthetics of the post itself, potential benefit, social proof, warning and caution. So looking over some of my top tweets here, how can I use these to shape some of my headlines? Nobody's coming to save you could be in a YouTube thumbnail. It could be in the preview text of a newsletter. It could be the first part of a newsletter. Like think of if one of these was a newsletter headline, you could see it could be nobody's coming to save you, and then in parentheses, how to take responsibility for your future. So big idea and process. Again here, this should scare the shit out of you. Could be a thumbnail, could be preview text, it could be the title itself, things like that. I think that makes sense, right? Now, if you want to take it even further, you can use AI or ChatGPT to generate ideas for you, just so you can get multiple angles so that you can work from those, right? So my advice is to just generate 10 or so ideas, either from ChatGPT or whatever you write in your newsletter, and then go on a walk or come back and then contemplate them with the intention of adding impact. And over the next 1 to 2 days, you can come back and change your headline before you post the newsletter. Now, the last thing here is to just write more and be okay with your headline not being perfect, because you have to fail in order to get data and feedback so that you actually have something to improve for next time. With this, I would hope that you're in this for the long run, because if you're not, I would ask you to think about why you're doing this in the first place and what the other option is. You may have other options that you want to go after in terms of a career, but if you don't, and you really want to start writing and you see the potential benefit in it as your life's work and something that you can do every day for the rest of your life, then you're going to be doing this for 5 to 10 years. And if you don't every single day, then you're just prolonging how long it's going to take to get out of your situation, and that time may never come. So write a newsletter to yourself on why you should start writing, right? Or continue writing. So with this, a few headlines out of hundreds are allowed to be bad, and they're going to be bad. And without that, how else would you have a good transformation story to tell? Just some things to think about. That's it for this. Write some headlines. See you in the next section. All right, my friends, welcome to week 4, where we learned about newsletter writing. So this is the newsletter template that you're going to be duplicating to your workspace. So if you go to the Writers Bootcamp 2024 workspace by clicking on your profile picture and then going to the week 4, right click, copy to workspace, and then copy to your personal workspace, this will show up inside of there. Now, inside of the newsletter template, it looks like this. So it's meant to be very straightforward, where you write down the topic that you want to write about, you add connections, and this can be core notes, this can be past newsletters, this can be threads, this can be posts, this can be anything that you've written inside of Cortex that you want to reference during this thing. And now with something like notes or core notes, that's a lot of the writing already. A lot of my newsletters are just summaries. Each section is just a summary of a related idea that helps me illustrate the topic that I'm talking about, where I'll show you that inside of the actual newsletter template, where I've included one of my past newsletters and how I outlined it and how I broke it down. Next is just brain dumping specific ideas. So if any ideas come to mind, or you just quickly want to open this document and add ideas, you can do so here. You can also do them inside of Capture. So if you are on the go, you're on your phone, you're walking, you're doing something, you can open Capture, you can type at newsletter template. And then inside of here, you can start writing idea for this week's newsletter. So then when it comes time to write, you can open up Capture and you can reference these. I'll actually show you one of my most recent newsletters in my personal workspace of where I did this, because this is super helpful, right? One thing that I do recommend is filling out your outline at the start of the week. For me, it's every Sunday because I publish my newsletters every Saturday. So once I publish them, the next day I spend it outlining. I don't even write anything. I just outline it first because I know how far that's going to take me throughout the week. So when I outline something, then I have the outline there. And when I'm on a walk or listening to something or researching ideas for that week, then I can just open it up and capture ideas really quickly to it. And a lot of my newsletters are just written by me having a draft open where I'm writing the actual newsletter and my ideas for it, and I'm just stringing them together. So very important point there. And Capture comes so much in handy here, right? So close out of that, but then research. So you can embed tweets, you can link highlights, you can add statistics, you can do some research. One thing I would recommend is maybe watching a YouTube video or reading at least one article related to the topic or an idea that you're trying to put across in the topic, right? So in this one where I talk about the age of the generalist, I have something linked from an article about a talent stack because I like talking about the talent stack. So I include that here so I can open it and reference it while I write. Now here, the hook is where you generate headline or thumbnail ideas if you use this as a YouTube video. We're going to talk about that next week, where we talk about how to repurpose all of the content that you've written. So that's important because if you think of the headline and thumbnail, when it's time to use the newsletter as the script, then that's going to come in handy quite a bit. So the way that you think about the headline or the thumbnail can either come from the things that you ideate inside of here, it can come from anywhere in your outline, or best of all, it comes from YouTube videos that you've researched previously. So earlier in this curriculum, we learned how to find high-performing ideas by filtering YouTube videos by most popular, or just keeping an eye on YouTube videos that perform well and using those as specific titles or thumbnails. So that's important because when you're writing about a topic, you want to make sure it performs well. And if you just spit some random subject line or headline like out of your brain and it isn't backed with data of what's already gotten a lot of views, that's something that you want to pay attention to. Now, another thing with that is most of your writing, most of your newsletter writing, most of your any writing in general can be framed in multiple different ways. I can write a newsletter on how to start a business and I can change that. I can change it in so many different ways, like the best business model to start. I can talk about what to do if you're lost in life, because starting a business helps with that. So I can frame it a billion different ways. So if I can find a high-performing topic on something like YouTube, no matter what it is, I can usually frame the idea or what I want to write about inside of that. So do some research on YouTube to make sure you're heading in the right direction with your actual outline before you start. Now, after that, we have this. Now, this looks familiar to a lot of you. It looks a lot like the core notes template. What you're doing here is you're just outlining persuasive ideas for the newsletter that you're writing, right? Most of your writing inside of the newsletter is going to fall within one of these things. Like any sentence that you write is going to be a problem or goal or benefit or an example or concept or process or something of that nature or just an idea, right? So what you can do here is you can open up previous core notes that you've written and you can use them to fill these out. And so if I'm writing about becoming a generalist and I have 2 core notes on being a generalist, then I can write and I have the problem listed. I can copy paste that here. I have the goal. I can copy paste that here. Benefit, example, etc. If you don't have any of these things, then I'd recommend just doing it from scratch and boom, you have notes in your Cortex, right? And you double up on writing a core note and writing a newsletter outline, and you can search for this and reference it at any time. After all of that, is where you write your outline or your key points with one of the frameworks that you learned inside of the actual curriculum. So this could be like PAS, problem, amplify, solution, or it can be any framework that you want. You just have to keep that in mind here. So in the lead, I usually like to start by amplifying a problem or illustrating a personal experience of mine, a personal story where I was dealing with the problem, or I just like to get straight into the idea, right? They can go either way. And then you outline the key points based on what you talked about up here, and then the call to action, and you go from there. So one thing with this is there are two types of writers that I've experienced. There's ones that just like to get straight into the newsletter writing and they don't like to outline anything. They just like to start writing. That's perfectly fine. If that's you, then don't worry about filling out this template like completely. It doesn't really matter, right? If you have everything in your mind and how you want to write, then go ahead and write it. This template is for people who don't have something to write or don't know how to string together their ideas. And this hopefully helps them do so by breaking things down into steps. So let's go over the actual example. And I would recommend you going over this as well and looking it over, where the topic is how to become a generalist. Now, these aren't here. These notes aren't here because this is from my other workspace. These links probably aren't going to work, so keep that in mind. But in my own personal workspace, it would be like this, and I can just open it and reference it. I brain dumped some ideas. I added my own tweets as research. So what I did here is I went to something like Twimex, and you can see your tweets in the sidebar. This is actually called SuperX, which is just another version of it. And then I can search for things like generalist, and things will come up. And then I can copy paste the link to this into Cortex so I can reference it and use it in my newsletters, because I like to intersperse quotes, tweet embeds, images, etc. throughout the newsletter to help illustrate certain points, or even start sections off because it frames the section really well, and then let the writing flow from there. You can see that I included the talent stack and a YouTube video on generalists that I read and studied before actually writing the newsletter. I listed out some hooks that I thought would do well based on my past videos and what I researched on YouTube. This one, How Generalists Win in the Information Age, was actually why I wanted to create a video on being a generalist. And then you can read through these and just see how I listed them. Now, as I'm actually writing, what I do is I'll try to check these off. I can't check them off now because I'm in the wrong workspace, but you can see how just having these down tends to fill out the structure of your actual newsletter. Now, it looks a bit off because you're going to start with a problem, you're going to hint at a goal or a benefit, you're going to include examples every now and then, you're going to be using the concept as the main topic, but then you have the process, and this is pretty much going to take up an entire section, illustrating how to earn a living as a journalist or whatever it may be. So the first section really is just problem, and then the goal and the benefit are helping frame that in the introduction. And then the second section is just process. Okay, how do I overcome the problem? So you have two sections in this newsletter, and then you use examples and concepts and big ideas in between wherever they fit to add a bit more uniqueness to it. So then what I did is you can open this in a new pane, and then you can just go through here, and I can write in my outline based on everything that I read and all of these things that I have. I can start to fill it out. So in the lead, I have these, the body, I have a few sections, and then the call to action, I listed a few things out. Now, I would encourage you to study this, and then you can also look through the newsletter itself. And this is just the headline. I didn't put it in the title because, yeah. But you can read through this and start to see how I structured it. And if it helps you, you can follow this same structure. Now, I write really long. This is 3,400 words. You do not have to write that long. You really don't have to write that long. You can write 750 to 1,000 words for your first newsletter. Just start with the problem. Keep that to maybe 200, 250 words, and then finish off by illustrating the process. So a second section on the process, step by step, how do you overcome the problem? And that can be 500 to 750 to however many words you want. And then you can break that up with headlines in between to illustrate the steps. So that's that. I will show you what I mentioned, where if we go to my personal workspace, this is a newsletter that I'm outlining, but the recent one that I did, this one was an old newsletter, so it looks all messed up. It's a newsletter that I outlined previously and came back to, so the outline didn't look too good. But we'll look at this anyways. So the way that I like to do it is I have the outline, so I duplicate the newsletter template in my workspace whenever it's time to write, and then what I do is I create a draft under it. So I just press the plus button, I call it newsletter, and then I have this here, and this is where I write everything. Now what I do here is I open up the outline on the side, and then I can look through, I can see my outline here. I can see that I reference the molecule of more a lot. I have a few tweets in here. I have a few core notes and connections. So core note right here, and then other ones like this, outline of my book, how to do whatever you want, and then for capture. Oh, what am I doing? It's right here. Oh, I attach captures to the outline itself. So you can go here, you can click open capture, and then you can see all of them here. So you can see that I was taking notes, and I took notes from the book, The Molecule of More. That's actually one good tip that I should mention, is that a lot of your newsletters can just be book summaries of the books that you like, or books that you thought were impactful, or the first chapter of a book, because those are usually the best parts of the book because it goes over everything. So start to think of your newsletters as summaries of ideas that you really liked and books. And if you can read books or you can read videos or whatever they may be, you can create your own version of it. And by filling out the newsletter outline inside of Cortex, it starts to become unique and take its own shape. And you can always just back up your newsletter arguments with specific quotes from the book that you read. And you can just say, I really enjoyed this book. I'm going to break down and summarize a certain part of it because I think it will be impactful for you. So that's it for this video. We have a lot to do next week. Next week's going to be very fun. So please show up for that. Until then, enjoy Cortex and enjoy writing your newsletter. All right, my friends, in this video and in week 5, we are going to learn about repurposing your content to all platforms. So the posts, threads, and newsletters that you've been writing, we're going to try to tie everything together, understand a weekly flow, and figure out how to do cross-platform posting. So in this video, I want to go over the nuances of each platform, because while all of them are kind of the same, the principles are the same from what we learned in week 1, but there are just subtle nuances that I want you to pay attention to, and hopefully this video increases your mastery of social media by understanding the big picture. Now, one thing that I do want to recommend before doing this is that if you have not mastered posting on one platform, I would not recommend doing anything more than cross-posting to another platform. If we remember the week 1 principles, we remember that growth is not always determined by the algorithm, where the algorithm can help a decent amount at times, but we want to take that growth into our own hand. So a lot of your growth efforts, let's split this between content efforts, which is writing, and growth efforts, which is things like replies, networking, getting shares, dedicating your time to one platform so you are growing on that platform. Because if you split your growth focus to all different platforms, it's going to be very difficult to grow on one. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is X. This is kind of what we talked about a lot throughout the course. The reason I start with X and not another social media platform is because X, at least how I learned X, is by having a 280 character count limit, right? If you go over the 280 characters, it turns into a long post and it says show more. If you're under this doesn't say show more on the timeline because it's under 280 characters. It only shows show more on my profile to keep things compact. So if you think about that, when you write on X, and since you can post multiple times to X, like on Instagram, you probably wouldn't post 3 to 5 times a day. You'll probably post once, maybe twice, if you're pushing it, but engagement will probably go down because you're splitting your audience that way. So with that, since you can post more on X, you can test more ideas. You get in the habit of writing more. Your mind turns into a content machine. That's a very good thing. And if you stick to the 280 character count, you can repost that to any platform, like we're going to learn in this module, because this has a 280 character count. Threads, the Instagram app, has a 500 character count, and LinkedIn has something crazy like 1,500 or 1,500 words. No, characters. I don't know. It's very long. So since this is the lowest character count allowed, and it makes you concise and it keeps your ideas punchy, those usually do the best when they are cross-posted to other platforms like Threads or LinkedIn or YouTube Community or Instagram. Okay. Now on X, the main way to get, or there's a few different mechanics here, right? There's likes, there's reposts, there's quote posts, which if I click this, I can quote it. What this does is it allows me to add a comment on top and share that with my audience. So the things that you're aiming for on things like X, and if you're working with other people to help share your content, you're mainly trying to get likes, reposts, or comments. Comments and reposts, they kind of, and you're trying to get bookmarks. Bookmarks are a very big one, where 1.3K here, that's a decent amount compared to the likes, and this has seemed to increase reach over time as this has become a thing on X. So the way you get more bookmarks is by writing content that people think is valuable enough to save, right? Or is long so they want to read it later, or they just want to save it for later. So in order to grow on X, you're trying to get reposts or comments because both of those boost you in the timeline, right? If I repost you, my audience, some of it is going to see you. If I comment on your post, that's also going to show up on the timeline, right? It's going to show your post on the timeline. It's going to show my reply under it because people who follow me will also see my reply. So that's what you're aiming for on X. I feel like we have this down a good amount, but let's go to something like Instagram, where I'm posting the same exact content and just copy pasting it into a Figma file, like we'll learn in the next module. But the mechanisms of Instagram are a bit different. So if we go here, you can see that there's like, comment, share, but the comments on Instagram are much different than X or Threads, even YouTube. They feel a lot less authentic, where it's very small. Some people go into them, but it's not really a forum style reply. And if I were to comment on this post, it wouldn't show to my audience, right? It wouldn't show up on someone else's timeline who follows me and show my comment right here, like it does on X. So in order to grow on Instagram, there's only really 2 ways to go about it. It's either you get people to share your post to their story, or you get them to shout you out by tagging you in the caption. Most of the time, what people do is they'll pay for an account to shout them out. And so they'll post one of their posts. You see this all the time. And then in the caption, it's like, follow at @thedanko, follow Danko, follow Danko. And what that leads to is a lot of people following you without actually liking your content, right? And usually they're just telling, like, follow this guy if you want to learn more about XYZ. When you get your content shared to someone else's story, when they post it, it pops up to the front like this, and then the people will go to it and they'll see your post, they'll read it, and they'll click through. They'll click the post, go to your profile, they'll like it, and then they'll follow you. What that does is a few things. One, it guarantees that you get followers that look at stories. That's important because most of the time, you're going to be promoting your products or services in your stories. So if you get people who view stories, you get more people who are going to buy from you and pay you. The other thing there is that you're getting more dedicated followers because they took the time to actually go in, click the post, and then go and follow you, okay? The other thing is that when people repost again to their stories, it gets bumped up, right? So the more someone posts to their stories, the more it gets bumped up. And if you get shared by them, then you're going to get more and more followers that way. So when you're forming mastermind groups, or if you decide to pay people for story shares or whatever it may be, just keep that in mind. If you go to a theme page account and you ask them if they help with growth, a lot of them will say, oh, just we'll shout you out, send us a few posts, we'll post it to our page, we'll tag you in the description. Don't do that. Just be like, hey, no, how much would you charge instead for 10 story shares? And it'll probably be a lot cheaper. And then you just send them the post, they share it to their story, and you grow a lot faster with higher quality followers that way. So on X, you're focused on getting reposts and comments. On Instagram, you're focused on being a bit more insightful, I would say, so that people share your post to their story, because you have to think of the psychology behind that. People want to share posts that they identify with, that their friends are going to see. When I post something to my story, it's like I'm sharing my views with my friends, right? So optimize for that if you want more followers on Instagram. Another thing with that, and what I did in the past, is that if you are working with people like in a mastermind group or getting them to pay you, if you create a carousel, you can have them send one post one day and then another post another day. So I could go here and then we could share this. I can't add it to my story, but what you can do is I can share this post to my story today, and then 2 days from now or tomorrow, I can scroll to this post, and then if I share it to my story again, it shares this post to my story. That's why carousels are important on Instagram, is because you're giving people multiple reasons to share your post to their story. Okay, that's important. The other thing is that you can leverage that to make it go viral and potentially get picked up in the explore page. So if I'm with a mastermind group or I'm paying someone, I can create a carousel of all of my best tweets, and then I can send one and be like, hey, share this to your story today. They share it, and then 2 days from now or tomorrow, or if I share it to another person to share, I send them this post, and then they share it to their story, and more people start to like it and follow because of that. And then since it got shared so much, it may get picked up by the explore page. So that's a few things to take into account. And the other thing is with threads. I also post my threads like this. So if you write a thread, we'll learn how to do this in the next module with Figma or Canva, but you pretty much just create a template and then you post it, right? And then you have a carousel thread and people can share any part of that thread. So it does good or bad. And the other thing here with a thread is that it leads to whatever my call to action is, telling them to go to my link in bio. The last thing here has to do with captions. So with captions, this is important on LinkedIn as well, and we'll go over it there. But On Instagram, you can keep the caption very simple, but if you want to push more people to your newsletter or you want them to purchase a product, then you need to write a bit longer captions. And the way you do that is by having some kind of a hook. So think of a hook, a pattern interrupt, something that makes people curious to click and see what it's about. And since the first 2 or 3 lines are going to show before it says show more and they have to click to read, that's what you want to optimize for, is having something right here that is a hook and it's attention grabbing. And then you describe whatever concept that you're trying to get across. And you can also just think through, like, you can ask what, how, why, and try to fill up maybe, it's probably only like 200 words, maybe 500 characters, no more than that, right? I just say 200, 250 words. And then at the bottom, I add a little like 3 dots, and then I have my promotion where I'm promoting a product right now for Black Friday weekend. And then it says you can pick it up with the link in my bio, and you can see with my link in my bio, I have the call to action. So when people read down to that, they get to the call to action, they go to my profile, they purchase. And if you want to do this, what I do sometimes is I alternate every other day by promoting a product, and then I promote my newsletter. And I tell people to go to the link in bio, and they can find my newsletter here to click and go to. So that's kind of Instagram marketing in a nutshell, is have good attention grabbing content that makes people want to read and share to more people, and then have a caption that leads into driving people somewhere else, like a newsletter, product, or service that you have. And then if you are paying people to help you share that post, then you better not waste this caption space, because that's, if you're getting traffic to this post and it's getting a lot of likes, but you aren't making sales, or you aren't getting newsletter subscribers, you're doing something wrong. Okay, so that's Instagram. Let's touch on Threads really quick, because this is pretty much the exact same as X or Twitter, but it has a 500 character count. But if you write on X first and then cross post to Threads, then you shouldn't have a problem there. So you write the same content like we've learned to write, and you're doing the same thing, but you have to take into account that Threads doesn't have a DM feature. So usually you're going to someone's profile, and then you're going to their Instagram. If they display it, normally the Instagram just shows. So you go to their Instagram, you DM them, and then that's when you ask if they want to be in a mastermind group or they want to help grow or comment or engage with each other. There's everything that we learned in week 1, and that's how you grow. And I would say that comments and reposts are pretty equal on Threads, and they both spread you to audiences more. Now on LinkedIn, this is where things get a tiny bit different, where you have all this stuff. You have a featured area. If you're a creator profile, you can convert to a creator profile, but you have a featured area where you can list your products and your newsletter if you want. Now for posts, when you're trying to grow and you're networking with other people, shares don't do too much. I learned this from Justin Welch pretty early, is that either likes or comments are going to boost you on the other person's timeline more. So you're trying to optimize for comments or likes. And then what I do is I write my Instagram captions and my LinkedIn captions at the same time. So you can see this is the exact same thing that I posted on Instagram. The caption is the exact same thing, but I'm just including a link instead of telling people to go to the link in bio. So my job is to get people to click up here because it'll cut off. How do I go back? Okay. Okay, so this one, nope, sorry, this one. So when they're seeing this on the timeline, it cuts off like right here. So I need to make sure this is attention grabbing enough for them to click. As they read through, they see it, or they usually read this first, they like it, they read part of the caption, they click, they start reading through, and then they can click right here to my product promotion, and that works perfectly fine. So if I have a good post like this, then I can get my friends or people that I pay or ghostwriters or social media managers to comment on my post to boost it, and then more people see it, therefore more people see the link, therefore more people click the link, therefore more people buy from the link. Now, that's LinkedIn. The last one that I use is YouTube Community. Now, a lot of people sleep on this, and there are actually people that are building only community-based accounts. They aren't even posting shorts or videos. They just post like they would on Twitter, like this, right? So here's the same exact post. This one had the same slides as Instagram. And then you can see here, a little known truth, skills are a group of techniques. What? And then it goes down, and then I have a link, and the same goes. So if we look at the engagement on that, 7,000 likes. That's one of my highest performing ones, and the sales showed because of that. So it's literally just cross-posting across multiple different platforms. But the thing with YouTube as a whole, community page, I don't focus on getting these posts shared. I just hope that they show up in the algorithm. I just post, and it seemed to work for me. Videos are a different story. We're going to go over YouTube strategy later, but I just want to tell you that there isn't really a way to get people to like network with you. Like if you can reply to other people's channels, and that works really well. Especially if you can tell a joke. Like if you tell a joke and you're one of the first people to reply to a video that's going to be really popular and you get a lot of likes, then the channel owner may pin that comment, or it just has so many likes that it goes to the top of the comments. And then if you have a brand name or your name and a creator profile picture, not just some random anonymous profile picture, people are usually going to click through and they may see your videos and subscribe. So that's one way you can grow, but there isn't like a share feature that's actually good on YouTube. It's all based on a few different things. So we'll talk about that when we are repurposing the newsletter, when we talk about YouTube first approach to newsletters, but that is kind of it for this video. Now we're going to learn how to actually make the images in Figma so that you can cross-post everything to all platforms. And then in the last module, we have a bonus template with that I use to write my social media posts, write my threads, write my captions for all of the platforms like I just showed you, so I can knock all those things out in one. So that will be helpful after everything we've learned. So that's it for this video. See you in the next one. Okay, in this video, we're going to go over how to repurpose short posts and threads to places where you post images. So on X and Threads, the platform Threads, you can just post the straight text and the threads. But on Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube Community, you can't do that. So we need to talk about how to actually do that. So what you can do is go to figma.com, or you can do this on Canva as well. I don't use Canva, so I can't talk about it. Figma is a bit more complex, so hopefully this makes sense. I'm going to try to be as thorough as possible as I can here. But you log into Figma, and then you create a new design file, and your page will look like this. So now what you need to do is you need to first create a frame, and we're just going to drag this out, and then we're going to change it, the dimensions, width and height, to, I like 1000 by 1000, so it's big enough. Now if I zoom out I hold Z, that gives me I can click and zoom in, and then I can press Option to do the minus, so Z and Option at the same time, and then out click. Now this is something that I can download, right? This is a frame, so I can click frame, I can click export, and then I can export this as an image. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a tweet template that you can reuse over and over again. So what we're going to do is I like to do this from my phone because if I were to screenshot one of my tweets from X, it's not going to look very good in my eyes because it's a lot wider on desktop. Like this doesn't look the same as it does on your phone. And if I were to crop this inside of Figma, it would just look really small. So go to your phone, screenshot a tweet from your phone, and then we can drag that in. And then what you can do here is hold shift when you're dragging so it stays the same size. And then you have it like that. And now there are these up here, the alignment tools, where I can align vertical centers, and that centers it vertically for me. Now, to match this, I'm going to change the background of this, the fill, to black. So it looks like that. Now, a little known tip, and something that Justin Welsh does, and I occasionally do, when reposting my best tweets, is he'll post the likes here. Now, I'm pretty sure he uses TweetPic, because I know that template, or I know how that looks. So if you want a super easy way to do this, oh, I guess it's with Tweet Hunter now. Cool. So you just paste the tweet URL. So let's copy link. Let's copy one of an actual tweet, not a thread. Copy link, boom, there, screenshot. And then it will spit something out. I can select the design. Okay, then it looks like this, and then I can change, oh, that's actually not bad. So if you want to repurpose this way, you can. Pretty good. And you just edit it, make it look your own. Can you include the engagement metrics? Yeah. So the reasoning behind this is because this is how I grew on LinkedIn and Instagram to start. Not too many people know this. Why did I include the likes and retweets on my posts when sharing them, like Justin did here? It's because it's social proof when you don't already have any on the platform, right? If you are starting from zero, nobody's going to be liking your post. This shows that your post is already validated and that you have followers on other platforms or that you've had engagement on other platforms. So that leads to more people trusting it, more people thinking that it's important. It's just a psychology hack, and that means more people following you because they feel like they're getting in on something early. So if you follow what I did in the last video with Instagram, if I post something like this on Instagram with good likes and retweets that already validate it, and then I have someone share that post to their story, people are more likely to like and click through that and follow you because it shows the social proof there. Now, if you want something more custom, like I do, because there's only so many ways you can customize this with TweetPic, is you go here, and this is what I used to do. So we're gonna go over this first, is I never used TweetPic because I didn't like how it looked. I liked this. This is more attention grabbing, right? This too. What I would do is I would screenshot it on my phone, send it to my desktop, and then I would simply add squares. So I would go here, I'd add a square, I'd color it black, and then I'd add another square for these, and then I'd add another square for this leading up to that dot. And that looks a lot cleaner to me, okay? But this didn't cut it for me either going forward. So if you wanted to do this, and it also takes a lot of time, because if you're posting a thread, you need to screenshot every post of the thread. And if I select this, I can press Command D, and then I can keep pressing Command D if I want to, and then I can copy paste and put the thread in there, or I can screenshot and then post this in here and then add the blocks and whatever. But we're not gonna do that. So instead, we're gonna use this as a template, okay? In order to do that, we need a few things. We need first text. So I'm gonna take the text, I'm gonna drag it over this, and then I'm going to type of it, hello. You can't see it because it's black and really small. So I'm gonna Command A to select it all, turn it white, and then increase the font size until it is pretty close to matching. Let's change this to how to master any skill fast. And Enter is a smaller font. So I'm actually gonna go back, how to master any skill fast. Copy paste this in here. So now it looks like that. And now when we take off the actual image, it looks like this. And what we can do here to get it to match a bit is we can change the line height to that. So that looks a bit better. And then, okay, starting to look like a tweet. Now we need name and profile picture. So what we're gonna do here, I'm gonna hide this text for now. And then what we're gonna do is we have to add the profile picture. So I'm going to drag in my profile picture. And then we're gonna make it kind of small. Or we'll keep this over here for now. What we need to do is we need a circle because we need to clip the profile picture. So select the circle, I can zoom in with Z, and then as I'm dragging, hold shift so it stays proportionate. And then if I press space at the same time, I can drag it as well. So let's go about there. I think that looks pretty good. Now, if we drag my head into this, I can align it and then hold shift. Now it's about that same size. I'm gonna put my profile picture on top of it, hold shift to select both of these, right click, use as mask, and now you have a mask group. Okay. Now, the way that I like to personally style this is I like to have my face up here, and I like to have the text next to it. So I'm actually gonna move this here for now, and I need another text box that is the same size as this, that says capital Dan Co. Let's make that a tiny bit bigger. Let's make that like 36, maybe semi-bold. And now I need a text box for, where's text? T. Now I need one for this, which is at Dan Co. We can make that one back smaller to what it was, make it regular, and we're going to change it to about that, right? So now we have a few things that we can create. We have my profile picture, we have this text, align those, and now what I can do is I can select these, press Command G, and I can line it up in the middle of the profile picture. I can select the profile picture and this, press Command G, so it's a group, and now if I get rid of this and I turn back on the text, and then I move this down, make sure it's aligned, have it about there, and that looks good. Let's make this a bit bigger, so 36, and now I can select these, or I gotta get rid of all those rectangles that I made. Now select all this, press Command G to group it. I can press center line, vertical center line, Now it's a cohesive tweet. That looks good. Now, of course, one thing I would recommend is that you attempt to style this with either your own colors or just in your own way. I think the simple like tweet style looks really good, but I would recommend like adding, like changing a font to something that you like, or changing the color, making it white and black instead of black and white, or something of that nature. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to select this, and I want you to press Command D, Command D, Command D, Command D, and we'll have 5 frames. So now, if you ever want to create a carousel with this specific template, you can come in here, you can find a tweet that you want to take, like this one. We go to Figma, and then we double click, Command V, boom, it's in there. I'm going to set this to auto. Where's auto height? Is there an auto height? Is it here? There's got to be this auto height. Yeah. So select auto height for all of these first, because then you can come in here, select this, center it, boom, it's done. You can fill this out as many times as you want. Now, another thing that I do is let's zoom out, Command D one more time. Now drag this down over here. And what I like to do is I like to create a little short template. So pretty much just get rid of this, create a new, or here, let's change this to, I like a light gray. So maybe like something like that. And then we're going to add text, so T, and then we will drag to maybe here. And then let's take a simple one-line quote. Greatest mistake you can make. It's not making any mistakes. Paste that in here. And then we're going to make this a decent amount bigger and use a font like this. And then change the line height to like 64. Make this, remember, auto height. And you can use this for quotes. You can use this for short posts like this. One way you can do a quote is just add a space and then type Dan Co. or something like that. And if you want, you can even make that smaller, like that. And you can even make it maybe gray. And then it looks good, right? So now you have a quote post as well. The last thing I want to do is sometimes I like to do this when writing a thread. So we're going to take this. We're going to duplicate. Don't duplicate twice at once. But if I wanted to write a thread, what I would do is I take this, I duplicate it, and then I would select into here, delete this, make sure this is in a group, so I can right-click, ungroup, and then center this. And then depending on how long your threads are, we could just duplicate this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So now you have post template, quote post or short post template, and then threads template, where you can just come in here, copy paste them all into here, and then what you can do when you export them is you can come in here, you go to export 11 layers, and then it'll download a zip file, you unpack that, and then you have all of the images there. That way, you can post them to Instagram pretty easily. For individual images, you can post those to LinkedIn like this, but for threads, you need to turn them into a PDF. So with something like a thread like this, the way that you create a LinkedIn carousel is with a PDF. So what you can do, I don't have it on my screen right now, but if you have Adobe Acrobat, or you can find a website that allows you to combine multiple files into one PDF, then you can do that. I use Adobe Acrobat, so I open it up, I go up to File, I click Create, I click Combine Multiple Files into a single PDF, I drag all of my images into there that I exported, turn them into a PDF, download the PDF, and then I go here. You can click plus when you're sharing a post, go to Document, choose File. If we go to this one that I did today, you add it here, you add a title, done. There you go. So that's one way to cross-post to all platforms, and it looks really good. The last thing I want to touch on is just YouTube and what I personally do. So YouTube, you can only do 5 slides. So with a thread, that is obviously more than 5 slides. All I do is this. I just say continue from last slide, and then I just copy-paste the rest of the tweets from the thread into here, and I link to my newsletter like I would on Twitter or anything else. So that's how you repurpose short posts to really any platform. So next we need to talk about how to repurpose newsletters into something more complex, like a YouTube script or podcast. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. Hope it was helpful. Bye. Okay, my friends, we are going to try to make this as valuable as possible because teaching this process is relatively difficult. It's difficult because it's a lot to take in, and the way that I came up with this process is just through 5 years of trial and error. So me trying to condense 5 years of testing into one simple thing, when to me it's kind of second nature, is difficult because we're trying to combine multiple things that we've learned, and frankly, this would be difficult to understand if you hadn't gone through the previous 4 weeks of this bootcamp. So that's an important thing, because one thing that many people don't know is that I didn't start on YouTube, right? That was the last platform that I started on, and my success on YouTube was dependent on the success of my newsletters. I was a writer, and I kind of figured out how to write good newsletters, long newsletters first, and then as I started watching YouTube videos, I'm like, okay, there's some similarities here. I'm noticing that in these YouTube videos, people are using quotes, and they're using B-roll, and they're sectioning things off, and they're adding steps so that it holds the viewer's attention more. So what that led me to was watching more YouTube videos, and then as I was watching them, I would write down the structure of the video. So I'd be listening to it, and then I'd write down, like, okay, what is the essence of what this started with? It started with illustrating a problem, and then, okay, how does it transition? Okay, there's a quote from someone else. Okay, going deeper into it, they're showing graphics, they're showing images, and so I started mapping all of these things out, where you have quotes, you have tweets, you have statistics, you have problems, you have a story, you have all these other things, and I laid them all out, and that's what led to the newsletter template that you use to write newsletters inside of Cortex right now. So a lot of people may not see the benefit in outlining so much just yet, and that's because you may not understand the structure of a high-performing YouTube video yet, and why the newsletters transfer over easily into YouTube videos. So one thing there is that YouTube is a difficult beast, and we're going to go over my strategy here. So we're going to start here and go over the reasoning behind this. And if you'd like, I'll link it anyways. I'll link this document in the text under this video that you're watching so you can duplicate it, save it if you want. But here's what we're doing. We're researching YouTube first before we write any newsletter. So when you outline your newsletter for the week, be sure to research YouTube first. The way you can do this is by filtering channels by most popular, their most popular videos, or you can just casually scroll the timeline when you have free time throughout your day. Don't scroll to watch YouTube, scroll to try to find those videos where you don't know who the person is, but it's showing up on your timeline and it's getting abnormally more views than usual. Okay, that's important. Why? So if we go over to YouTube, get rid of all these links I was sharing, but we go over to YouTube and we go to most popular. You can do this for any channel. So you should have 5 to 10 channels that you already watched that you want to emulate or that talk about similar topics to you. I'd recommend saving the link to their channel somewhere in Cortex so you can reference them quite often. But if we go to most popular here, you can start to notice some patterns, not only on mine, but on everyone's channel. You can see, okay, how to get ahead of 99% of people, get ahead of 99% of people. In the thumbnail on this one, how to get ahead of 99% of people. I saw that continuously did well, and other people were copying it, and so I decided to double down on it so that I reap the benefit from it. Another thing is change your life, a daily routine that changed my life. What other ones are there? But you can notice patterns. So another thing that I would recommend for you to do is go to, let's say, 5 channels, go to their most popular videos, and write down 5 of the videos that you could recreate. Now, you can't do all of those based on your expertise and your knowledge, but if we go to Ali Abdaal, our Lord and Savior of productivity, we go here, we go to videos, we go to most popular, and we can look through this. Where how I type really fast, I'm probably not going to make that video. I just don't care to. 9 passive income ideas, maybe I could, but I don't really care to make that video. How to invest, nah, I'm good. Can't do that one either. Skincare routine, don't care about it. Why you're always tired, I could definitely do something related to that. So that's a good one. I would write that down. How I take notes. This is definitely one that I plan on recreating once we're ready to continue promoting Cortex. So I'm going to save that one, definitely. How to study for exams, I'm okay. But I can still save this because I'm going to reach out to people who could create this video, students that could create this video to help promote Cortex as a study tool, right? So if you just do this for a bunch of different channels, you'll eventually have maybe 10 to 20 ideas that you can start creating YouTube videos around. Now, why do these things work? First, because the title is just proven to do well. This is probably a good title to use, right? Or something very similar to it. Change a few things. Like if you want to do why you're always bored, that would probably also do really well. Or why you're always negative, that would probably also do well. You can replace things, you can combine ideas, be creative with this, but you're following the structure of the actual title itself. So the reason that these work is this: 1, the title is naturally attention grabbing. 2, and why we're trying to leverage the same thing is because these have and get a lot of views. So what we're trying to do is when someone watches this video, excuse the sound, is they show up and it looks like this, but this isn't here, right? This is an extension. This is called the vidIQ extension if you want to see how videos are performing and how many views per hour it's getting. So just type in vidIQ in Google and you can download that. But look at this. Okay, why you're always tired. You will never wake up tired again. Some Ali Abdaal stuff, why you're always tired. How to feel better and energized. So you can see here, 1, 2, and the reason you are recreating the videos in your own words and in your own voice is because my entire growth strategy on YouTube is showing up in this recommended sidebar. So I look through most popular videos by account. I know that the video title is good, so people want to click it. And when people are watching this video, and 6.2 million people have watched it, then I have a very high chance of showing up over here, especially if my video is new. What that does is people are already interested in watching this, and by nature of YouTube, Netflix, and other things, people want to binge watch stuff. They want to watch one after another after another. So you're giving them something else to click on. And also by doing so, anyone who's watched this video before, YouTube remembers that, and you're more likely to just show up on their timeline feed if you recreate this video. Now, a few nuances there is that this 6.2 million view video is only getting 36.4 views per hour. That's important because if people aren't coming to watch this video, if a lot of people aren't coming to watch this video, then not too many people are going to see what's in your recommended. So it's still wise to recreate this because you have a better chance of showing up than going in blindly. But at the same time, what you're trying to do, and this is very difficult to do, so don't always bank on this, is you're trying to find those videos that are still getting a lot of views. I'd say 100 to 200 plus views per hour. And then you recreate that video quick, within a week, so that it shows up in the recommended, and the people that last watched it, it will show up on the recommended page. That's how I kind of quote unquote game the algorithm, because that is kind of evergreen and timeless. It just makes the most sense, right? So that's the YouTube strategy in a nutshell. That's it. Now, going back to it, we have the YouTube idea and the reason why we're copying that YouTube idea, not copying it, but restructuring it. Now, don't actually watch the video. That's important because you want to be unique. You want to be the unique one. Everyone is going to be emulating the same video. If you want to write about what you want in that video or in the newsletter as a video, eventually turned into a video, then don't watch the video and outline it as if you were recreating the video from your own knowledge and your own mind. Okay, that's important because that's what leads to the most subscribers. People aren't growing as fast as me on YouTube, or didn't, because when I did this, I was very adamant on trying not to say the same thing as everyone else. I wanted to be the unique one. I wanted people to binge watch a topic, then watch mine, and be like, oh, this guy is the person I want to follow out of all of these other people. So that's the reasoning behind don't watch the video. Then outline your newsletter with that topic in mind. So it's going to be like the frame. You're not necessarily writing about that one thing. You're just using it as a frame and what you're going to eventually post to YouTube or use as the email subject line or the YouTube title. Now, why do I say use it as a frame? It's because if we go back to YouTube, you can see here how to get ahead of 99% of people in 6 to 12 months. You can literally write anything about that, right? Like there's 8 billion different ways to get ahead of 99% of people in 6 to 12 months. That's the beauty of it. I could write about philosophy and use this title. I could write about spirituality and use this title. I could talk about business and use this title. I could talk about self-improvement. I could talk about psychology. I could talk about reading. I could talk about anything because it's that broad of a title and it's so attention grabbing. This is the magic that you're looking for, is these kinds of titles where they're relatively broad, and that's your growth mechanisms on YouTube. Of course, other videos are just as viable and lead to just as many, so it's also helpful to look through the mid-range of views because these are usually the ones when you're talking about a specific topic or interest, like the one-person business or value creation is my way of saying persuasion, a certain skill stack, whatever it may be, certain topics, they still do well. They're just not like mega viral, so take that into account. Now, the next thing, use your own ideas to structure the video. Now, we have the newsletter outline, and we're going to go over a bonus one at the end of this module, which will tie things together quite well. But for this, here's how I think of structuring my newsletter to best help with making the YouTube video attention grabbing and makes people want to watch through the whole thing. It keeps things interesting. This is also the reasoning behind why the outline is structured the way it is. So when I'm writing a newsletter, in the intro, in that first 300 to 500 words, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to include one or multiple of the following. If I can include all three, perfect. I have a great intro. So personal experience related to the topic. So if we think how to get ahead of 99% of people as the topic, and I choose productivity, like planning your life, gaining direction in your life, then personal experience would be of a time when I was lost, right? And that hits on the pain point as well. So personal experience of me feeling lost or confused, or times where everything has just felt overwhelming or chaotic and I needed to reset my life. That's what I'm going to talk about. Then the big idea or statistic, I can look things up and maybe look at a study for how many people feel like they're lost in life. The big idea is just that maybe we're going through a period of feeling lost as a society just from the state of where things are at. So that's how you brainstorm that. Also, I'm going to give you this framework in the bonus video where in the key points, I have this in there for you. So you can list out the introduction with a problem, amplify it, use a personal experience, etc. So for the body, the way that I like to structure it is I like to have 1 to 2 sections. If you're a beginner, I would stick with one section. I would keep it very simple. That's what we're going over in this. We're just going over pain point and amplify the pain point in the introduction. And then the body is just a step-by-step process, right? So nothing in between, nothing complicated. But what I like to do is I like to have 1 to 2 sections on why the common perspective is wrong, or a concept or idea that gives perspective. So if I'm talking about how to get ahead of 99% of people, and the solution or the main talking point is a step-by-step, okay, how do I gain direction in my life? Then a random concept that I could talk about would be something that I was studying the other day about the meaning crisis, right? And so if you're going to go with 1 to 2 sections, it's important that you're consistently watching YouTube videos, reading books, gathering new ideas so that you have a way to connect the ideas together. Then last, and really the most important part to consider it valuable in my eyes, is a list of step-by-step advice. So you can use this as only section. So you can go with intro and then 1 section on a list of step-by-step advice to overcome the pain point. Now, to help with writing and to help with transition, research is very important. So I try to have at least 1 of these things in each section. So in the intro and in each section of the body. That includes a quote, a tweet, either from myself or from someone else. So if you're scrolling on Twitter and you see a tweet that would benefit the newsletter that you're writing this week, save it. Next thing is a statistic. So you can ask ChatGPT. You can Google related to the topic that you're talking about. Another is a big idea. So that's usually a quote or a tweet, but the next is a big problem. The thing that I like to do is I like to start each section, even the intro, with 1 of these. So if you go watch most of my videos or read any of my newsletters, you'll notice that whenever I'm transitioning to, let's say, this section, so the body, I either start with a quote or an image of a tweet or just straight into the problem, right? That's how I think through, okay, how am I going to start this section? Because that's where most people struggle, is they don't know how to transition between sections and start a new one. Just start with a quote or a tweet or a problem and build on top of it from there. So I included links to these. It's a newsletter that I wrote recently, but you can look through the outline here and you can see in my research how much I have. So I was talking about intelligence, how to become more intelligent than 99% of people. So you can see what I'm doing here. And then I just know from previous experience that Naval had written this tweet. It resurfaced somewhere online and I saw it. This quote also came to mind from Einstein. And then I had this in my Kindle highlights. I don't know why I didn't use the highlight, but then I had this in my highlights of Cortex. So that was there. And then I had images from me researching the stages of ego development. I had my own tweet, and then I had connections of where I wrote a thread on how to become intelligent, cybernetics, which was something that I was learning that was relatively related to intelligence, and then stages of ego development, and then the key points. And you can see I have the Naval quote here. And then as I'm talking about cybernetics, I can include the Maxwell Maltz quote on that. The ego, I can include the images of the stages of ego development here, so on and so forth. So you can look through this and just see how I ideated things. Actually don't think I included much in the brain dump, so I'm going to leave those out, but you can look through the topic and see how I kind of outlined the hook and how I brainstormed some potential ideas. And then that can go there as well if you'd like. But then you can read through the actual draft of the newsletter so you can see how I laid it all out and how I organized everything and how I start things with quotes and how I intersperse quotes and how I use the images as a way to capture and hold attention and to explain on the video, so on and so forth. And then I also linked the video here if you want to go watch that. And that's actually not the video. Okay, I'll relink that. But now the next question is, okay, well, how do I actually read the newsletter script to the camera? This is where a lot of people get tripped up or ask me, and it's as simple as you think it is. So you pull up the newsletter on your phone or on your computer. You press record on your camera and on your audio recording software if you use something separate. I do. And then you read over the sentence or paragraph in your head. So you just start looking at the newsletter, you read a sentence or paragraph, then you look back at the camera and you say it to the camera. And it's okay if you screw up. It's okay if you don't say it perfect because you can just say it again, right? That's the magic of editing, is you just edit it out. The thing with that is you should try to make it as if you are, like, remember that you're on camera and you're talking to a YouTube video, so you should try to say it and practice saying it in an authentic way. The other thing is that as you're reading, ideas may just come to mind and you may just want to talk to the camera for a bit and riff just with the ideas in your head. I do that quite often. But then when you don't want to butcher a sentence, or you have to read something like a quote or a well-written paragraph from yourself, or you're going over an image or something like that, you just look down and read it straight from your phone or computer. Don't worry about looking at the camera because you put stuff over it in editing, right? This is when you add text screens or B-roll, which is stock video, so your face is covered, or you use the images that you posted in the actual newsletter, right? So when my editor is editing the YouTube video, he has my newsletter pulled up so that he can download the images and put them in the video. He can copy paste the actual words so that he can add a text screen and other things like that. Go watch through the video that I link here so you can see what I'm talking about throughout all of that. Now, the last thing is that when you're writing your newsletter, since your promotions are already written in there, like your products or services, then all you need to do is just read that and tell people to go to the link in the description to download it. Now, the last thing is the equipment I use, because people ask. So here's a link to all of those. This can get really expensive. This is probably all maybe $5,000 total. Not a lot of people have that money. So you can go through these and look through them. And then you'll have to watch YouTube tutorials on like how to set things up if you want. But as a beginner, just what I recommend is starting early so that you can practice and get your failures or embarrassments out of the way. So you can just use your phone, right? Rob Lipsett, as an example, a fitness guy, when he first started, he literally duct taped his phone to the wall. He hit record, duct taped it to the wall, and then spoke to the camera. Like, there isn't really any excuses with this. Like, you can work on getting better equipment with time. If you don't want to use your phone, the thing that I take traveling with me that I honestly don't really use much is the Sony ZV-1, which is a little point and shoot camera. It's actually really good. And the Rode Wireless Pro, which is something that you can clip. That's what like Alex Hormozy and Sam Sulek use. You can clip it on your shirt. And it's actually a pretty dang good camera. Microphone. And you just connect the other end to the actual camera. In terms of lighting, it's important to at least think about when you're a beginner. Don't film in a dark room. Don't film with only light behind you. You need some look up a YouTube video on natural lighting or how to set up a softbox. And then you point that at yourself. And once you understand camera and dynamic range, you understand the importance of these things. So you can either have natural light coming in through the window, not direct sunlight on your face because that creates harsh lines, but just natural lighting in a room is good, or softbox on your face is good. If you want to balance it out and make it look a bit more cinematic, try to have LED lights or just some kind of lights behind you. If you go and watch Chris Williamson, or if you really go and watch any YouTube video, they'll have LED signs, they'll have LED lights, they'll have candles, they'll have their kitchen lights, they'll have something behind them that act as a backlight, and they brighten up the background so that your camera doesn't overexpose your face and underexpose the background. So Govee is actually a good brand. If you look them up on Amazon, you can find some lights to start. They're pretty affordable. Find them, start playing with them. The next thing is I use Adobe Premiere, or my editor uses Adobe Premiere. Not everyone has $49 plus a month to spend on video editing equipment, so you can use CapCut, works just fine. You can buy Final Cut Pro for Mac for one price. I'm pretty sure DaVinci Resolve is also one price, and this is like the industry standard. If we weren't using Premiere, like if we weren't so used to it, we would probably switch to DaVinci Resolve. So that's the entire YouTube strategy in a nutshell. I hope that was helpful. We still have a few templates to go over, and I think one more bonus video that I want to give you on micro articles. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. I hope it was helpful. Go grow on YouTube. Bye. I wanted to make a quick video about what I call micro articles, which they look like this. They are images that look like a micro article, right? Now, the reason I wanted to share this is because so far we have two main ways of posting to social media. There's just regular posts, and then there's threads, which are threads of posts pretty much. But there's also long posts, which you just write a lot in one singular post. You go over the 280 character count, and so it just continues. One way that I like to do it is similar to this, where I write a lot more. I try to keep it, I believe this is 300 words, and then I post it to all platforms. So an example on Instagram is it looks like this, and this one did pretty well. So good there. And sometimes they do well, sometimes they don't. It's like any other kind of content. So the reason I wanted to create this video is because when algorithms start to favor one specific thing, you can try it, you can test it out, and you may see a good amount of growth from it, but it may not be sustainable, right? So that's why I like teaching the foundation of posts, threads, and newsletters, is because those are evergreen and those can always do well. The thing with these is that at some point on X, the algorithm started to favor people staying on your content longer, right? And that's kind of the same for every social media platform, is how long can you hold attention on one given post? Are people going into it, and are they replying? Are they reposting it? There's a lot of different engagement metrics that social media platforms take into account. So I saw this type of post doing pretty well, where it just looked like an article. Other people had white backgrounds, and it looked like it came off of a web page or a professional blog. And so I tried it out myself. Now, I'm not going to go over how to write these because I don't have a framework for writing them. I usually start with a big idea, and then I work in problems, examples, goals, etc. until I fill up 300 words. This could be difficult if you're not used to writing this style. But it is one thing you can try. So you can treat it as like a short newsletter or something more philosophical or just a different way of illustrating information. I wanted to tell you this because sometimes it can be helpful on image-based platforms, and if you want to write longer, to do something like this. So what I did on this one is I think I took a previous tweet of mine. I think it was about like being mad at where you are in life. I've talked about that quite a bit. And so I took that, turned it into Be Harder on Yourself, and created a Figma template for it. So if we go to Figma and we go back to the one that we created in the previous video, this one, the way that I would create it is I would create a new frame down here, and you can just drag it, but then I would make it 4 by 5, and I'm pretty sure that's 1000 by 1200. What's 3? I don't know. I believe that's 4 by 5 aspect ratio. So then from here, what you can do is you go into it, you create a big text box, you save some room at the top for a title if you want to include a title. Some people just go straight with the text, and then I would write 300 words worth of content and then measure it inside of here. So if we go into my Cortex long posts, and then we look at one, how long is this? About 320 words. So this is how I write them in Cortex, just in a long post, but I stopped writing them, so I put it in my archive. But now if we paste this here, you can see it's pretty small. So now I'm just going to change it to Helvetica, because that's a pretty standard, good-looking font. Now we have to make it big enough. I'm going to say maybe right there, or 26, and then line height, letter spacing is there. We need to add paragraph spaces. That's not one. That's not one either. So only 4. Yeah. So we make it about that big. I'm going to increase line height to, I think that looks pretty good. And then you have it there, and then you can create a title for it. So this one was just build your own thing for the first hour, something like that. Make it bold, increase to like 36, so it's big enough. And then if you want to add more to this, you can. You can also add bullet points, you can add other things like that. But this sometimes does extremely well in the algorithm, because if people read it, one, it's an image, so people click and it gets engagement. Two, if they read the whole thing, it takes a long time for people to read that. So then the algorithm pushes it out further, because the algorithm favors content that holds attention the longest. So just wanted to throw that out there as a potential option. The reason I make the size 4 by 5 or 1000 by 1200 is because that's the largest size you can fit on Instagram. It also works on LinkedIn, and it also works on YouTube. If we scroll down to one of the ones that I posted, yeah, so you can see here that it like cuts off, but you can, if people click on it, they can see the entire thing. So that's how I create micro articles. tutorials. If you want to test that out, I just wanted to throw it out there as an option if you want something more long form to post on social media, but that is it for this video. See you in the last one next. All right, my friends, the time has come where we tie everything together and we try to do this in one template. So if you go to your Writers Bootcamp workspace by clicking your profile picture here, finding the Writers Bootcamp workspace, you can go to week 5, then you right click, copy to workspace, personal. And then we're going to navigate to my personal workspace where I have the template right here. So there's a few things that you can do here. First is that this is a template that is very similar to the newsletter template that you just went over, but I feel like this one is more structured in the key points. So you do all the same things where you add categories and keywords to organize this document. And the good thing about this is that since we also have newsletter draft and social posts and threads in here, the categories and keywords make it easier to find all of those things week by week, which will make sense soon. Add your categories and keywords just related to what you're going to talk about. You choose a topic. You can list it out here or brainstorm different titles or thumbnails or whatever it may be. You can fill out the hook section if you'd like, where you can just brainstorm the desired outcome of the topic, a potential time frame. What that means is how fast can someone achieve the desired outcome? Is it in 30 days? Is it in 14 days? Is it in 3 to 6 months? Is it in 2 years? What is it? Then a concept or process you want to talk about, like the one-person business or the mastery method, make something up. And then in terms of low friction and relevance, you're illustrating, okay, there's this desired outcome. What makes it quicker for me? So in a headline, you're thinking how to get ahead of 99% of people in 3 to 6 months or without. So the low friction and relevance part is, okay, you are going to achieve the desired outcome without a specific pain point. So how to start a business without any followers, how to start a business without any money to your name, things like that. That helps with a good title or hook. And then you can, if you like, and if this helps, you can turn everything you wrote into a new headline or title or email subject line for your newsletter. Then you have a place to bring up ideas, but as always, you can just capture ideas directly to this document, whatever you name it. And then you have the research section. So you can add quotes, highlights, you can embed tweets or just data or statistics, and then you can add connections from your workspace. So if there are any notes or past newsletters or anything like that that you want to reference, you can add those here as connections. And then the key point section helps you outline things a bit more. So here I kind of give step-by-step guidance on what to do in each section. Here we're following the PAP framework, which is problem, amplify, and process. So in the introduction, the first section, you're attempting to first catch attention, be short, punchy, use quick sentences, and then dig into the problem or pain point based on the topic. If you can, use a personal experience or story. So what I like to do is I like to think about a time in my life where something was happening related to the topic. So if the topic is how to start a business, then I would think back to when I started one or when I was thinking about starting one. And the pain point was I didn't know what niche to choose. I didn't know, or I tried all of these different business models, all of that kind of stuff. Then you can amplify it in the introduction. So the next few sentences are dedicated to amplifying the problem. So what does that lead to? How does that lead towards more pain, right? If I don't know what niche to go into in business and I've tried all of these different business models, what it did for me was it led me into the state of thinking it was a scam, thinking it would never work. So that's how you kind of amplify it, is you just dig deeper into the problem. Now, another thing that really helps is since this is technically, well, one, this is a newsletter, but two, if this turns into a YouTube video, then you need to capture their attention for the rest of the video. So it makes sense if you go to topic and then the hook element, which I'll just open in a pane right here. Oh, that's interesting. I guess I won't. But what happens here, I'll just open it and not close it, is we go here and you can use different parts of these as sentences. So desired outcome. If you want to start a business without any followers in 3 to 6 months, then continue reading, something like that. Or you can break it down further if you'd like. Then in the body, so you add a headline. What I mean by that is if you go and look at any of my newsletters, you see there's the title, and then we start with a problem, and for me it's a big idea or concept in this case, and then they're separated by headlines. So separate by headline, you start writing the body, and then we're just keeping it simple here. With this framework, if you want to use it, is just outline a step-by-step process to overcome the problem. So if the introduction is I didn't know what business to start, I tried starting all these different businesses, okay, well, step-by-step, how do I actually start one then while avoiding those problems? So you list out the steps, and then you can add subheadings for each step if you want, and then what you can do here is sprinkle in your research. So if you can sprinkle in quotes, tweets, or other things that you listed out in research, that helps it flow and it helps hold more attention because it's broken apart and it's easier to read. Then at the end, you have a call to action. So you link your product or service to generate leads. You hit on a pain point. So if you struggle with X, fill out this questionnaire, and I'll reach out to you, see if I can help. That's for something like a freelance service or a coaching service, but you can promote related to any product or service that you have or want to have. Actually, bold that. But that's the newsletter outline. So once you have this written or outlined at the start of the week or whenever you decide to do it, you can open the newsletter draft, and it says write your newsletter here with your outline open in a pane. So now you can open this in a pane, and you can reference it while you write, mainly the key points, because you've already baked in everything else. So you have this open, and then you write next to it, and you can go to your research, you can go to your connections, and you can find other ideas along the way. Now, the special thing about this, or this new template, is that I baked in a new social posts and threads template. So what we can do here is this is your weekly posts. So this is 1 week worth of content. All of this right here is all of your content. You can see here, before we look at the brain dump, that we have a batch of posts on Monday, we have a thread on Tuesday, batch of posts on Wednesday, thread on Thursday, batch of posts on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You can change these around as much as you like and change the name of them. If everyone's using this template, I would probably recommend to choose a different day to write threads on. So that's a good thing. Now, what you can do here in this brain dump is add as many connections as you'd like to help you write all of these posts and threads. So what I do here is you can link swipe files or your topic tree. For you, it would be your brand clarity. So do I have that? Yeah, I have the brand clarity template in here, but then I also have my master swipe file, which contains all of that stuff. So all of my main ideas and topics I want to link here, because then I can quickly open them and I can see, okay, where's my Dia Museum? This is my brand clarity template that we did in week 1. And then if I want, I can go through any of these tags and think, okay, self-improvement, let's just go to a random one, paradox of passion. Okay, I'm gonna force myself to get a tweet out of this. Just write a tweet based on this, or I can turn this into a thread, whatever it may be, right? So even just with the tags, I can go through all my tags, find ideas and write about them, or I can go through all the documents I have linked and find an idea to write about. So the next thing you can do here is link your newsletter for the week. So this one would be called week 5 weekly content, because we haven't named it. But then you can open the newsletter outline at any time. You can look through your brain dump, your research, your key points, and you can turn those into tweets. Another thing you can do here is list out any notes that you would want to reference. So if I look through all the notes that I have in here, like if I want to talk about money, I can add what is money. add that in here, and then I can add sources if I want to as well. But this is more than enough to get started with just writing social posts, right? I have as many ideas as I could possibly need here to write. Now, the next thing you can do is just list out topics around what you want to promote. This is useful for me because I need to know what to post about every day in relation to what it is that I have to sell, or my newsletter, right? So I need to think, okay, I have a writing product, so this week I want to talk about writing. I also have a digital products product, and I could talk about that, but let's just say I want to focus on writing this week and audience building. And then I have my newsletter. So since I give out a free planner when people join my newsletter, I could talk about productivity and planning. So I need to focus on those two things at least once a day. Now, as I go through each day, this is what it looks like. And this is how I write posts, or how I've been writing posts every day. So for Monday, I come in here at the start of the week, or just whenever I have an idea, and I write out a post. Here is some just repurposing guidelines where I post all of these to X and Threads. I post at least 2 of them to LinkedIn, one with a caption. This is the caption right here, where I could write this for any post, right? It doesn't have to be the first one. Post 1 to Instagram and YouTube with the caption. So whichever one I use the caption on, that's what I'm posting to Instagram and YouTube. This may sound confusing. You don't need to pay attention to that if you're just posting to one platform right now. You don't even need the caption if you're just posting to Threads or X, but I want to be comprehensive here and give you something to grow into as you get better at social media. So what you do here is I like to write the post. So this is where I'll write tweet hook, tweet body, body, tweet conclusion. Now the reason I write it in this code editor rather than the actual element is because if I want to add like bullet points or other things, it's just easier to copy paste and maintain the formatting, right? So after I write the post, then I add a tag. So here it would just be like tweet idea, something like that. That way I can reference it later and I have everything organized. Now you can do that again for every post inside of here. And the way you do that is you go over your swipe file ideas. So if I have certain posts that I want to write about, why is there nothing in there? Oh, that's why. It's because I'm capturing ideas to that document. But I could look through these and I could be like, okay, yeah, I want to write about that one. Or I could go to my idea museum and I could write about any of these. I could click on writing since I need to talk about that specific topic when I'm promoting. I can command enter to open this in a pane. I can go through here, look at different ideas. I can go to different connections and notes if I want to. I can look at this tweet. I can look at all these things, pyramid principle, all that fun stuff to write the actual post in here. And then as I write them, this gets more and more fleshed out. And I'll just show you an example of what I do. So personally, I don't like to have these two things together. I like to have my newsletters and my social content separated. So you can see here that I have my newsletter template right here that I use to write inside of, it's called the lab. I should probably just call this newsletters, which I'll do right now just for clarity. Newsletters. So I have this. I have a queue of outlines that I fill out that are just waiting to be written. So I duplicate my newsletter template, I drag it into the queue, and then whichever one I feel like writing for the week, I fill out. And then this honestly shouldn't even be here. So those are the 3 things that I have. And then here I have all of them organized by month. Okay. Now, since I've started doing this for my social content, I have my weekly post template that I can duplicate whenever I want to write posts. And then I go in here. You can see that I have all of the ideas that I want to write about for the week, promo topics, and then all of these inside of here. So what these look like is like this. It looks pretty clean to me. So I have the tweet written here. I make sure to tag it to organize it for later if I ever want to reference this idea. I have those done for 5 different posts, and then a caption. So the caption is what I post to LinkedIn, Instagram, and other things. And this is where I'm promoting either a product or a newsletter. So I start with a hook, I go into it. We talked about this in a previous video, and then I promote towards the bottom if I have anything to promote. This is just where I write the caption so I can go in the morning and paste it onto LinkedIn. So you can see how this looks here, where we learn to do all of this stuff. This is it. So it looks like this. I paste in the caption. I add my tweet that I wrote to a Figma template that we went over how to do. And then the rest of these are posted to X or Threads. And then when I write a thread on Tuesday, I write out the topic, I write out the key points. I have a quote that I wanted to reference or a tweet that I wanted to reference. I have a note that will help me fill things out. I have hook element. I have post elements, as many as I want of them. And then I have the call to actions. And then I just do the same thing every day. I have my caption. So I write 4 to 5 posts, plus a caption every day, just by referencing ideas in my workspace. And then I have all of my threads written out in here so they're easy to copy and paste over. And I do that every day, and pretty simple. So it makes a lot of sense. That's how I write my content. That's how you can write yours. One thing I would recommend doing is when you duplicate this template, you can do it in one of 2 ways. You can do it like me, where I separate by newsletter and social content. So I have a newsletters folder. Then I have the template here, which would be this document, the week 5 weekly content, and then 2024 writing organized by month. And then I have each newsletter outline and draft inside of there. And then for social content, I'm doing the same thing where I have the template. I have organized by month for now until I fill up enough to add a yearly folder. And then I just rename the template every week as I write the post and go on about it like that. Now, if I ever have ideas when I'm on the go, what I can do is open Capture here or on my phone. And then I just go at social content because that's where all of my tweets are. And then I can just add a tweet idea here. Like I have all of these, where if I'm scrolling on social media and I see a link or a tweet that I want to emulate or gain inspiration from, then I just write them down all here. So I can also open this as I'm writing my posts for the week. So I can have Capture open. And I can choose one of these, write it as a post, and then good to go. Cool. So that is it. We learned everything else pretty well. Once you post a newsletter, you can turn it into a YouTube video. If you post your tweets to X, you can then turn them into content for all other platforms. So yes, this was the final week. It was definitely a lot, but you can refer to this back. You can refer back to this at any time. And hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully everything built up into some understanding of social media content and writing. So I thank you for watching so far. Talk soon. Bye.